I was born into a prestigious family, yet I defected to the heaven demon's command and became a demonic cultivator despised by everyone in the martial world. The martial arts community, fearing my power, united forces from various sects to capture me. Just as I was about to reveal all my grievances, due to the restrictions of the demonic arts, my heart ultimately exploded and I died. Young master, delicious potatoes, would you like to try some? The girl's question pulled my dazed mind back to reality. I looked at everything before me in disbelief. Hadn't I already died from violating the heaven demon's restriction? But why was my heart now beating normally? After coming to my senses, I looked at the girl before me and froze. I had been reborn. But why did I return to the first time I met her of all moments? The girl's name was Wei Shuer, and in my previous life she was a direct disciple of the Sword Master. In the great battle to suppress demons, she not only single-handedly slaughtered hundreds of demonic cultivators, but also delivered the fatal strike to the heaven demon at the crucial moment. Looking at this familiar scene, I vaguely remembered how I had mercilessly crushed the potato she offered me, and even said with disgust, "How rude. How dare you present such a thing to me?" Thinking of this, I immediately felt guilty about my past behavior. Then I proactively reached out and accepted Wei Shuer's potato, smiling as I told her I would definitely enjoy it. But just as I took a big bite, I was completely shocked because the burning sensation on my tongue felt incredibly real. This wasn't a dream. I had truly been reborn into the past. Just then, someone rushed over urgently saying, "Young master, how did you end up here alone?" The person was none other than the Q family's guard, Wu Yan. Seeing his young master's mouth burned, he immediately drew his blade to strike Wei Shuer, but I stopped him. I said, "How rude. Quickly give me the steamed bun you're carrying." After receiving the steamed bun, I smoothly handed it to Wei Shuer. The guard was stunned by this scene. Had the young master taken the wrong medicine today, actually sharing something with someone else? I scratched my head awkwardly and said, "I accepted your delicious potato, so consider this a return gift." Wei Shuer looked at the steamed bun before her, practically drooling. But just then, a voice suddenly came from behind, stopping her. The person was Wei Shuer's grandfather. Seeing it was her grandfather, Wei Shuer immediately ran to embrace him. Grandfather asked with concern if she was hurt. Wei Shuer indicated that grandfather needn't worry and told him what had just happened. However, I looked at the old man before me with complete shock, because in my previous life, this person was one of the 3 Venerables Alliance leader, who held the position of marshal and struck fear into the demon cult, Sword Master Wei Xiaojun. But the next second, the old man grabbed Wei Shuer and quickly came before me, bowing in apology. "My granddaughter is ignorant. I hope the young master can be lenient." Seeing this, I hurriedly said, "Elder, I should be the one expressing gratitude. Thanks to your granddaughter's potato, I was able to fill my stomach. However, all I can offer in return is this steamed bun. I hope you can accept it." The old man was quite surprised by this. Wei Shuer stared at the steamed bun with gleaming eyes. Just as she was about to reach out and take it, the old man held Wei Shuer and ran backward, saying, "We cannot accept something so valuable." But they hadn't run a few steps before I called them to stop again. Then I once more placed the steamed bun in Wei Shuer's hands. Wei Shuer looked at the steamed bun happily. At the same time, grandfather's lips curved into a meaningful smile. It seemed Shuer had found that person. After seeing the two off, I breathed a long sigh of relief, although I didn't understand why the Swordmaster would come to such a place. At least I had saved my life, which was good. A moment later, arriving at my family's gate, I was puzzled. Why had I been reborn? Could it be because of the heaven demon's curse? But just then, a voice interrupted my thoughts. The person was my second sister, Red Blazing Sword Chu Yanshu, who was also the person in this family who looked down on me the most, learning from the servants that today was the day the family had returned. Second sister warned, "Don't pull any tricks. After all, you can count on one hand how many times you've come back to this family." However, I directly pushed her hand away, saying, "I was wrong for rarely coming back before. I will apologize to father." This instantly angered my second sister. With a loud shout, the internal energy in her body immediately circulated rapidly, the powerful force even causing the ground to cave in. Then she walked toward me with a fierce glint in her eyes. She said, "Although I don't know what you're up to this time, I'm really angry now." At this critical moment, the sound of a horse came from not far away. The person was none other than the Q family head. We hurriedly bowed respectfully, but father merely glanced over, his naturally imposing demeanor making me tremble. Then father asked the steward, "Are there any sword teams still in preparation?" Upon learning the third sword team was on standby, he immediately issued a summons order. He also specifically instructed me to come alone to the family head's office after dinner. Hearing this, I was both surprised and afraid. I said, "After dinner, can I say my stomach hurts and not go?" The scene shifted to the evening banquet. Due to the overly heavy atmosphere, the delicious dishes before me didn't seem appetizing at all. Just as I was hoping someone would stand up to break this awkwardness, father suddenly spoke, saying, "Yanshu, I heard your martial arts have improved considerably." Second sister said, "I've had some recent insights advanced to 3-star strength a few days ago." Father couldn't help but praise upon hearing this. "I didn't expect you to surpass so many experts at such a young age." Looking at second sister's smiling, blushing face, I was quite surprised. I didn't know second sister could smile, but when our eyes met, she immediately changed her expression. Just then, father suddenly shifted the topic to me, saying, "I heard you went to the market street. Did you have fun?" After I gave my affirmative answer, father showed a hesitant expression. Before finishing his words, he left alone. Then a servant came to notify me. "Young master, the family head said you should rest well tonight and come see him tomorrow." After returning to my room, I gazed out the window thoughtfully. Since I had been reborn, did that mean I could eliminate the heaven demon first? But I quickly rejected my own idea. How could I possibly kill the heaven demon, who was said to be even more formidable than the three venerables? In my previous life, to save my life, I had no choice but to defect to the demon cult, becoming a demonic cultivator, barely surviving. I deeply regretted this, but it also made me see many things clearly. Since I had been reborn this time, I must choose a different life. Anyway, the demon cult would ultimately be destroyed, and the heaven demon would die at Wei Shuer's hands. Now I just needed to quietly live until everything ended and absolutely not repeat my previous life's mistakes. So I directly concentrated the true energy in my body. Feeling that minuscule amount of true energy, I couldn't help but sneer. This rat-dropping sized true energy, compared to second sister's strength, I was simply trash. With that thought, I began practicing the 9 Flames Fire Wheel technique. This was an exclusive mental technique that only those with QIU family blood could learn. Not only could it emit red internal energy after reaching 4-star strength, but it could also use internal energy for protection after reaching 7 stars. But now I was only at the lowest 1-star level. To save my life, I immediately decided to quickly accumulate internal energy to advance to 2-star, but relying solely on my own power to cultivate was extremely difficult. If I continued this way, I might go astray. Yet despite this, through my unrelenting efforts, I finally succeeded in advancing to 2-star. The next day, due to last night's exhausting cultivation, I still felt physically exhausted when I woke up. I knew this was the result of not cultivating for a long time. But just as I opened the door to continue cultivating, a familiar face appeared at the doorway. This person was none other than Wei Shuer, whom I had just bid farewell to yesterday, leaving me momentarily dazed. It turned out that in my previous life, one day, the void suddenly shattered, and countless demons descended to wreak havoc on the mortal world. People collectively called it the Demon Mirror Gate. So the major sects began training sword teams to combat the demons. They mastered all the sect's secret techniques. The prestigious QIU family also commanded 5 fleets, with eldest sister Chu Shifei serving as captain of the 5th sword team. The arrogant and domineering me had also trained under her. It was precisely during that period that I saw Wei Shuer for the second time, but that was half a year after our first meeting. Yet why would we meet again so soon now? Was I still not fully awake? But the next second, Wei Shuer grabbed my clothing. Just as she was about to speak, a hand suddenly appeared and quickly pulled her hand away. Wei Shuer's grandfather said, "Shuer, how can you be so rude to the young master?" Hearing the address, young master, I was immediately puzzled. Then he explained, "Thanks to the family head's appreciation, from today onward, Shuer and I will begin serving the young master. I don't know if you're satisfied with us, but we will do our absolute best and hope for your continued guidance." Hearing this, I was extremely shocked, but since it was father's decision, I could only obediently accept. Yet watching Wei Xiaojun working so diligently, I felt something was increasingly wrong. The sword master was actually sweeping the courtyard at my home. This was simply too absurd. What I hadn't expected even more was that the future #1 divine sword under heaven had actually become my personal maid. It seemed that the exclusive servant work that everyone had been avoiding had been taken on by Wei Shuer, but with her clumsy appearance, how could she seem competent at all? I couldn't help but sigh inwardly. Why did this life feel like it was destined to fail from the start? I didn't know if father knew their true identities, or if it was because no one wanted to serve me that he recruited them. But just as I was about to find father to understand the situation, Wei Shuer hurried to follow along. Although a personal maid needed to stay by the master's side at all times, I still decided to leave her behind. Looking at her pitiful expression, I specifically instructed her to work hard before leaving, and that I would bring steamed bun back for her. Wei Shuer immediately beamed with joy upon hearing this. A moment later, arriving at father's door, I hesitated. After all, in my previous life, my relationship with father wasn't very close, and I never had the opportunity for such a private conversation. But just then, father suddenly appeared behind me, struck up a conversation, and urged me to hurry inside. After entering the room, I expressed my confusion about father's arrangement of placing Wei Xiaojun and Wei Shuer by my side. But father kept me in suspense, saying he would tell me everything when the time was right, which strengthened my conviction. It seemed father knew the swordmaster's true identity, but what exactly were they doing this for? Then father indicated I needn't worry about these small matters and reminded me to quickly prepare for today's departure to the Dragon Gathering Assembly. Hearing this, my expression changed, and refusal was written all over my face. I remembered that Elder Li was in charge of this Dragon Gathering Assembly. Since childhood, among all the elders, he had been the strictest with me, because only if I, the QIU family's sole son, became strong, could the Qiu family continue to secure its prestigious position. So whenever he had time, he would subject me to forced education. After returning to my residence, looking at the carriage ready to depart, I asked the maids with ill intent if everything was prepared. Then Wei Shu'er emerged from between two maids. After careful grooming, a bashful beauty appeared before my eyes, which immediately made my face turn red. Before I could come to my senses, Wei Shu'er suddenly ran up to me and asked, "Young master, do you think Shu'er is beautiful today?" The sudden question left me at a loss. Then I pretended to be angry and ordered everyone to depart quickly. Along the way, Wei Shu'er, riding in a carriage for the first time, was extremely excited because she had always thought horses were for eating, never imagining horses could run so fast. Then I asked guard Wu Yan about the specific details of this dragon gathering assembly. From Wu Yan, I learned that this dragon gathering assembly was being held by the 1,000 Days Merchant House and would take 4 hours to reach. Having been busy cultivating all night, I had just prepared to catch up on sleep when Wei Shu'er beside me began chattering endlessly about the taste of horse meat. Seeing this, I directly stuffed a steamed bun into her mouth, which finally quieted her down. Several hours later, we finally arrived at our destination. Having caught the grand celebration, the streets here were particularly lively. Just then, a voice suddenly came from not far away. The person was the vice merchant chief of 1,000 Days Merchant House, Qian Yishi. After a few pleasantries, the vice merchant chief was about to lead us to the inn. Along the way, I only hoped not to encounter my second sister, but the result was contrary to my wishes. I ran right into second sister Qiu Yanshu. Upon seeing me, second sister's face immediately darkened. I proactively greeted second sister but was met with disgust. She even warned me not to bring shame to the family at the dragon gathering assembly, or she couldn't guarantee she wouldn't commit righteous familial extermination. This startled Wei Shu'er beside me, who then trembled and hid behind me. Seeing Wei Shu'er, second sister said, "A leopard can't change its spots. Even here you don't know restraint." But before I could understand what she meant, second sister slammed the door shut. Then I asked the vice merchant chief to first take me to see the dragon gathering assembly venue. It was said that merchants like to judge a merchant group's financial power by the venue's scale, so each dragon gathering assembly venue was extremely spacious. Today was the day to reward the sword teams. Tomorrow would be the highly anticipated sword team selection competition. Fortunately, direct blood relatives didn't need to participate in this competition. But just as I was feeling relieved, a burly figure suddenly appeared behind me. By the time I reacted, a large hand had already come before me, seeing no way to avoid it. The next second, that large hand gently landed on my head, rubbing back and forth. The person was Elder Li. He said, "I heard you weren't very willing to come to the dragon gathering assembly," I said irritably. "Didn't you say if I didn't come you'd tear me in half?" Elder Li pretended to deny my statement, then quickly changed the subject. "Didn't you say you'd meet with me first thing after arriving?" Just then, Wei Shu'er beside him suddenly stared at Elder Li and exclaimed in amazement, "Ah, it's a bear. Bear meat must be delicious." But she was met with a cold, sharp gaze, which scared Wei Shu'er to tears. Then she hurriedly hid behind me, stammering that she would never eat bear meat again. Seeing our intimate actions, Elder Li asked, "Is this girl your concubine?" Hearing this, I hurriedly denied it, saying you could tell from her clothes she was a servant. Then Elder Li indicated I should rest early because I had to participate in tomorrow's dragon battle. Looking at Wei Shu'er hiding in the distance, I casually agreed. Before leaving, Elder Li also warned, "If you try to run away, the consequences will be severe." After we walked away, Elder Li was lost in thought again, thinking, that girl must be something special. The next day, I brought Wu Yan and Wei Shu'er to the dragon battle venue. From various sects to Qiu family branch members, anyone who could prove their identity could participate in the selection. After all, becoming a member of a sword team was quite remarkable. However, Wei Shu'er was still worried that Elder Li might suddenly appear and snap her neck. I said, "Don't worry, if he comes, Wu Yan will take care of him for you." And Wu Yan quietly indicated he had no way to deal with Elder Li either. I couldn't help but tease, the next year's today might be Shu'er's death anniversary. Wei Shu'er was scared silly by this joke, then pointed at the steamed bun cart in the distance and said, "Grandfather said being a well-fed ghost would look better." Wu Yan also hadn't expected the young master would grant a servant's every request. He said, "You truly are different from the rumored spoiled young master." But only I knew that this innocent-looking girl before me would become the martial world's #1 divine sword in the future. Just then, a voice in the distance attracted our attention. A servant indicated the girl shouldn't run around, saying there were many Qiu family people here. It would be bad if she ran into young Master Qiu. However, the girl turned a deaf ear, saying, "With so many people, how could I possibly run into him?" The more I listened to this voice, the more familiar it sounded. Wait, the young Master Qiu they were talking about couldn't be me, right? As a result, the girl turned around and immediately saw the person she least wanted to see. The girl and servant froze on the spot. I also recognized the girl at first glance. Shoulder-length hair and jet black eyes, plus the ring symbolizing her identity. She was Miss Peng, and also my former fiancé. The reason for the engagement with the Peng family, one of the 4 great families, was simple. It was a marriage of mutual benefit. The problem was that in the past I was simply too troublesome. But what ended this engagement was my contemptuous behavior toward her. I remember constantly provoking her by saying she was a concubine's daughter. Unable to bear it any longer, she finally struck me, even grabbing a stool without any regard for appearances and beating me up. Now I curiously asked her why she was here. The girl said somewhat angrily, "This isn't your Q family's territory, so why can't I be here? And why do you always speak so casually? Have you forgotten I'm a year older than you?" I adopted a friendly attitude and quickly apologized, calling her older sister. After Wei Shuer finished buying steamed buns, I said to the girl again, "Regardless of what happened before, I hope you have fun here this time." Hearing this, the girl was completely dumbfounded, thinking, why does he seem different from before? But she quickly dismissed her own thought. Maybe he's just in a good mood today. How could this little lunatic suddenly become sensible? Just then, a voice attracted the attention of all three of us. A man said, "I already told you time is tight. Can you take responsibility if I get caught?" The registration manager immediately became alert upon hearing this and asked him to write his identity on the registration form. Seeing the situation become delicate, Wu Yan proactively asked me if we should go help. I said, "Don't worry. Although anyone can participate in the competition, those with unclear identities cannot participate. Besides, there are many who cause trouble during registration, and the QIU family warriors maintaining order will handle it." At this moment, the lead QIU family warrior placed his hand on the man's shoulder, warning him not to cause trouble. But the next second, the man violently threw him to the ground. This sudden scene infuriated the manager. But the man said, "I've already proven myself with my strength. Can I participate in the competition now?" Seeing this, Wu Yan again asked me if we needed to intervene. However, I turned and walked toward the venue, because I didn't want to get involved in strange matters again. On the other side, after the manager clearly refused the man's participation request, the man sternly questioned whether he was looking down on the Peng family's young master. At these words, I immediately turned back to look. I hadn't expected that this troublemaker was actually the martially exceptional Peng family young master. It turned out that 4 months ago, Peng Yuzhen graduated as the top disciple from the Divine Dragon Hall, presided over by the Martial Alliance leader, becoming the youngest young master in history. But he himself couldn't be happy about it at all, and even wanted to burn the identity plaque the family head had given him as firewood. Although younger sister Peng Yaqian didn't understand his thinking, she still suggested he go out and have fun for a few days to relax. Peng Yaqian never imagined her brother would be gone for 4 months. Fortunately, through extensive inquiries, she learned of her brother's latest whereabouts, and thus pursued him here. Now Peng Yuzhen was very puzzled. He had already shown his identity and strength, so why still couldn't he participate? Did he really need to demonstrate a Peng family ultimate technique here? Hearing this, I became more certain of his identity as the Peng family young master. But having lived a second life, to avoid getting involved in strange matters again, I decided to leave quickly. But the next second, a large hand stopped me. It was Elder Li. Elder Li immediately stepped forward and agreed to Peng Yuzhen's participation request, because his face, identical to the Peng family heads, and the ring on his hand engraved with the character Peng were sufficient proof of his identity. Peng Yuzhen recognized the old man and said, "I am Peng family young master Peng Yuzhen. It's an honor to meet the highly esteemed flame fist hero of the Qiyu family." Elder Li laughed heartily, not expecting young people nowadays to have heard of his old nickname. But what interested him most was why the Peng family young master would want to join another family's sword team. Peng Yuzhen answered without thinking, "The Peng family is too boring." Such a straightforward answer was beyond Elder Li's expectations. He said, "Did you get the Peng family's permission?" Peng Yuzhen said smugly, "They would never agree, so I ran away from home." Elder Li laughed awkwardly at this. "You're really interesting." Then he couldn't help but praise, "I didn't expect you to have such strength at such a young age." After saying this, he looked at me and said, "If only our young master had half your strength, I'd be eternally grateful." Although the words were somewhat hurtful, I knew that if he really was Peng Yuzhen, then he was indeed formidable, because in the near future, he would become the Dao Emperor Peng Yuzhen that people spoke of. Just then, Peng Yaqian's voice came from not far away. Before Peng Yuzhen could react, he took a solid punch from Peng Yaqian. The powerful force sent him flying several meters. Peng Yaqian sternly scolded, "You left home without explanation for months, and now you even want to join another family sword team." Peng Yaqian grew angrier as she spoke, then rode on top of Peng Yuzhen and beat him up again. Just then, a voice from behind suddenly stopped her. The speaker was Elder Li. Peng Yaqian also recognized the old man and quickly apologized. "I was rude, Flame Fist hero. Some family matters have caused quite a bit of trouble for the Qiaoyu family. We won't add to the chaos here." But just as she was about to take Peng Yuzhen away, Peng Yuzhen's expression immediately darkened. He said, "I said I'm not leaving." Peng Yaqian was stunned, because this was the first time she had seen her brother with such an expression. But the next second he returned to his original appearance, saying, "Dear sister, the Peng family is simply too boring." Peng Yaqian advised him that as Peng family young master, he should be more mature. Peng Yuzhen believed one should enjoy oneself fully before becoming family head, since he had never wanted to become young master anyway. But aside from you and me in the family, the others are nothing but beasts borrowing the family name. So even though I'm unwilling, I'll still take on the young master title and become family head. I said, Elder Lee, his participation will bring trouble to the QIU family, right? Elder Lee immediately confirmed my thought. So he proposed to Peng Yuzhen, if you can touch him within 10 rounds, you can stay and participate. These words successfully ignited Peng Yuzhen's fighting spirit. As both sides finished preparing, the next second he flashed behind Elder Lee, drew the guard's sword, and slashed directly at Elder Lee. Just then, something unexpected happened. Elder Lee turned and delivered a punch, directly sending him flying several meters away. He immediately fell into unconsciousness. Just as Elder Lee was gloating about this, I cast a disdainful look at him saying, "Elder Lee, didn't you say you'd only dodge?" To avoid implicating myself, I explained to Peng Yaqian that this was all Elder Lee's arbitrary decision. However, Peng Yaqian had already seen through Elder Lee's intention and expressed her gratitude. She said, "If you hadn't intervened, I don't know how much more trouble this willful brother of mine would have caused." Afterward, just as I was about to take Wei Shuer away, she was captivated by Elder Lee's strength just now. Bear Grandpa is simply amazing. Elder Lee was overjoyed hearing Wei Shuer's praise, then took out a steamed bun and gave it to her. Then Elder Lee also said he had prepared a big gift for me too. That evening, the highly anticipated competition officially began, and the first match was a showdown between the QIU family's future twin stars. This was the big gift Elder Lee mentioned. After all, this was the Dragon Gathering Assembly hosted by the QIU family. It would be bad if everyone said it was boring, but in my view, this was just the old man finding entertainment for everyone. So I planned to forfeit midway. Elder Lee seemed to see through my thoughts, and smiled while pointing at Peng Yuzhen, lying on the ground, saying, "If you forfeit, you know what will happen." I said, "Do you really want to see me get beaten up and lose in front of everyone?" Hearing this, Elder Lee said seriously, "Haven't you really thought about winning?" Little did he know that, having lived a second life, I only wanted to live peacefully through this lifetime. At this moment, Second Sister mocked me for going on stage without a weapon, but I didn't care. The 9 Flames Fire Wheel technique could be used with various weapons, with sword and fist techniques being most remarkable when combined. In the end, I found that fists suited me better. Just then, Second Sister suddenly smiled wickedly, thinking, having such an opportunity is simply wonderful. I can legally beat my own brother, and in front of so many people too. Why should a boy naturally become family head? I wish you would die right now. As the match began, Second Sister immediately launched a fierce offensive against me, but I barely dodged them all. Second Sister couldn't understand why her 3-star swordsmanship was being evaded by her 2-star brother. Catching my breath, I quickly pondered how I should lose this match. Take a hit and then pretend to fall. But right now, her every attack was full of danger. Would I really be okay if I took one hit? Just as I was distracted, Second Sister seized the opportunity to come before me, grabbed my collar and held me firmly, then swung her sword to strike me again. Fortunately, I reacted in time. With a turn, I pulled my clothing off my body, and the removed clothing was violently split in two. Seeing this, cold sweat broke out on my forehead. I wanted to reason with her, but Second Sister's eyes had already turned bloodshot. Her sword was gathering masses of internal energy. She said, "Why can you, this trash, easily push aside all my efforts?" After saying this, she rushed at me with everything. But no matter how she attacked, I evaded it all, because these deadly moves only made it easier for me to dodge. But if this continued, this match would never end. So just as I was about to give up resisting, Second Sister suddenly said, "Only knowing how to dodge, you should just disappear like your mother." The next second, Second Sister's eyes widened in disbelief. She hadn't expected that her full-strength strike would be directly blocked by me. I tightly gripped Second Sister's small hand. The powerful aura also made her sense a hint of danger, so she quickly leaped backward, creating distance. The next second, I flashed behind her and directly threw a punch toward her. At the same time, Peng Yaqian admired, the two competing on stage are Black Phoenix's younger siblings, right? They're roughly my age, yet have such strength. It seems I can no longer swagger around using the Peng family name. And the Black Phoenix Peng Yaqian mentioned was my eldest sister Qiu Shifei, also the most remarkable person I'd ever met. Not only did she earn a reputation in the martial world at age 15, but she also became captain of the Qiu family's 5th sword team at the age of 20. Then Peng Yaqian asked elder brother Peng Yuzhen if he could hear what the two on stage were saying. Peng Yuzhen shook his head and said, "Elder Lee has already used internal energy to set up a barrier around the venue." But just as Peng Yaqian guessed that Chu Yanshu would win this match, Peng Yuzhen had a different view because, in his opinion, I had already firmly grasped control of the situation. He hadn't expected the Qiu family to have someone even more formidable than Black Phoenix. Peng Yaqian looked at her brother's excited expression, falling into a daze. Perhaps just as he said, after becoming family head, he wouldn't be able to enjoy himself freely. At the same time, the match on stage also entered a white-hot phase. After dodging several of my attacks, Second Sister finally found an opportunity to counterattack. Looking at her fierce, merciless sword strike, it reminded me of childhood. Back then, we were each other's best companions, and my mother treated this half-sister as her own, until mother disappeared, and father ordered that no one was allowed to search for her. Everything changed. It was from that time I began becoming temperamental, and rumors even spread in the martial world that I molested pretty maids. But even so, the fact that I was the next family head didn't change, because every generation's family head was a man. This caused second sister's mentality to become twisted, and she gradually developed disgust toward me. What qualifies an unlearned troublemaker to be this young family head? Coming back to my senses, flame-like internal energy began circulating in my palm. I said, I know you hate me, and I can understand what you're saying. After all, I really am just coasting along, but please try to understand me too, sister. After saying this, I directly punched second sister in the face. This caused second sister to immediately lose consciousness. After the match ended, I sat alone by the door, filled with regret. I hadn't planned to win at all. Never mind that I only had 2-star strength. Knocking out second sister, who had considerable cultivation, with just one move and making her faint on the spot, was simply impossible for me to explain to everyone. Just then, Guard Wu Yan and Wei Shuer found me. After some words of concern, Wu Yan spoke up, saying the atmosphere inside had been very chaotic just now, but fortunately Elder Li stepped in promptly to calm the scene. I wasn't surprised by this at all, since a famous waste had actually defeated this generation's star of hope. At this moment, Wei Shuer noticed my hand covered in wounds, which made me realize I still couldn't perfectly control internal energy. She immediately took out bandages wanting to dress my wounds, but after wrapping them around repeatedly, it was a complete mess. Then she said, I don't know how to do these things, so please don't get hurt again in the future. As soon as she finished speaking, Peng Yuzhen suddenly appeared and teased, I also don't like seeing young Master Chu get hurt. After Peng Yuzhen and I got to know each other, Peng Yaqian, hiding behind a servant, felt a bit awkward and begged her brother to leave quickly. Peng Yuzhen immediately caught on, saying, you're embarrassed because you annulled your engagement with young Master Chu, right? Why not take this opportunity to reconcile? Hearing this, I also felt speechless, so I quickly changed the subject. Young Master Peng, did you come find me for some reason? Peng Yuzhen said he wanted to make friends with me. He didn't expect that besides Black Phoenix, the QIU family was hiding a strong person like me. This made me very confused, and I asked, are you very familiar with my sister? Peng Yuzhen said, yes, but I just don't know what your sister thinks. At the moment of parting, Peng Yaqian suddenly turned around and stopped in place. I asked her if she had something to say. I heard her stammering about what happened on the day the engagement was broken off. She said, I went too far hitting you with a chair that day, so I wanted to. Before she could finish, I took the first step to express my apology to her. My behavior that day was too absurd, and I really deserve to be hit. You don't need to feel guilty about it. Hearing this, Peng Yaqian showed a relieved smile. She said, Q Yangtian, I look forward to seeing you again next time. Before leaving, she didn't forget to remind me to take good care of what her brother gave me. About this, I was very confused. What was this badge actually for? On the way back to the QIU family, I couldn't remember having any experience of fighting with my sister in my previous life. Even the number of times I won against others was very few, and all of this seemed to become different from my previous life after Wei Shuer came to my side. I didn't know what kind of changes the kindness I showed her would bring in the future. I couldn't help but sigh. No matter what, as long as I didn't repeat the mistakes of my previous life, it would be fine. Just then, I suddenly sensed something, so I hurriedly ordered Wu Yan to check the Demon Immortal Talisman. But looking at the completely motionless Demon Immortal Talisman, he immediately signaled that I didn't need to be nervous, because once a Demon Mirror Gate appeared, the Demon Immortal Talisman would definitely glow. But just as he finished speaking, the Demon Immortal Talisman suddenly started flickering, so Wu Yan hurriedly issued an order to the convoy to stop moving forward, and instructed everyone, the Demon Mirror Gate has appeared. Prepare for battle. Protecting the young master's safety is the priority. But the next second, I suddenly appeared beside him and started warming up. Wu Yan reminded me that the current situation was very dangerous, but I didn't pay attention to his nagging and instead looked toward the open ground not far away. I saw a crack emitting green light appear out of thin air ahead. As the crack grew larger and larger, the next second, several ferocious-looking wolf demons rushed straight toward us. Seeing the situation, I immediately prepared for battle. The danger level of a green demon mirror gate was very low. Although it was a bit troublesome, it was completely manageable. Then I killed a demon wolf with one punch. Immediately after, I dug out the magic stone from its body. This was also the common weakness of all demon beasts. As long as this thing was dug out, they would die immediately. But I still overestimated my physical strength. Digging out the magic stone wasn't difficult, but continuously using the 9 flames fire wheel technique consumed me way too much. But the demon wolves didn't give me any chance to catch my breath. They bared their teeth and pounced on me. At this critical moment, Wu Yan arrived in time and stood in front of me. With just one sword strike, he killed all the demon wolves. This made me curious about this personal bodyguard. Who was this guy's true identity? At this time, Wu Yan asked me with concern if I was injured. I signaled that he didn't need to worry and expressed my gratitude for his timely rescue. Hearing this, Wu Yan also breathed a sigh of relief. Just then, my right hand suddenly emitted a purple flame, but before I could figure out the reason, the next second, intense pain made me kneel directly on the ground. This sudden change also startled everyone, but I immediately understood. This was the demonic Dao technique, thousand absorption technique, causing trouble. This also pulled my memory back to my previous life. A man whose arm had been severed questioned me, "Why did you slaughter my entire sect? What did we do wrong?" However, the only response he got was a cold face. "Are these your last words?" After saying that, a head suddenly rolled to the man's side. He immediately recognized It was the sect master. At the same time, a huge black shadow also enveloped the man. I saw a figure standing on a giant dragon and said coldly, "The Huashan sect isn't bad either. Although it didn't completely please me, it did provide some slight amusement. It was precisely because of that operation that the heavenly demon passed on the demon sect's secret technique, the 1,000 absorption technique, to me as a reward. Just as I came back to my senses, I discovered that the 9 flames firewheel technique was actually devouring the demonic energy in my body. But in my previous life, I clearly hadn't encountered this situation. After the pain gradually disappeared, looking at Wei Shu'er and Wu Yan's worried expressions, I hurriedly got up and made an excuse I probably injured somewhere else during the sparring match with second sister. Letting others know that I could absorb demonic energy was not something worth showing off. The next second, Wei Shu'er rubbed my face and said, "Why didn't you tell me you were injured?" Just as I was being tortured to the point of going crazy, the maid who sensed something was wrong hurriedly pulled Wei Shu'er away. Wu Yan was also worried about this and said, "Young master, let's find a medical clinic first." But I refused his kindness and told him I would be fine after getting some rest. As I was getting ready to depart, I discovered that the demonic power had disappeared from my body. Even the magic stone from earlier had been absorbed dry and become dim. Was it really devoured by the 9 flames firewheel technique? But no matter what, I had to hurry up and become stronger. The next day, I was strolling through the market with Wu Yan and Wei Shu'er, but after discovering a stall selling steamed buns, Wei Shu'er's eyes immediately lit up as she gave me hints. However, I didn't pay attention to her. Seeing this, she immediately hugged my thigh and said, "If you're not buying steamed buns, why did you bring me out?" I said, "You heard we were coming to the market and used what your grandfather said as an excuse to follow along." Wu Yan asked, "Young master, what are we coming to the market to do? Your body hasn't fully recovered yet. If there's no particular reason, we should go back as soon as possible." I said, "I do have something to do this time. You'll definitely come in handy when the time comes." Then, while passing by a street, I immediately stopped in my tracks. I told Shu'er to go back to the QIU family first and promised to bring her 10 steamed buns tonight. Just like that, after sending Wei Shu'er away, I led Wu Yan to find our destination. This was a gloomy and dilapidated drum tower. After pushing open the door, several burly men immediately shifted their attention to us. Looking at Wu Yan carrying a weapon, they immediately became alert. At this time, an uncle carrying an oil lamp walked out from among them. He said, "This isn't a suitable place for strolling. What are you here to do?" I directly stated my purpose and said, "Of course, to do business with you." The uncle said, "Don't you think before you speak? Should I cut out your tongue to wake up your brain?" Hearing this, Wu Yan immediately prepared to draw his sword, but I stopped him. I said, "If you're not afraid of the Qiyu family razing this place to the ground, you'd better not make a move. So before that happens, hurry up and have your branch chief come out to meet me." Looking at such an ignorant child, at the uncle's signal, a group of burly men also slowly surrounded us. With a single command, they instantly swung their weapons and swarmed toward us, but I stayed in place without moving. The next second, Wu Yan directly drew his sword. With just one move, he knocked down all the attackers. Seeing this scene, the uncle was immediately at a loss. He knew this bodyguard must be extraordinarily skilled, but he also didn't dare rashly bring me before the branch chief. Just as he was in a difficult position, someone suddenly walked out from the room door behind him and conveyed the branch chief's instructions to him. Just as I thought the two were plotting some scheme, the uncle suddenly spoke, "The branch chief wants to see you." Hearing this, I immediately instructed Wu Yan to put away his sword. Wu Yan asked me what my purpose was in coming here. I then confessed everything to him. Originally, I planned to go to the beggar sect to gather some intelligence, but something came up. The beggar sect was unmatched in collecting intelligence, but as they were a righteous sect, if I entrusted this matter to them, problems might arise. So I could only take another route and find the evil sect with the strongest intelligence gathering ability, the Xia Wu sect. I also got to meet the branch chief, Dao Yunchu, as I wished. She immediately apologized for her subordinate's earlier rudeness, but what puzzled her was why a prestigious family like the QIU family wouldn't look for the beggar sect, and instead came to find these lowly evil sect people like them. I said directly, "Because the beggar sect can't handle this commission, so can you accept the commission or not?" Dao Yunchu said, "As long as you can afford the price, the Xia Wu sect has never had a reason to refuse a commission." So I directly took out a portrait and said I was looking for a boy around 10 years old. After carefully examining it, Dao Yunchu suddenly said, "I'm very sorry, but this commission might be difficult for us to accept. Finding a child's whereabouts is somewhat difficult for us." Hearing this, I said directly, "Information about your sect master is the commission fee." As soon as these words were spoken, the subordinates behind her drew their swords one after another. Then they fiercely slashed toward me. At this critical moment, Wu Yan intervened in time and blocked all the attacks with one sword. Then Dao Yunchu asked me with a gloomy face how I knew about the sect master. I said, "I'm not here to play question and answer games. Mastering the opponent's intelligence is necessary." After hearing this, Dao Yunchu confirmed with me again about the authenticity of the intelligence. I put on a nonchalant expression and said with a smile, "Since the Xia Wu sect can't accept this commission, I'll try going to the beggar sect." and I'll also tell the beggar sect about the intelligence regarding the Xiao Wu sect's master. Dao Yunqiu had no choice but to accept the commission and promised results in about 3 months. And I also assured her that after completing the commission, I would tell everything I knew. Before leaving, to dispel their concerns and let them focus on the task, I directly revealed a hint of intelligence to them: Relic Mountain Range. Hearing this, Dao Yunqiu was immediately shocked. At this time, the uncle beside her suddenly said, "Branch Chief, can we trust what he said?" Dao Yunqiu said, "He even knows such confidential intelligence about the sect master's disappearance. I'm afraid we can only believe him. But why is he looking for a 10-year-old child? Perhaps young Master Chiu is just a spokesperson, and the real mastermind behind this should be the QIU family head." Then, Dao Yunqiu directly tore off her human skin mask. The uncle asked, "Is it okay to take off the mask?" Dao Yunqiu said, "Don't worry, I'm just getting some air." The characteristic of the Xiao Wu sect was not following the sect master and having no faith. That's why she dressed up like this, to avoid those guys who would stab her in the back. After leaving the Wu sect, I finally breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, this intelligence hadn't changed from my previous life. According to my memory from my previous life, the Xiao Wu sect's master was captured into Black Crow Palace 5 years ago. So the Xiao Wu sect and Black Crow Palace engaged in a fierce battle. Finally, the Martial Arts Alliance took advantage of the opportunity to raid Black Crow Palace, and the battle ended. But the Xiao Wu sect's master died in that battle, and the Xiao Wu sect began to gradually decline. Although I now knew the Xiao Wu sect's master was captured, the specific location of Black Crow Palace was unknown. But even so, I had to find that strategist who gained the heavenly demon's trust at such a young age, known as the demon sect's brain, Tian Yulang, Zhu He, and then personally kill him, because this guy was not only full of schemes, but also played a crucial role in the demon sect's expansion. Even divine sword Wei Shuer had suffered many losses at his hands. Just then, Wu Yan complained, "The Xiao Wu sect's intelligence capability is too poor. Although I don't know who you're looking for. Spending 3 months seems a bit too long. By the time we find them, it'll probably be summer." Hearing this, I suddenly remembered something else. The treasure vault of the Yan family, operated by the First Merchant Guild, was discovered at that time. It accumulated a large amount of gold, silver, and treasures inside. But more importantly, there were those priceless spiritual pills. Those who gained explosive power because of the spiritual pills all eventually became demon people, enhancing the heavenly demon's strength. Thinking of this, I felt helpless, even if I wanted to stop it. The location of the secret vault was really too far from here. In that case, I might as well give up. At the same time, in the Q family's inner courtyard, Elder Li deliberately coughed. He said, "Old servant, aren't there still fallen leaves in front that haven't been swept clean?" After saying that, Elder Li smiled. "So it was your suggestion to have Yang Tian participate in the dragon gathering assembly?" Wei Xiaojun laughed dryly. Then he directly crushed the broom in his hand. Seeing this scene, Elder Li immediately panicked and said, "Senior, I'm helping you act as the Qiyu family's servant. Since there's no one now, why don't I help you sweep instead?" Then Wei Xiaojun asked Elder Li about his purpose for coming here. Hearing this, Elder Li immediately said seriously, "You felt it too, right? That guy who had to run away, even from practicing horse dance 3 months ago, has now defeated Yan Shu, who has 3-star strength. I can't just ignore such outstanding talent." Wei Xiaojun was also surprised by this. He had lived so long and never seen anyone grow so fast. Something must have happened to this child. If the Grand Elder knew about this, he definitely wouldn't sit idly by. Maybe he had already taken action. On the other side, Wei Shuer encountered a boy. The boy asked her the first time he saw Wei Shuer if she wanted to come to his side, and promised to make her even happier. Just then, I suddenly appeared and stood in front of Wei Shuer. Looking at the boy's shy appearance, I concluded he wasn't a good person. "Sorry, this is my servant. Who are you?" The boy first apologized for his presumption. Then he introduced himself. "My name is Qiu Jueye. I came here because I want to spar with you." However, I refused without even thinking. Qiu Jueye smiled mockingly and said, "As expected, you're a cowardly person." I smiled and said, "You really have good judgment. I am very cowardly and very afraid." But actually, I didn't want to attract more attention. But just as I was about to leave, Elder Li suddenly appeared and blocked my way. He said, "Juai came all this way. You should agree to he." Seeing Elder Li arrive, Qiu Juai hurriedly bowed. Elder Li told me that Qiu Juai was precisely the Grand Elder's grandson. This made me see through everything immediately. I originally thought he was interested in my strength, but now it seemed the Grand Elder sent him. As everyone knew, the Grand Elder had great ambitions, so he always hoped that a waste like me would sit in the family head position. But now I unexpectedly won against Second Sister at the dragon gathering battle, so he sent his grandson to test me. Thinking of this, I refused to spar with him again. Elder Li wanted to continue persuading me, but I resolutely pulled Wei Shuer and turned to leave, because I didn't want to get involved in these power struggles, and I didn't plan to fight this sparring match that would surely end in defeat. Just then, a hand suddenly grabbed Wei Shuer. It was Qiu Jue. He said, "I think young Master Qiu doesn't deserve you. Why don't you abandon this coward and come with me? I'll definitely make your life better." Hearing this, I said angrily, "Let go of your hand. I'll fight you then." But soon I regretted that impulsive decision. At this time, Elder Lee rubbed my head encouragingly and said, "This will be a very interesting sparring match. Fighting against strong opponents of different strengths will definitely give you some insights." I said, "Since you've gotten your way, then regardless of whether I win or lose, can I trouble you to agree to one request?" Elder Lee refused and said, "If you lose the match, I'm afraid it will be detrimental to your future status as family head." I was indifferent to this. I said, "I have no intention of becoming the family head anyway." Hearing this, Elder Lee immediately panicked. He said, "What nonsense are you talking about? If not you, then who else is qualified to take on the role of family head?" I threatened, "If you don't agree to my request, then I'll just lie on the ground and admit defeat." Elder Lee had no choice but to agree, but he also proposed a condition. That was that I must win this competition. At this time, Qujue said, "This is really a bit unfair to young Master Qiu." Therefore, I was full of confusion. Qujue continued, "Last year when I sparred with you, I didn't control my strength well, causing you to lie in bed for a month. At that time, I felt young Master Qiu was simply too weak, but now you've defeated Second Miss. However, in my opinion, that was just a fluke, although my grandfather doesn't think so. But no matter what, I don't want a weak person to sit in the family head position." After saying that, Qujue also made a request to Elder Lee. "If I win the sparring match, I hope I can have that female servant." Based on the principle of fairness, Elder Lee agreed on the spot. This made my anger surge instantly. I said, "You really have no filter." As the sparring match was announced to begin, Qujue and I both simultaneously released our inner power, testing each other. But Qujue gradually began to panic. Clearly the inner power was circulating, and his speed and strength should be far ahead. But why was that guy's inner power so strong now? And to block his inner power, he actually had to use all his strength. At this time, I deliberately withdrew part of my inner power. Qujue thought so. He's been pretending to be strong to save face. Now he's run out of inner power. Then Qujue said confidently, "Young Master Qiu, please attack first. This match should let the weak one attack first." Hearing this, I didn't say another word and directly flashed behind him. Although it was unexpected, he still dodged it. Qujue mocked, "That move had a good idea, but your speed is really too slow." Little did he know that my right hand had already condensed a ball of inner power. Then I fiercely smashed it toward his face. This punch also made him spit blood directly. Seeing this situation, I didn't plan to press my advantage, but gave him a chance to counterattack, because I didn't want others to think I won unfairly. Qiujui's eyes immediately became cold. Powerful inner power frantically circulated around his long sword. He said, "I underestimated you just now. Now it's my turn to attack." Although I knew this sparring match wouldn't end easily, I didn't have much time left. Originally, I should release inner power to fight the enemy, but when encountering a stronger opponent, I could only use inner power to strengthen my body and temporarily become stronger. But my body could only hold out for another half moment at most. If I continued to persist, I might go Astra, so I had to decide the outcome within this period. Fortunately, I knew that the 9-dragon red-black sword he used was an initial move that started with drawing the sword and ended with drawing the sword. As long as I paid attention to his sword drawing, there was a chance to win the sparring match. Just then, Qiujue suddenly drew his sword and slashed toward me. I just slightly dodged to the side and avoided this strike. Then he turned and slashed several more swords, but still came up empty-handed. But I noticed his weakness. Although his moves connected very smoothly, if they were interrupted, he couldn't continue. So I directly placed my hand on my chest and circulated my inner power. Just as Qiujue raised his sword to slash at me, I clenched my fist with all my might and released all my inner power from a distance. The heat released by the inner power also sent Qiujue flying. Taking this opportunity, I added another punch and directly blasted him into the corner. Seeing the outcome was decided, I asked him, "Do you know what I hate most? I don't care what you do to me or what attitude you have, or even if you want the family head position. But what I hate most is that you dared to covet something you don't deserve. Since you like competing with others so much, why don't I break one of your arms, so you'll never dare to have such disgusting thoughts again?" But just as I was about to act, Elder Lee suddenly stepped forward to stop me. "Let's stop here for today." Afterward, Elder Lee scolded me, "You were too heavy-handed. Aren't you afraid the Grand Elder will make things difficult for you over this?" I showed an indifferent attitude. "I don't want to be the family head anyway." Elder Lee reprimanded, "As a direct descendant, you should bravely take on this responsibility." But I still remained unmoved. Anyone who likes being the family head can do it. Then I pointed at Wei Zhuer jokingly, "Maybe she's even more suitable to be the family head than I am." After saying that, I suddenly thought of something. When will she start to learn the sword? Since she was Swordmaster's direct disciple, she should have learned from Swordmaster. But she hung around me all day long and had no time to practice the sword. And Wei Zhuer from my previous life wasn't this silly either. Why couldn't I remember so many memories from my previous life? Just then, Elder Lee prepared to get up and leave. Seeing this, I hurriedly reminded him, "Elder Lee, where are you going? Have you forgotten what you promised me?" Elder Lee had no choice but to sit down again and ask what I wanted. I said, "For an elder, of course I want to entrust something very difficult. That is, please send me to B Province." Elder Lee immediately breathed a sigh of relief and said, "I thought you were going to make some excessive request, so it's just going to B Province." But in my opinion, this wasn't a simple matter. After all, B Province wasn't a place you could come and go as you pleased. Letting the Qiu family's only son go far away would require an important reason. He said, you can just go participate in the Tang weapon exhibition. The Tang family invites various prestigious families to participate in the craftsman's weapon exhibition every year at this time. Although it doesn't matter whether you participate or not, using this as an excuse to go out is still acceptable. Hearing this, I immediately regretted the request I made. I said, actually, what I just said about going to B province was just a joke. Why don't you give me some traveling money instead? But Elder Lee deliberately played dumb and said, so you want to set off immediately? I immediately changed my tune. If that doesn't work, giving me a spiritual pill is also acceptable. Elder Lee said, I'll immediately send someone to take you to B province and let you see what an elder's power is. About this, I couldn't help but think, this old guy is really stingy. Soon, under Elder Lee's urgent order, I embarked on the journey to B province. After parting, Swordmaster Wei Xiaojun suddenly changed the subject, since the young master has already left. Then from now on, you'll be responsible for sweeping the courtyard. Elder Lee reluctantly took the broom. He said, it's pretty boring now anyway. Why don't I complain a bit while working? A few days ago, the family head asked me some things about the medical immortal's whereabouts. It looks like someone asked him to. So why are you looking for the medical immortal? As soon as these words were spoken, the atmosphere immediately became cold. Elder Lee unconsciously gripped the door tightly. He said, if you don't want to say, then I'll talk about something else. Your granddaughter is called Wei Shuer, right? She doesn't seem to be human. But what responded to him was an icy voice. Elder Lee, you've overstepped. Elder Lee continued, every living being has a specific aura, and humans are no exception. But when I first saw that child at the Dragon Gathering Assembly, I couldn't sense any presence at all. If you're waiting for the medical immortal to cure that child, I advise you to wake up. You should also know that's not an illness, and moreover, before he could finish, Wei Xiaojun interrupted. Elder Lee, that's enough. That child is a person. Elder Lee hesitated and said, since you insist on protecting that child, I won't ask any more from now on. My opinion doesn't matter anyway. At this time, Wei Xiaojun was secretly grieving and said, so what if she's not human? As long as Zhuer is by my side, I'll protect her with my life even if it costs me everything. Little did he know that at this moment, Wei Zhuer had already disappeared from the room without anyone noticing. The scene changed. At night, the exhausted group began preparing dinner, and I took advantage of the break to cultivate as always. But soon I collapsed on the ground due to lack of stamina. It had been 10 days since departure. I worked hard to cultivate every day, but my inner power improved very slowly. Although the 1,000 absorption technique was a method to rapidly increase inner power, this was the heavenly demons technique. It was best not to use it lightly. After all, I finally had a chance to start over. I couldn't go down that old path again. Just then, a loud shout suddenly came from not far away. I hurriedly went forward to ask Wu Yan what happened. I saw the maid staring at the carriage with a surprised face. When I lifted the curtain, I discovered Wei Shuer had somehow appeared here. It turned out that just as I was about to depart, Wei Shuer expressed to her grandfather that she also wanted to go along. But Wei Xiaojun directly refused her request. Wei Shuer was very puzzled by this. Why was it okay to go to the Dragon Gathering Assembly last time? Wei Xiaojun said, because even if you caused trouble, someone was watching you for me, but not when going to B province. Wei Shuer, who understood, began organizing my clothes in the carriage. Just then, a strange sound came from the carriage. Hearing this, Wei Shuer hurriedly turned to investigate, but the next second, a hand suddenly appeared and directly pushed her into the supply box. Before Wei Shuer could react, those hands appeared out of thin air again and kept twisting beside her head. Soon Wei Shuer gradually lost consciousness and fell asleep in the supply box. That's what happened. Hearing this, Wu Yan, the maid, and I looked at her speechlessly. Wei Shuer thought we didn't hear clearly, so she recounted it word for word again. But her account still left us unable to believe it. I originally wanted to send a guard to take her back, but we were too far from home now, and we didn't have extra food for them, so I could only keep her by my side. Just then, I suddenly sensed something, so I hurriedly instructed Wu Yan to stop the carriage and prepare for battle, because I could clearly sense there were 4 demon beasts nearby. No, 3, 2, 1. While I was dazed, the demon beast had already attacked toward the carriage, but just as I circulated my inner power to prepare to deal with it, a sword light swept past and directly split it in two. Afterward, Wu Yan immediately expressed his gratitude to the woman. Wei Shuer also waved at her. When she turned her head, I was immediately shocked. In my memory from my previous life, she was that cold-blooded, ruthless, decisive demon sword marquise. But after completing the heavenly demon's missions each time, she needed me to guide her way back to the demon sect, only because she was completely directionless. She said, "Are you heading to B province? If you don't mind, can you take me along?" I refused and lied that the convoy wasn't going to B province, because I didn't want to get involved with her again. Then I continued, "The key point is we also can't confirm you're from the Nangang family." Nangang Fei immediately understood. The next second, a lightning power began flickering around her body. The powerful force even shot straight into the sky. I didn't expect that to prove her identity she would demonstrate the Nangang family's strongest ultimate technique, the Emperor's Sword formation. As Wu Yan placed his long sword against her neck, she gradually withdrew her inner power and said, "I wonder if this can prove I'm from the Nangong family." Seeing this, I had no choice but to acknowledge her identity, but I still expressed my apology to her because we couldn't travel with someone who used such dangerous martial arts. But what I didn't expect was that, after I clearly refused her request, she kept quietly following behind the carriage. But just as I was about to remind Wei Shu'er again not to interact with her, Wei Shu'er had already run in front of Nangong Fei and started talking about how to eat frogs. Then I grabbed Wei Shu'er's collar and questioned what she was doing. Had she forgotten what I reminded her? But looking at Nangong Fei's pitiful and helpless eyes, I sighed helplessly. I said, "I don't understand why a precious daughter of the Nangong family would appear here alone." Nangong Fei turned her head and said, "I set off with everyone else but got lost on the way." "Are you really not going to be province?" I gave a definite answer on the spot. Hearing this, Wei Shu'er was stunned at first, then looked at me with a shocked face and said, "Are we really not going to be province anymore?" Seeing I was exposed, I said helplessly, "Since you're going to follow us wherever we go, let's go together then. But I hope you'll just follow behind the carriage and not do anything extra." Nangong Fei immediately nodded. Then she asked about my name. After thinking for a moment, I said, "My name is Qiu Juwei." After walking like this for 2 days, Wei Shu'er, who had somehow gotten off the carriage, kept talking non-stop beside Nangong Fei. As a result, the carriage's speed naturally slowed down. I immediately ordered Wei Shu'er to get back in the carriage quickly, but Wei Shu'er said Nangong Fei had to get in the carriage too. Hearing this, I refused her request without even thinking. Then I asked Wu Yan how much longer until we reached our destination. Wu Yan said at the original speed it would only take 1 day, but in this situation it would take at least 3 days now. Why don't we let that woman get in the carriage? Hearing this, I sighed. Forget it, let's just find a nearby village to rest first. After 2 more days of traveling, we finally found a village to stay in. Wu Yan said happily, "Finally, we don't have to sleep outdoors on the last night." And Wei Shu'er on Nangong Fei's back was clamoring to sleep with her sister. Seeing this scene, I immediately scolded Wei Shu'er to get down quickly. A precious daughter from a prestigious family carrying someone else's servant was simply inappropriate. Just then, Wei Shu'er suddenly discovered something. A group of people dressed in the same clothing as Nangong Fei were hurriedly rushing toward us. After walking up, the boy said with concern, "Sister, where have you been these days? We've been looking for you for so long." Nangong Fei responded with a guilty face, "I got lost." The boy complained slightly. "Didn't we say we'd tie ourselves together and walk?" But in Nangong Fei's view, that was simply too humiliating. Then the boy shifted his gaze to Wei Shu'er and me. At this time, I finally recognized the other party's identity. He was precisely the future 5 sword of the martial world, the current Thunder Dragon Nangong Qingjun. Thinking of this, I proactively introduced myself. "My name is Qiu Juye. It's an honor to meet Thunder Dragon." Nangong Qingjun scratched his head embarrassedly and said, "You flatter me." After saying that, he suddenly changed the subject. "But why are you together with my sister?" After learning the whole story from me, he expressed his gratitude and, as a reward, offered to let us have 2 guest rooms to rest. To avoid getting involved with Nangong Fei, I originally wanted to refuse his kindness. At this time, Wu Yan hurriedly came forward to remind me there are no extra rooms left in the village. After many days of camping, the servants are all exhausted. Hearing this, I could only reluctantly agree. In my memory from my previous life, the first thing Nangong Fei did after becoming a demon person was to eliminate the Nangong family. Whether it was the family head or her younger brother, she spared no one. Therefore, she also earned the nickname Demon Sword Marquis. I thought she did this because she hated the Nangong family, but it seemed she had a good relationship with Thunder Dragon. Moreover, the strength Nangong Fei displayed was stronger than Thunder Dragon's, yet she had no reputation or rumors about her in the martial arts world. Her younger brother also seemed quite normal, so why would she do that? Thinking of this, I ran into Nangong Qingjun as soon as I stepped out the door. I proactively greeted him and thanked him for giving us such good rooms. However, Nangong Qingjun directly bumped my shoulder aside and sternly reminded me, "Know your place. With your strength, you're not worthy of talking to my sister. I don't know how you managed to deceive my naive sister, but if this happens again, I'll tear you to pieces, along with that person on my sister's back." Hearing this, I was immediately stunned. Did this guy take the wrong medicine? Just then, Nangong Fei opened her door. Nangong Qingjun instantly changed his expression and said, "No need to be polite. It's my honor to host young Master Qiu." After saying that, he left with a smile while pushing his sister along. This left me dumbfounded. As expected, they're all crazy. At this time, Wu Yan came over to remind me it was time for breakfast. On the way to the dining hall, I thought about finishing quickly and leaving, getting away from these crazy people from the Nangong family, but as soon as I pushed open the door, I discovered Wei Shu'er was sitting with Nangong Fei again. I softly reminded Nangong Fei, "Aren't you sitting in the wrong seat? Look, your brother's eyes could kill." Nangong Fei turned her head with a doubtful expression. Nangong Qingjun immediately became innocent and adorable looking, although I didn't know why he acted this way. At least we were about to part ways with them. After finishing the meal, I officially said goodbye to Nangong Fei. Nangong Fei wanted to say something but ultimately held it back. At this time, a foul stench came over. This made her unconsciously cover her nose. The person who came was precisely Nangong Qingjun. He said, "Sister, why don't you sit with us?" But in Nangong Fei's eyes, at this moment Nangong Qingjun's entire body was emitting a disgusting stench. Nangang Qingjun reminded her to remember to sit in her own seat next time. Nangang Fei apologized for this, then found an excuse and left. The next second, she followed behind us again. Seeing this scene, Nangang Qingjun's eyes immediately became cold. After more than 10 days of traveling, we finally arrived at B Province's Tang sect, a prestigious righteous sect that had been rooted here for several centuries. Although compared to the other major families, the Tang sect was slightly inferior. In terms of smelting and poison making, it was considered number one. The Tang weapon exhibition only lasted 3 days, which meant I only had 3 days to find the secret vault. But right now, the only intelligence I had was that the secret vault was around the Tang sect. But how was I supposed to search such a large place? If I really couldn't find it, I could only leak the information to the beggar sect. Just then, a cry of surprise interrupted my thoughts. I saw Wei Shuer looking excitedly at the scenery before her and saying, "This place is simply too beautiful. Fireflies dancing under the moonlight, and there's a very beautiful lake down below." After saying that, she pulled my hand and ran down. But after arriving below and discovering it was just a small pond, I directly gave her 2 punches on the head. Then Wei Shuer picked up 2 small flowers and joked with me. She said, "I saw you seem troubled, so I wanted to cheer you up. Why don't you tell me? Maybe I can help." Hearing this, I said directly, "If someone hid treasure here, how do you think we could find it?" Wei Shuer said irritably, "Why would anyone hide the treasure?" Just then, a voice suddenly came from behind. "Who are you? This isn't a place for outsiders to come and go as they please." The speaker was precisely the future poison consort who would single-handedly repel thousands of demon people, Tang Xiaoli. She was also the woman I killed in my previous life. I remembered at that time I came before the poison consort, who had lost both her eyes, and questioned her. "Is this the end? How ridiculous. You think those clansmen close to you have long since fled? What do you think you can change by staying here?" The poison consort also recognized this familiar voice. She said, "Probably nothing can be changed. Then why are you still doing this?" But she asked me in return why I came here. I grabbed her throat and said, "Coming here is naturally to cut off your last breath." Hearing this, she smiled with relief and said, "I am sorry. After losing my eyes, I finally understood some things would be better let go sooner. But if there's still time, I hope." Before she could finish, I directly broke her neck. Now Tang Xiaoli pointed at my nose angrily. "Why won't you answer my question? If you keep this up, I'll have to..." Before she could finish, a hand suddenly landed on her shoulder. The person who came was precisely Nangang Fei. After she whispered something to Tang Xiaoli immediately changed her expression and said, "I'm Tang Xiaoli from the Tang sect. I apologize for being rude to you just now." After saying that, her eyes immediately turned cold. "But why are you here so late? Outsiders cannot enter without the Tang family's permission." Hearing this, I hurriedly expressed my apology and immediately pulled Wei Shuer away. After I left, Tang Xiaoli couldn't help but complain. "The young master from the Qiu family is really rude. Does he think he can do whatever he wants just because he's good looking? He's really annoying." Hearing this, Nangang Fei thought about my appearance and asked, "Are you saying young Master Qiu is good looking?" Tang Xiaoli blushed and explained, "No, I mean even if he's not good looking, he should at least be kind-hearted." The next day, just as I was preparing to go out to cultivate, Nangang Fei came looking for me with her brother. Seeing this, I asked with a worried face, "Do you need something from me?" Nangang Qingjun said enthusiastically, "The Tang sect invited everyone to dine together. My sister hopes you can come along." Hearing this, I politely declined their kindness. The next second, Nangang Qingjun grabbed my wrist and said, "Let's go together." This made me somewhat annoyed. I already said I wasn't going. Was he planning to drag me there by force? Thinking this, a powerful inner force burst out from my body. Nangang Qingjun released his hand with a shocked expression. The atmosphere of the scene also immediately became tense. To avoid disrupting the plan, I eased the tension. "I'm hungry. Let's go eat together." Then I put my arm around Nangang Qingjun and whispered a reminder, "Watch your expression management. Your naive sister is watching." Hearing this, Nangang Qingjun was immediately furious but had to endure it. The scene changed to the Tang family reception hall, where the table was filled with various spicy dishes. This left me, who was always sensitive to spice, not knowing where to start. But just as I picked what I thought was a not very spicy bun, I discovered Tang Xiaoli was staring at me with a strange look. In my previous life, every time I saw her, she had this same expression. I didn't expect that even in this life, nothing had changed. Then, after I took a bite of the bun, the spicy impact immediately made me gasp. At this time, someone next to me handed me a glass of water. Then they placed a piece of non-spicy beef on my plate. This person was precisely Nangang Fei. Beyond surprise, my face flushed red. In contrast, Nangang Qingjun's entire face looked terrible. He thought, "Brat, I'll definitely make you pay." Then Tang Xiaoli silently sat down next to me. Seeing this scene, I asked puzzled, "Miss Tang, do you have something you want to say to me?" Tang Xiaoli said flustered, "No. However, young Master Qiu, do you have someone you like?" Before she could finish, Nangang Qingjun suddenly interrupted. "Isn't the cultivation ground below the reception hall?" Tang family's young master Tang Zhouyi responded, "That's the cultivation ground exclusively for Tang family bloodline. Although it was built many years ago, everyone has their her own cultivation ground, so it has never been used. Hearing this, Nangang Qingjun immediately became interested and said, "Why don't we go down and take a look?" This instantly gave me a bad premonition. What was this guy planning to do again? After arriving at the cultivation ground, everyone praised how spacious the venue was. But Tang Zhui said, "I really don't understand why our ancestors would build a cultivation ground this large." At this time, Nangang Qingjun gestured with a wooden sword. "Since we just ate, we should work off the meal. Young Master Chu, would you like to have a match with me?" This made me immediately realize that all of this was his plan. Right now, just looking at his expression, I knew he would definitely teach me a harsh lesson. So I responded with a humble attitude, "How could my third-rate skills be worthy of sparring with Thunder Dragon?" Tang Shaoli said, "The two differ greatly in both age and skill level. This isn't fair. What if his face gets accidentally injured?" Nangang Qingjun said, "It's fine. As long as we don't use inner power, it'll be like a martial arts instruction session. I wonder if young Master Chiu dares to accept?" Facing Nangang Qingjun's provocation, the corner of my mouth curved slightly. I said, "If it's like that, then I wonder if your level is sufficient." Hearing this, Nangang Qingjun said angrily, "Then let me see just how capable you are." As the sparring officially began, Nangang Qingjun impatiently swung his sword toward me, but after dodging 2 attacks, I could tell he was testing my strength, and what came next would be the real attack. Seeing this scene, Tang Shaoli's face was full of worry. She had been different from others since childhood. At an age when other children were chasing cats and dogs, she was already keeping company with tigers and wolves. Because compared to other weak animals, she preferred being around powerful apex predators. But this peculiar hobby of hers destined her to have difficulty finding where she belonged, until she met that boy. She was deeply attracted by his distinctive appearance. Her heart even pounded wildly non-stop. Every time she stole a glance at him, he radiated brilliance all over. Even the way he drank water seemed incredibly handsome. She even unconsciously wanted to get close to him. Could this be what they called love? Just then, a loud bang interrupted her thoughts. Tang Shaoli looked at the scene before her in disbelief. She saw that Nangang Qingjun's sword had actually broken. Nangang Qingjun also couldn't understand why the sword broke. Although he hadn't used full strength in the first 2 moves, the later attacks were all at full strength. While he was dazed, I suddenly swung my fist toward him. I said, "Even if you're a genius, you can't have distracting thoughts during sparring. If this were real combat, you'd already be dead 3 times." Nangang Qingjun suddenly snapped awake and immediately dodged my attack with a flash. At this time, I mocked, "Pick another weapon. Since this is martial arts instruction, you should at least teach me something." Hearing this, Nangang Qingjun was immediately furious. Then after picking a long sword, he began circulating his inner power. Immediately after, he burst forth with thunderous momentum and slashed toward me. Fortunately, I reacted in time and dodged this fatal strike. At the same time, I was completely enraged by his shameless behavior. Nangang Qingjun once again circulated his inner power to unleash his strongest technique, but the next second, I easily shattered it. I said, "I've been putting up with you for a long time." After saying that, I directly kicked him in the crotch. Everyone's eyes widened at this sight, and the heart-wrenching pain made Nangang Qingjun let out a sharp, miserable scream. Then I asked with an evil smile, "It didn't really break, did it?" But Nangang Qingjun was still unconvinced. He said, "Can you even be called a martial artist? I'm going to tell all the prestigious families about this so you'll never be able to hold your head up again." I directly questioned them. "Then how many innocent people have you killed? At least a dozen or so, right?" As I spoke, I directly grabbed his arm. Tang Zhui hurriedly stopped me. "Young Master Chu, you've already won. Let's stop here." But I directly asked back, "Didn't you see him violate the sparring rules and curse at me? Do you think he accidentally made a mistake in a moment of impulse? He's much older than I am." Tang Zhui said, "He's from the Nangang family. If you go too far, you know what will happen, right?" I said, "It's precisely because he's from the Nangang family that I've been putting up with him. If the positions were reversed, would you still do this?" As soon as these words were spoken, Tang Zhui was immediately speechless, accompanied by a crisp cracking sound. Nangang Qingjun's arm was just like that, forcibly broken by me. But after I hadn't walked more than a few steps, I suddenly realized I had caused trouble again. If I told Elder Li that I crippled the Nangang family's son, what would he do? Maybe he'd even praise me for doing well. After all, he brought this upon himself. Just then, a hand suddenly grabbed my clothes. I saw Nangang Fei looking at me sincerely and saying, "Tell me your real name." I shook off her hand and responded, "Didn't I already say my name is Qiu Jue?" But Nangang Fei was certain I was lying. This made me start overthinking. What did she want to do? Did she want to avenge her brother? But looking at her expressionless face, I directly dismissed my own thoughts. At this time, Nangang Fei suddenly stepped forward and held my hand, saying softly, "Tell me your real name." Seeing her so insistent, I felt helpless. So I proposed a condition. "After I tell you my name, don't follow me anymore." Nangang Fei hurriedly nodded. Seeing this, I coughed lightly and said, "My name is Qiu Yangtian." Nangang Fei blushed as she repeated my name. Little did she know that this name would create countless entanglements with her. After I came out from the the Tang family cultivation ground, I decided to search for the secret vault alone, because if Wu Yan knew I broke the Nangong family young master's arm, he would definitely stay by my side at all times for safety reasons. Then my plan would be completely ruined. At the same time, Wu Yan, who learned the news, searched every room but couldn't find me. Even Wei Shuer didn't know where I went. He said very annoyed, could the young master be hiding because he injured someone from the Nangong family? But Wei Shuer turned her gaze toward the distance. At night, I leaned against a big tree gasping for breath and complained, it's not even autumn. Where did these maple trees come from? Legend had it that several hundred years ago, the Yan family not only had the strongest person in the world protecting them, but also controlled the economic lifeline of the Central Plains. But this seemingly unstoppable prestigious family disappeared without a trace one day. However, according to historical records, all the secret treasures of the Yan family were hidden beneath a white maple tree that bloomed in all 4 seasons. Could the rumors all be false? Just then, my stomach began to growl. This immediately gave me the thought of giving up. Forget it, at least I really tried my best. As soon as I finished speaking, Wei Shuer suddenly handed a steamed bun in front of me. I took the steamed bun and ate it in big bites, saying, is this bundle all food? Wei Shuer nodded. But the next second, I opened my mouth wide in shock and asked, why are you here? Wei Shuer giggled. Then she took out the food from her back and said she found this place by feeling. After saying that, she promised earnestly, with me here, young master doesn't need to worry. But I still had a worried face. Let's just say the white maple tree was a lie. Hearing this, Wei Shuer immediately refuted and said she just saw it. I casually humored her, then it must be very beautiful. But the next second, I froze directly and said, what did you just say you saw? Wei Shuer responded sincerely, didn't you see it too? Hearing this, I felt awkward. Then Wei Shuer brought me to a dead tree. This left me speechless. Immediately after, I pried open her eyes and questioned, is this a white maple tree? Hearing this, Wei Shuer said aggrieved, I'm not lying. This is a white maple tree. About this, I turned a deaf ear, and even prepared to return to the Qiu family. But just then, a strange sound suddenly caught my attention. I saw a crack appeared at some point in front of Wei Shuer. Seeing this, I hurriedly signaled her to leave quickly. Although I didn't know where that thing came from, I could feel it was very dangerous. As Wei Shuer's finger slowly approached, the crack also began to grow larger and larger. But just as I was about to grab Wei Shuer, a dazzling light flashed. The next second, I covered my mouth in shock. I saw a white maple tree full of vitality suddenly appear before my eyes. Wei Shuer turned around and said proudly, young master, I didn't lie to you, right? At this time, my heart was full of doubts. What just happened? It was clearly a dead tree just now. Could that crack be the switch to open the hidden secret vault? But how did Wei Shuer know? I directly asked her my question, but Wei Shuer just played dumb. This made me very annoyed but helpless. I'll settle accounts with you slowly when we get back, because right now, the most important thing was to find the secret vault. After I carefully explored around the maple tree, I discovered a large hole emitting a lightning aura, but just as I was wondering whether this was the entrance to the secret vault, Wei Shuer jumped down without any hesitation and said, young master, this is the entrance. Hurry up and follow. Seeing this, I gritted my teeth and followed right after her. But what I didn't know was that, at this moment, a strong warrior from the Nangong family had been eyeing us covetously for a long time. After arriving at the secret vault, I immediately signaled Wei Shuer not to act recklessly in the future, but she looked ahead with a troubled expression. I saw 2 cave entrances appear before us. Just as I was thinking about which way to go, Wei Shuer suddenly pointed in one direction and promised earnestly that it must be this way, thinking that since she could find the white maple tree, I might as well trust her one more time. A moment later, the strong warrior from the Nangong family also jumped down. I didn't know how long we had walked. I began to regret my earlier decision. I said, Shuer, did we take the wrong path? Why can't we see the end at all? Wei Shuer responded firmly, young master, don't worry. Just trust me. After walking like this for a while longer, Wei Shuer suddenly stopped. She pointed at a pitch-black room and said, young master, we've arrived. Seeing this, I directly gave her 2 punches on the head and said, this is the good path you led, but there's nothing here. At this time, Wei Shuer suddenly reached out and patted my shoulder, saying tremblingly, young master, there seems to be something. As soon as she finished speaking, a white creature kept swimming around us. This left me full of surprise. I didn't expect a giant demon serpent was guarding this place. I never imagined there would be a demon beast in such a place, but this was clearly a sealed room. Where did it come from? And judging by its appearance, it was at least blue grade. However, what was fortunate was that the demon creature hadn't awakened yet. So just as I was preparing to sneak away with Wei Shuer, the demon serpent suddenly opened its eyes. Seeing this, I hurriedly protected Wei Shuer behind me. Damn it, it woke up. This was completely not an opponent I could defeat. I finally had a chance to live peacefully. I absolutely couldn't just die here in vain. Thinking this, I raised my fist and gathered my inner power. At this time, Wei Shuer's eyes flashed with golden light. The next second, the demon serpent actually took the initiative to speak. Child, put away your power. I have no intention of harming you. This immediately shocked me. I said, why can you speak human language? The demon serpent smiled. I'm very curious why a child not of Yan family bloodline can find this place. Then I explained the whole story. After hearing this, the demon serpent seemed to think of something and continued questioning me about my purpose for coming here. If this demon serpent knew we came for the secret vault, then it probably wouldn't let us go. So I said we just stumbled in by accident. However, The demon serpent said directly, "You came for the secret vault, right? But unfortunately, what you want is already gone. However, I still want to ask you one last question, child. What do you think destiny is?" Hearing this, I was immediately speechless and said, "What kind of lousy question is that?" The demon serpent was stunned at first, then burst into loud laughter. Seeing this, my expression immediately became serious. This demon serpent must have gone crazy. Then the demon serpent said, "Seeing someone not of Yan family bloodline set foot here, I knew they were probably all dead. For something that has already disappeared, what is there for me to be attached to? There's nothing left here for me to guard." Hearing this, I thought it was going to let us leave, but the next second, a golden unknown sphere dropped in front of me. It said, "This thing has to fall into someone's hands anyway. Why not just give it to you? Because you, who carries those things in your heart, might find it easier to accept than others." But before I could understand the deep meaning in its words, the golden sphere began flickering continuously. This immediately shocked me. This thing clearly didn't have a magic stone's aura. Why did the 1000 absorption technique activate again? But this feeling was different from absorbing a magic stone. As the golden light grew stronger and stronger, I also gradually became pained. Just then, Wei Shuer suddenly raised her hand to my back and began transmitting inner power to me. Before I could figure out the situation, the next second I lost consciousness and passed out. At this time, the demon serpent asked Wei Shuer again if she was satisfied. Wei Shuer, emanating profound inner power, said sternly, "How dare you ask if I'm satisfied?" The demon serpent reminded, "Put away your inner power. Such powerful inner power won't just make you faint." Wei Shuer naturally understood this point as well. The demon serpent asked curiously, "Since you know, then why do you still choose to change so many things? Is this your choice?" Wei Shuer asked back, "Why did you give him that important gem?" The demon serpent said, "It's just an accidental variable. Waiting for someone who won't come is too lonely. I've already let everything go." As it spoke, its body began to slowly disintegrate. Finally, it turned into fragments and dissipated throughout the entire room. Wei Shuer sighed that fate was truly fickle. Then she shifted her gaze to me and said, "You're still as oblivious as ever. You're clearly so afraid of losing your second life. But when facing danger, you still protected me without hesitation." At this time, a voice suddenly sounded in Wei Shuer's mind. "Can you return it to me now?" Wei Shuer said she needed to borrow it a little longer because it was still dangerous now. Soon, the man who had been following them also found this place. Wei Shuer threatened, "You'd better leave quickly, or this place will become your grave," the man said disdainfully. "I didn't expect the young master would actually lose to a kid who could pass out from climbing a mountain. As long as you hand that guy over, I'll spare your life." Wei Shuer questioned, "Is this the old man from the Nangong family's idea or that waste's decision?" Hearing this, the man pressed his sword against her neck and said, "How dare you speak disrespectfully about the Nangong family head?" At this time, Wei Shuer placed a finger on her lips and said, "You're too noisy." After saying that, a golden light flashed. The man didn't even notice before he discovered his arm was severed. The pain that followed made the man scream wildly. Seeing this, Wei Shuer's eyes immediately became sharp and said, "Be quiet, he's sleeping soundly. We can't wake him up." It turned out that after I broke Nangong Qingjun's arm earlier, he still couldn't accept the fact of defeat. He even thought I must have used some evil technique, so he found his trusted subordinate, Ma Tai, preparing to launch a revenge plan against me. But what troubled him was that Wu Yan, the Q family's bodyguard, had unfathomable strength, making it impossible for them to act. Until I shook off Wu Yan to search for the secret vault, Nangong Qingjun immediately ordered Ma Tai to kill me. Now, Ma Tai kept begging for mercy, but what responded to him was a cold sword light. Wei Shuer said, "Didn't I tell you to be quiet? I don't have that much time to waste." As she spoke, she shifted her gaze to me. Seeing this, Ma Tai just wanted to escape quickly. Before he could run far, a sword light swept past. The next second, he ended up separated from his head. Then Wei Shuer said with slight apology, "Originally for your first kill, I wanted to let you choose based on your own will. I didn't expect this uninvited guest to disrupt the plan. I'm truly sorry." At this time, the voice in her mind sounded, telling her to return the body to her immediately. Wei Shuer apologized again and said, "Although this is selfish, can you let me stay a little longer?" The voice in her mind emphasized, "This is my body." Wei Shuer affirmed, "Now and in the future, this body is yours." After saying that, she slowly lowered her eyes and said, "Chu Yang Tian, I think it's time for me to leave. I look forward to meeting you again in the future." The scene changed, and I suddenly opened my eyes. Wei Shuer appeared happily in front of me. I got up and looked around at everything. I vaguely remembered that Wei Shuer opened the white maple tree, but there was only a white demon serpent in the secret vault. This demon serpent also gave me a golden pearl, and this pearl was absorbed by me. I tried hard to recall everything that happened to Wei Shuer. However, Wei Shuer looked confused. "Snake? Pearl? Young master? Were you dreaming?" This immediately stunned me. I said, "Don't tell me you don't remember anything either?" Wei Shuer said, "I found the white maple tree, then received a pearl from a big snake. Who would believe that story?" I said, "Why is it only at times like this that you can think normally? Then who brought us here?" Wei Shuer also wasn't clear. She only knew that when she woke up, she was here. Just then, a strange pain suddenly came from my chest. Seeing this, I hurriedly circulated my inner power to meditate. As expected, since absorbing that pearl, the flowing inner power had increased considerably. Not only did I reach 3-star strength, but I even possessed inner power reserves very close to 4-star. This proved my memory wasn't wrong. Did the demon serpent bring us here and then erase Wei Shuer's memory? However, I soon gave up struggling with this, because if I continued staying here, I would only be criticized by Wu Yan later. So I immediately squatted down and signaled Wei Shuer to get on quickly, saying, "Going down the mountain takes a full hour. Carrying you back like this will be even faster." Wei Shuer blushed and said, "I ate a lot yesterday. I might be very heavy." Then, after getting Wei Shuer on my back, I directly used the fire wheel technique to hurry along. But what delighted me was that, with the enhancement of the 3-star fire wheel technique and abundant inner power, the body that used to feel incredibly heavy now felt light as a feather. At this time, Wu Yan at the Tong sect worried. The young master has been missing for a day. Suddenly, a strange sound came from behind. He saw the young master had actually returned carrying Wei Shuer. Wu Yan scolded excitedly, "Young master, where did you go? And you just disappeared without saying a word." I scratched my head embarrassedly and said, "Don't worry, I'm back safe and sound now." Wu Yan asked curiously where I went. Just as Wei Shuer was about to speak, I covered her mouth. I said, "We just took a walk in the grove." Wu Yan said, "Young master, I can sense your inner power has increased quite a bit. Did something happen?" This made me sigh inwardly. As expected of a first-rate expert, he discovered it really fast, so I could only vaguely explain that I encountered some fortune. Later, when I returned to my room, I discovered Tang Xiaoli and Nan Gongfei were here. Tang Xiaoli saw me and panicked so much she even dropped her food. I first asked Tang Xiaoli, "Are you waiting for me?" Then I asked Nan Gongfei, "Didn't you promise you wouldn't bother me anymore?" Tang Xiaoli said she wasn't specifically waiting for me. Nan Gongfei also said she wasn't causing trouble. This made me a bit impatient. I said, "So what exactly are you two here for?" But the two of them said in unison that they just came to say hello. After saying that, Nan Gongfei suddenly raised her hand to signal and said, "Young Master Chu's inner power has improved quite a bit. Then, can you have a sparring match with me?" Hearing this, I hurriedly glanced at Wu Yan. The next second, Wu Yan, who understood, escorted the two of them out. At this time, Tang Xiaoli took out an invitation. She said, "This is next year's Tang Weapon Exhibition invitation. Please attend as promised, young Master Chu." Even though I probably couldn't come next year, I still pretended to be happy and accepted the invitation. On the way back, Tang Xiaoli noticed Nan Gongfei's strange expression. This made her suddenly think of something, so she asked tentatively, "Sister Nangong, do you like young Master Chu?" Nan Gongfei thought and thought, then asked, "What is like?" This made Tang Xiaoli stammer and feel too embarrassed to speak, so she had no choice but to helplessly end this topic. At this time, Nan Gongfei asked, "Xiaoli, didn't you say you had something to give me?" Tang Xiaoli said, "That invitation just now was originally meant for you, but I don't know why I gave it to young Master Chu." Nan Gongfei patted her head and interrupted, "It's fine, you did well." Hearing this, Tang Xiaoli's mood immediately improved. She said, "To make amends, let me treat you to the best poison." Little did she know that at this moment, in Nan Gongfei's eyes, Tang Xiaoli's entire body was filled with an aura that disgusted her. The scene changed to the Nangong family residence. The Nangong family head was reprimanding Nangong Qingjun. "I sent you there just to have you take good care of your sister. But not only did you lose to an unknown rising talent, you also inexplicably lost a personal bodyguard." About this, Nangong Qingjun also wondered why Ma Tai hadn't returned yet. Could he have failed? But Ma Tai was a top-level expert. Just then, the Nangong family head suddenly burst out with powerful inner force and said, "Do you know where you disappointed me most? Whether it's violating the rules during sparring or being humiliated in public due to lack of strength, none of that matters. What disappoints me is that you didn't properly clean up after these matters. But I won't punish you this time. Go into seclusion for a while first." Nangong Qingjun accepted the punishment with an unconvinced face, and he kept muttering about the Q family. The Nangong family head, who was preparing to leave, stopped in his tracks and said, "From now on, we won't mention this matter again." Nangong Qingjun turned around and said sternly in confusion, "Father, what do you mean?" But with just one look from the Nangong family head, Nangong Qingjun was frightened into lowering his head. The family head said, "You'll understand when you become the family head one day. Before then, don't have any improper thoughts about the QU family. Maybe they'll become family with you in the future." Nangong Qingjun first nodded his head, but soon he reacted and said, "Father, did you just say become family?" The scene changed. I, who learned the news, said in shock, "Elder Li, what did you just say?" Elder Li repeated it again. "Your marriage engagement has already been put on the agenda." This made me suspect Elder Li was joking with me. After all, I had just broken off the engagement with the Peng family, so how could a waste like me possibly get married? Elder Li said, "Are you planning to be alone forever? This marriage arrangement was prepared for you by me, so just agree to it." Even so, I still didn't believe what he was saying. At this moment, the guard Wu Yan stepped forward and said, "Young master, the news of your engagement seems to be true, because it has spread throughout the entire manor." I was very confused. The news of my broken engagement with the Peng family was probably known to everyone. Now there was actually a noble family that wanted to get engaged to a guy like me with such a ruined reputation. Thinking of this, I asked Elder Li, "Which family's young lady is it?" Upon hearing this, Elder Li said with a proud expression, "Don't be too surprised when you hear this. "It's the Nan." Before Elder Lee could finish, I confirmed the answer from just one word. The next second, Elder Lee and I both said the words, "Nangong family" together. But what exactly did the Nangong family want to gain from me? I suddenly thought of something. Wait, doesn't the Nangong family only have one female member? Elder Lee said, "That's right, perhaps you already met each other at the Tang military exhibition." Upon hearing this, I was first stunned. Then I couldn't help but shout out loud, saying, "You mean that lunatic Nangong Fei?" I was completely dumbfounded. Why would that lunatic want to get engaged to me? Elder Lee told me not to speak ill of my fiancé, and that this was the family's decision. If I had any complaints, I could go discuss it with the family head. But besides that, there was something even more surprising. After saying this, an evil smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. "Yang Tian, your eldest sister has returned." Upon hearing this, I felt terrible. I vaguely remembered that Overlord, one of the three venerables, once said to me, "This is a golden age where talent emerges in abundance. The geniuses of the noble families are springing up like bamboo shoots after rain. You, born in this era, seem rather mediocre and ordinary. Compared to your eldest sister, the Black Phoenix Chushi Fei, you're like heaven and earth apart." And since childhood, my eldest sister's care for me was no less than Elder Lee's, which is why I had always feared her. Thinking of this, I just wanted to hide myself away. But just as I was about to slip away, Elder Lee grabbed me and held me back. He said, "Yang Tian, where are you going?" I turned my head and said, When eldest sister asks later, "Can you say you haven't seen me?" Elder Lee asked in confusion. "You haven't seen your sister for many years, don't you miss her at all?" While trying to break free from his grip, I said, "Do you know what she'll do when she sees me? Anyway, no matter what, I'll disappear for a few months. Please keep it a secret for me, Elder Lee." But Elder Lee didn't care about any of this, saying that if I continued talking nonsense, he would knock me unconscious. Just then, a familiar yet frightening voice suddenly came from outside the door. "My dear little brother, come here quickly." Upon hearing this, my body trembled and I hurriedly instructed Wu Yan to block the door. Wu Yan couldn't understand why my reaction was so intense, but he still randomly grabbed a broom and stuck it against the door. "Your sister is coming. Is it really okay to do this?" As soon as he said this, a voice came from outside the door. "Sister is here, yet little brother is blocking the door." Before Wu Yan could react, with a thunderous boom, eldest sister walked in radiating powerful internal energy and said, "How rude, my dear little brother." I looked at the scene before me with lifeless eyes. At this moment, eldest sister withdrew her internal energy and gave me hints, while I turned my head away and pretended not to see. Seeing this, eldest sister directly said, "Yang Tian, you're doing quite well now. Have you forgotten how to bend your knees?" Hearing this, with a thud, I skillfully knelt down. Elder Lee couldn't help but laugh heartily and said, "Shifei, you're still so loving. I heard that as the sword team captain, you played a big role in the last mission." Eldest sister scratched her head and said, "Elder Lee is too kind. It was all the team members' hard work." After the pleasantries, eldest sister suddenly turned and asked if I knew where I went wrong. Upon hearing this, I was completely confused. Was it because I blocked the door just now, or because I was about to run away? But these weren't the answers eldest sister wanted. I continued asking if it was because I defeated second sister. Eldest sister didn't expect I had actually beaten Yanshu, but that wasn't the final answer either. So, having run out of patience, eldest sister directly pressed her hand on my head, saying, "I'm talking about the engagement. Why didn't you tell me about the engagement first?" As she spoke, she gathered internal energy in her fist. I hastily said, "I only just found out myself, but why must I tell you first?" Hearing this, eldest sister was so angry she swung her fist to strike me. At this moment, Wu Yan stepped forward to interrupt. "Eldest miss, please." But eldest sister merely responded with a glance, and Wu Yan immediately changed his tune, saying, "Please do as you wish with the young master." Just when there was nowhere left to hide, Wei Shuer suddenly stepped forward to stop her. Eldest sister looked at Wei Shuer with a puzzled expression. I hastily instructed Wei Shuer to step back and explained to eldest sister that she was my attendant, but eldest sister seemed to sense something, so she slowly moved her hand away from my head. The next second, she radiated a magnificent internal energy throughout her body, saying, "Little brother, who exactly is she?" Before I could respond, eldest sister gathered all her internal energy into her left hand. Seeing the situation going wrong, I hastily got up and prepared to step forward to stop her, but the next second, I froze right there. I saw that eldest sister merely pinched Wei Shuer's cheek, saying, "This cheek looks as soft as it feels. Such a fun attendant, just give her to me." Upon hearing this, I refused her request without thinking. Eldest sister didn't expect that the little brother who used to obey her every word would actually refuse her. After saying this, she changed the subject. "Your internal energy is about to break through 4-star. Was this Elder Lee's doing?" Then she asked Elder Lee how he had enabled me to improve so much in such a short time. Elder Lee said he hadn't done anything. Eldest sister hesitated, saying, "Never mind, since the family head is looking for you, you should hurry over." Then, just as I was about to leave, eldest sister tossed something over. After catching it, I looked confused. "This is a magic stone? But why can't I sense any magical fluctuations?" Eldest sister said, "I just bought this casually at a general store. Remember to wear it at your waist from now on. If I find you're not wearing it or have lost it, sister will definitely give you plenty of loving care." After saying this, a trace of relief showed on her face, saying, "Yang Tian, I knew you could do it." This reminded me of how, in my previous life, eldest sister said the exact same words before she died. Although eldest sister would give me a stern talking to every time she saw me, I knew in my heart that she was the person in the family who cared most genuinely about me. After I left, eldest sister asked Elder Lee again if he really hadn't intervened. Elder Lee said he truly hadn't. This left eldest sister completely baffled, saying, I remember last winter he only had 1-star strength. Forget using internal energy to radiate heat, even his movements were completely without method. But now not only is his mental technique stable, his internal energy has multiplied, and his body has become stronger too. How did he cultivate to this level so quickly? Don't you find it astonishing? Elder Lee said, did he encounter some fortunate opportunity? Why don't you ask him? After all, you're his sister. Eldest sister spread her hands and said, never mind, he definitely won't tell me. Then eldest sister said, Elder Lee, you should be able to sense that attendant too, right? Elder Lee knew what she meant, but under pressure from the swordmaster, he could only play dumb, saying, you're being too sensitive, isn't that child just an ordinary servant girl? Eldest sister said, I just wanted to confirm whether I'm the only one who can sense that subtle feeling. I wasn't too sure at the time, so I deliberately felt her all over. Could I be overthinking it? Faced with eldest sister's worries, Elder Lee was very understanding, because since childhood, no one was willing to stand with Qiu Yangtian. Only she had always taken care of Qiu Yangtian alone. Then Elder Lee hastily agreed. After all, having fought demon beasts for several months, it's natural to become overly sensitive. With me by Yang Tian's side, you can rest assured. Under Elder Lee's persuasion, eldest sister dismissed her concerns. At this moment, Elder Lee said, you should communicate with him properly. Using the engagement as an excuse to lecture him is too far-fetched. Those who don't know might think you're opposing this engagement. Eldest sister said, I am opposing it. I want to see what kind of person dares to get engaged to my little brother. The scene shifted to the family head's room. The family head asked me to confirm whether I had broken Lei Long's arm. Upon hearing this, I let out a deep sigh and said, he was the one who proposed sparring with me, and he broke the rules and used killing moves on me, so I deliberately retaliated. Father asked with slight skepticism if I had any witnesses. After receiving my affirmative answer, he changed the subject, saying, it seems you've improved quite a bit recently. That's good. Continue working hard in the future. This was somewhat unexpected. Upon learning his son had advanced 3 stars in a short time, his reaction was so indifferent. Father continued, the Nangong family also attended the exhibition, so you must have met your fiancé, right? Upon hearing this, I was first stunned, but quickly calmed down again. Then I asked Father, what's the deal with the engagement to the Nangong family? Father said, this was decided by the Council of Elders. For you, it may not be a bad thing. I can let bygones be bygones regarding the broken engagement with the Peng family. I hope you won't mess this up again. I understood Father's deeper meaning. After all, the Peng family incident was indeed my fault. This time, refusing again was impossible. Then Father took out a family letter and said indirectly, midsummer is approaching, and the Huashan landslide battle is about to begin. Hearing this, I instantly recalled the scene of the Huashan sex massacre in my previous life. At this moment, Father suddenly handed the family letter to me. I took the letter and asked curiously, what does this mean? Father said, prepare yourself, go to Huashan in 10 days and bring her back. To this, I expressed my apologies. After all, I had just returned from B province today. Father remained calm as always, saying, you can refuse, but before he finished speaking, I directly said I didn't want to go. Father continued, but as long as you come back, I can open the secret vault and let you take a Taishan pill. Meanwhile, Wu Yan and Wei Shuer were sitting outside the room waiting. After several days of traveling, their faces were written with exhaustion, but they also knew that no matter where they went, they had to stay by the young master's side at all times. Just then, I suddenly poked my head out and asked, what are you two doing? This directly startled Wu Yan. Then I told them the news that I would be departing for Huashan in 10 days. Upon hearing this, Wu Yan asked in shock, what's the reason this time? I directly stated Father's purpose, to bring little sister back from Huashan. A moment later, I returned alone to the courtyard. After carefully checking and finding no signs of Elder Lee or eldest sister, I walked in with peace of mind. I thought the engagement and sister were already headache enough. Now there was another task added to go to Huashan to bring back little sister. Whatever, I should just get a good sleep and temporarily forget about these troubles. But just as I was sleeping soundly, a figure suddenly appeared in front of me. Steamed buns, delicious steamed buns. Just as I was woken up, the next second, an arm locked directly around my neck. The person was none other than my eldest sister who doted on me so much. While stuffing steamed buns into my mouth, eldest sister said, you're at the age of growing, how can you skip dinner? I struggled free with all my might and knocked away her steamed bun, saying, sister, what are you doing here? Eldest sister responded with a teasing tone, of course I'm returning to my own room. Looking at the wine flask in her hand, I asked if she had been drinking and was starting to talk nonsense again. Eldest sister said, I saw you didn't eat dinner, so I brought you steamed buns. Shouldn't you thank me? Before I could respond, eldest sister started asking whether I liked the Nangong family's young lady. The sudden question made me choke on my water. Eldest sister said, you care about this so much that just hearing about her can shock you into choking yourself to death? Then she gulped down 2 mouthfuls of wine and said, damn it, the Yangtian I raised with such hard work. Hearing this, I interrupted, sister, after you finish drinking, can you please not stay here? Go sleep somewhere else, okay? But what responded to me was a scolding from eldest sister. You heartless guy, when you were little, you used to cling to me all the time. Then she covered her face embarrassedly and said, "Tonight let sisters sleep together with you." Upon hearing this, without thinking, I got up and prepared to leave. At this moment, eldest sister suddenly called out to me softly. When I turned to look, she spoke her truest thoughts. "Yang Tian, how about a sparring match with sister?" Upon hearing this, I was first stunned, then immediately tried to brush her off using her drunkenness as an excuse. However, eldest sister suddenly became serious, saying, "Is that really okay?" I was immediately full of confusion, asking, "What are you referring to?" Then eldest sister pointed at my chest and said, "Although I don't know what method you're using to cultivate, right now there's a large amount of unrefined internal energy wandering around inside your body. I think you also know that continuing like this will definitely lead you go Astra, right? This is a problem that must be resolved quickly." I naturally understood what eldest sister was saying. At the time, the gem given by the white snake contained a massive amount of spiritual energy, but due to my physical condition, much of that spiritual energy hadn't been absorbed yet. Thinking of this, I seemed to understand eldest sister's intention. I said, "So that's why you suddenly proposed sparring with me?" However, eldest sister said, "No, I just simply want to beat you up." This left me stunned. Why couldn't I have a normal sister? Soon after arriving at the sparring ground, eldest sister eagerly began warming up before battle. Looking at her unarmed little brother, she asked full of confusion, "Aren't you using a sword?" I responded saying I'd be fine with just my fists. Eldest sister gave a cold laugh and said, "Your words are still so irritating. Make your move." Upon hearing this, I reminded eldest sister, "Remember to stop at a proper point during sparring." Eldest sister laughed heartily and said, "Come on, I promise I won't kill you, don't be afraid." Before she finished speaking, a blur suddenly appeared in front of her. Before she could react, a heavy punch landed solidly on her body, sending her flying backward. Taking advantage of this opportunity, I gathered all my internal energy into my left hand, then ruthlessly landed another punch. The powerful force sent her flying several meters, but before I could relax for long, unrestrained laughter came from within the smoke. As the laughter grew more crazed, the flame aura radiating from her internal energy became increasingly intense. The next second, eldest sister walked out imposingly and said, "Little brother, not bad at all." Seeing this, my expression trembled. This was absolutely insane. This aura had probably already surpassed 5-star strength, hadn't it? But she was clearly hit by my full force strike, so why was she still perfectly fine now? I hastily waved my hand saying, "Sister, let's stop here for today." The enraged eldest sister said, "What nonsense are you talking about? The fun part is only just beginning." After saying this, she flashed and closed in right in front of me. Then a heavy punch sent me flying several meters. After stabilizing myself, I was still shaken. That was close. If I hadn't blocked that just now, I would probably be bedridden for at least 2 months. Just then, a whirlwind suddenly gathered in the smoke. The next second, a wooden sword flew past me and embedded heavily into the wall. Before I could come to my senses, eldest sister attacked again with fierce momentum. Seeing the scene, I couldn't help but curse inwardly, "Absolute lunatic." After I barely dodged several rounds, eldest sister cornered me against the wall. Then she smoothly pulled the wooden sword from the wall, turned and swung down. The next second, the wooden sword froze at my neck. At the same time, her other hand grabbed my hair. She said, "Don't open your mouth, your jaw will dislocate." Upon hearing this, I hastily pressed my lips together. The next second, my miserable scream pierced the sky. At the same time, the Nangong family head was angrily reading the letter in his hand, saying, "What does this mean?" The servant hastily explained, "The young lady left this letter and then ran away from home." Upon hearing this, the Nangong family head immediately crumpled the letter into a ball, saying, "Bring her back to me immediately." Just moments ago, an old farmer was pulling radishes in his field. After pulling several bad radishes in succession, the old farmer couldn't help but complain, "What a cursed season." As soon as he spoke, a figure flew over his head. After seeing who it was clearly, the old farmer couldn't help but blush, saying, "It's a fairy maiden." The person was none other than Nangong Fei. At this moment, Nangong Fei asked which way to go to a province. The old farmer immediately raised his hand and pointed in a direction. But the next second, Nangong Fei flew off in the opposite direction without a word, while leaving behind a silver ingot on the ground to show her gratitude. The old farmer looked at the silver in his hand with shock and joy. This was enough for his whole family to eat and drink without worry for several months. But what puzzled him was, a province was clearly to the east, so why did the fairy maiden go west? That's where Huashan is. The scene shifted. Elder Li was telling the swordmaster about the divine physician's whereabouts. "I heard the divine physician has gone to Huashan. What do you plan to do?" The swordmaster also knew that the divine physician's whereabouts were erratic, but why would he go to Huashan this time? Elder Li said, "This intelligence may not be accurate. Since you've disguised yourself as an attendant to hide your identity, you don't need to show yourself personally. Just have Yang Tian go confirm it first." The swordmaster nodded to show his approval, but the next day, he suddenly changed his story. "Young master, rest assured, Elder Li has entrusted me with this task, and I will definitely complete it wholeheartedly." This left me completely dumbfounded. I never expected the dignified swordmaster to become a coachman. Elder Li was also dumbfounded, never expecting the dignified swordmaster to be so two-faced. Originally, the swordmaster and Wei Shuer weren't on the list for the Huashan trip, but because the coachman suddenly fell ill, the swordmaster was dispatched to replace the coachman's duties. Although the reason seemed sufficient, I didn't need to think to know there was definitely something fishy going on here. It seemed this Huashan Huashan journey would be extraordinary. At this moment, Elder Li said, "It's just a trip to Huashan. Why do you have such a worried expression? You need to control your emotions. Don't go there and cause trouble again." I naturally understood what Elder Li meant, and I also assured him I would try my best. Speaking of this, Elder Li suddenly reached into his collar, then pulled out a small pouch. The next second, a fragrant aroma hit my nose, and the fragrance grew increasingly rich. Elder Li said, "This isn't anything remarkable, just an ordinary stone." I directly exposed his lie. This was clearly a very valuable item at first glance. Only then did Elder Li say, "This is a plum blossom smoke crystal stone, supposedly one of the 4 great treasures of Huashan." Seeing his nonchalant expression, I said, "Isn't this valuable enough?" "No, wait, why is this thing in your possession, and why are you giving it to me?" Elder Li said, "I won it gambling over drinks and forgot to return it. This time when you go there, help me return it." This left me speechless. I said, "Shouldn't you use a safer method?" Elder Li shifted his gaze to the side and said, "There's no safer method than giving it to you." When I followed his gaze, I instantly understood what he meant. If Elder Li knew the Swordmaster's true identity, then giving it to me was indeed safest. At the moment of departure, not seeing eldest sister, I said disappointedly, "Where did sister go?" Elder Li said, "Maybe because you're leaving, she's hiding somewhere secretly wiping away tears. Don't worry, I'll definitely tell her you've safely departed." After the carriage drove away, Elder Li suddenly turned to look to the side saying, "You won't even show yourself to say goodbye?" At this moment, eldest sister was curled up sitting in a corner sobbing, saying, "How could I let Yang Tian see me crying?" Elder Li said, "He's not a 3-year-old child anymore, what's there to worry about?" Eldest sister immediately erupted in rage saying, "His body is so weak, how could I not worry at all? Yang Tian, you must return safely." Along the way I kept asking Wu Yan how much longer. Wu Yan forced a smile and said, "You've already asked this question over 30 times. If I must answer, we still need to travel for several more days." Hearing this, my eyes dimmed. I had also heard this answer over 30 times. Upon hearing this, the sword master Wei Xiaojun smiled and said, "Young master, are you feeling unwell somewhere?" This made me somewhat flustered. I said, "No, I'm just a bit bored." The swordmaster didn't know that he was what made me most uncomfortable. How could I be comfortable traveling with the swordmaster? I shifted my focus to Wei Shuer, saying, "Is it really okay to eat alone? Hurry up and hand it over." Wei Shuer said, "The attendant's sister gave this to me, so I need her permission first." The attendant immediately said, "There's nothing to ask. These steamed buns all belong to the young master anyway." Just like that, I successfully got the steamed bun. Wei Shuer also breathed a sigh of relief. Good thing, the young master only took one. Meanwhile, at the Qiu family manor, eldest sister was asking with a serious expression who the person before her was. The woman tidied her messy hair and responded again, "I am Nanggong Fei." Hearing this name, eldest sister's face immediately darkened. Yang Tian's fiancé, huh? But those azure bright eyes, that delicate rosy little mouth, I had to admit she was truly beautiful. Then eldest sister asked what she was doing here, and in such an undignified state at that. Nanggong Fei honestly said, "Because I accidentally took the wrong path." Eldest sister continued pressing, "So you went through all this trouble to rush here for what?" Nanggong Fei responded embarrassedly, "To see my betrothed." Eldest sister said, "It doesn't seem like the engagement has been formalized yet, right? Besides, my little brother isn't home right now." Hearing this, Nanggong Fei immediately understood. So this person was Qiu Yangtian's sister. Looking at eldest sister's smug expression, Nanggong Fei seemed to think of something, so she hastily straightened her disheveled clothes and messy hair. Then softly inquired, "Where did he go?" Eldest sister laughed heartily. "He went to Huashan, very far away." What a predicament, what a twist of fate. Unexpectedly, Nanggong Fei smiled slightly and said, "So he went to Huashan." The next second, she disappeared from the spot. Eldest sister was still there with cold sarcasm, "So you'd better go home." But when she came to her senses, Nanggong Fei had long since vanished without a trace. Did she go home? But why didn't she even say goodbye? The scene shifted. Wei Shuer was hugging the attendant and sleeping soundly. The guard Wu Yan was also resting. The night watch duty fell to the sword master Wei Xiaojun. Soon, movement in the distance caught his attention. Judging from the internal energy contained in the breathing, this kid seemed about to break through to 4-star. But I found this extremely troublesome, because after the internal energy accumulated in my body reached a certain level, it wouldn't flow and circulate completely according to my control. So right now, I had to break through the 3-star barrier as quickly as possible. But the problem was, I could barely manage external energy release. Yet sister could effortlessly burst out her internal energy. Talent was really so unfair. Whatever. I had to focus now. Having time to complain about these things was better spent on diligent cultivation. Thinking this, I attempted to circulate my internal energy again. But the next second, a plum blossom fragrance drifted into my nose. This made me complain. What use was this plum blossom smoke crystal stone anyway? Why did Elder Li have to give this thing to me? And this thing's fragrance was even richer than before. Because of this fragrance, I couldn't concentrate at all, but this thing didn't seem to have changed at all. Thinking this, I sighed. Although it was a bit regrettable, today's cultivation could only end here. But just then, an accident happened. Large plum blossom petals suddenly began falling from midair. I couldn't help but wonder, how could there be plum blossoms in summer? What is this? At this moment, a voice suddenly came, "You don't seem to be from Huashan." This startled me. "Who's there?" I began constantly instantly looking around, but didn't discover anyone. But just when I thought I was experiencing auditory hallucinations, that voice sounded again. Since you're not from Huashan, why are you absorbing the aura? This time I clearly heard that voice. It was an old man's voice. He said, "Which family's child is this getting so easily startled? This will cause problems." Before I could understand the deeper meaning of the words, the plum blossom smoke crystal stone in my hand suddenly changed, as a wave of drowsiness hit me. The next second, I unknowingly lost consciousness. The next day, amid everyone's calls, I slowly woke up. Seeing this, Wei Shuer excitedly hugged me. From Wuyan, I learned that I had fainted in the forest last night, and it was the sword master who brought me back. Just as I was about to express my thanks, the sword master said this was what he should do as an attendant. After saying this, he embarrassedly shifted his gaze away. It turned out Wei Shuer had started being presumptuous with my face. Seeing this, I pushed her away. Wuyan asked what happened last night. This immediately put me deep in thought. While cultivating last night, the stone suddenly began to glow. Thinking of this, I immediately pulled out the plum blossom smoke crystal stone. Fortunately, it looked perfectly normal. However, when I opened it, I discovered that the plum blossom smoke crystal stone's glow had dimmed considerably, and even the fragrance it emitted had completely disappeared. I immediately understood. It was the 1,000 absorption technique. So after I absorbed the spiritual energy from the stone, I suddenly fainted. Although I had thought this stone must contain secrets unknown to others, I didn't expect I would actually absorb it. Thinking of this, I suddenly realized something. Then I placed my hand on my chest, feeling the true chi that was much richer than before. I was secretly delighted. Sure enough, I really had reached 4-star. Then, as we continued onward toward Huashan, I could always occasionally sense some unusual gazes, which troubled me greatly. Although advancing to 4-star overnight felt very incredible, could everyone please stop staring at me like this? Just then, Wei Shuer suddenly leaned close to me and started sniffing around. I hastily turned my body away. Wei Shuer said there seemed to be a scent on me. I instinctively raised my hand and sniffed a few times, saying, "Don't all men have this kind of smell?" Wei Shuer immediately retorted, "Not that kind of smell, it's a very pleasant floral fragrance." I hurriedly pointed to a corner of the carriage and said, "The smell should be coming from there, right?" Wei Shuer pouted and shook her head, saying, "It's clearly coming from your body." I immediately fell into thought. If even she could tell, then my true chi and mental technique had probably improved greatly. At 3-star, I could only emit some heat. Now I should be able to easily shoot out red internal energy like sister, right? But unfortunately, before actual use, all of this was still unknown. After all, Elder Li specifically warned me not to cause trouble. Now I could only pray someone would come looking for a beating. Just then, the carriage suddenly braked hard. Wei Shuer and I also stumbled and fell. But when I got up to ask Wuyan what happened, I discovered he had actually placed his hand on his sword and prepared for battle. Seeing this, I looked in the direction of his gaze. I saw a man dressed in Huashan robes cupping his fists in salute, saying, "My deepest apologies. I am Yingfeng, a third-generation disciple of Huashan. Because there is something I wish to inquire about, I have presumptuously come to disturb you." Hearing this name, cold sweat couldn't help but emerge from my forehead. Huashan's youngest peerless genius, his talent in swordsmanship was considered limitless. So from childhood, he left behind the title of Plum Blossom Sword Dragon in the martial world. But in the end, he died at my hands. At this moment, Wuyan angrily rebuked, "Just because you're called the Huashan Sword Dragon, does that mean you can do such dangerous things?" Yingfeng apologized again, saying, "I originally didn't intend to block the road. I just wanted to confirm something. From afar, I sensed a familiar aura, so I wanted to confirm whether there were Huashan people in the carriage." After saying this, he walked straight toward the carriage. Seeing this, Wuyan immediately drew his blade to warn him not to approach, and I hastily averted my eyes, praying that the person he mentioned wasn't me, however accompanied by falling plum blossoms. The next second, Yingfeng instantly stood before me. He said, "Young hero, why do you carry Huashan's aura?" This made my face instantly turn ashen. If the Huashan people discovered that the plum blossom smoke crystal stone's power had all been absorbed, forget going to Huashan, I'd probably have to hide in corners for the rest of my life. However, just when I didn't know what to do, last night's old man's voice appeared again. I looked in the direction of the voice. I saw a little old man dressed in Huashan robes floating before my eyes. To this, the little old man said joyfully, "You can see me?" To this, I rubbed my eyes in disbelief, but the result was still the same. At this moment, the little old man said with a serious expression, "You, a junior, seeing an elder, still won't show respect?" This made me fall into thought. But soon I had an answer in my heart. I must have been cultivating too diligently recently, causing mental confusion and hallucinations. The little old man hastily responded, "This isn't a hallucination." Hearing this, I helplessly shook my head again. Now I was even experiencing auditory hallucinations. Seeing my abnormal behavior, Yingfeng asked in confusion, "Are you feeling unwell somewhere?" I pointed at the little old man in front of me and asked, "Can't you see this old guy the size of a bug? And didn't you hear such a loud voice either?" This made Yingfeng's expression instantly turn serious. He said, "Are you joking with me? Then I asked Wu Yan, can't you see it either? Upon hearing this, Wu Yan was first stunned, then perfunctorily said, I saw it, it's a red-haired old man, right? I was speechless. What was going on? Had I encountered a ghost? Where exactly did I get haunted? The little old man said, have you forgotten that you actively ate it yourself? Hearing this, a thought suddenly flashed through my mind. Could it be because I absorbed the plum blossom smoke crystal stone last night? The little old man immediately gave an affirmative answer. But the next second he said angrily, if I hadn't helped you at that time, you would have already had gone astral by now. Yet you actually called me a bug, a ghost. What a rude fellow. Hearing this, I gradually accepted reality and asked, then, old sir, who are you? Since I don't know you, you probably aren't that famous, are you? The little old man sighed. It seems I've truly grown old. If it were back in the day, one look from me would have scared you silly. Speaking of this, he suddenly coughed lightly and said, listen carefully, I'll only say this once. I am the 8th generation master of Huashan, sword immortal Shenjie. Hundreds of years before the heavenly demon appeared, there was a massive blood demon war. At that time, 5 legendary masters ended this catastrophe. Therefore, no matter how times changed, their prestige remained renowned. And as a member of a martial arts family, there was no way I wouldn't know this title. If you asked who the most respected person among Huashan warriors was, aside from the current master, the first one mentioned would definitely be the Huashan sword immortal. Could it be that this person was the old man as small as in Bug before me? At this moment, the old man angrily rebuked, how dare you still call me in Bug? Since you already know my identity, shouldn't you show some respect? And at this time, Yingfeng and Wu Yan were staring at me with puzzled expressions. Then I asked Shenjie, the plum blossom smoke crystal has existed for hundreds of years. Have you been inside the stone all this time? Shenjie denied it. Actually, I only woke up when you first obtained the plum blossom smoke crystal. But why can you, someone who isn't a Huashan disciple, absorb the aura of the plum blossom smoke crystal? I was speechless, whether he was truly the sword immortal or a soul impersonating an identity. Either way, this was a huge problem for me. Just because Huashan's secret treasure was absorbed by an outsider was already a big issue. But I couldn't give a reasonable explanation for this matter, which was an even bigger problem. I couldn't very well tell people I possessed demonic cultivation from the demon cult. Seeing that I hadn't spoken for a long time, Shenjie had no choice but to let it go. He said, everyone has things they want to keep secret, especially for a child like you. Hearing this, I immediately expressed my gratitude for his understanding. Shenjie said, now there's a more troublesome matter coming. You'd better think ahead about how to deal with it. Before I could figure out what he meant, several figures suddenly swept through the air. The next second, they directly blocked the path in front of our carriage. Seeing this, Yingfeng said, don't panic, they're all from Huashan. But just as his words fell, Wu Yan kicked him to the ground with one foot and directly pressed his sword against his neck, saying, young master, please be careful. These people look like they have ill intentions no matter how you look at them. At this moment, Yingfeng said, although I don't know why our disciples are so angry, but I can guarantee that as long as I go talk to them, everything will definitely be fine. Hearing this, Wu Yan finally reacted, could they all be from Huashan? Yingfeng confirmed it and indicated that the plum blossom pattern on their clothes represented Huashan warriors. Having said that, he shifted his gaze to me. Seeing this, I immediately told Wu Yan to stand down. Then Yingfeng signaled that we needn't worry. Next, he waved his hand and walked toward them. After a pleasant exchange, the senior brother leading them actually gave him a heavy punch directly. Then he apologized to us. We seem to have caused you unnecessary trouble. Seeing the misunderstanding cleared, I also returned the courtesy. We're also sorry. We started drawing swords without understanding the situation. But why have Huashan warriors come to such a distant place? Has something happened? The leading senior brother responded, this matter isn't easy to tell. But before he could finish, Yingfeng said, because many Huashan warriors have mysteriously disappeared recently. I felt very strange. Huashan's plum blossom sword team wouldn't be weak enough to disappear without reason. The senior brother said, originally his mission was to search the surrounding area, but he said he sensed Huashan's aura and ran off. Hearing this, I hurriedly cast a pleading look at Shenjie. Shenjie then signaled that I needn't worry, he had already concealed the aura on my body. But after the senior brother approached, he could still sense the fragrance of plum blossoms on me. Shenjie then signaled for me to take out the stone and show it to them. But when the plum blossom smoke crystal appeared before them, the two were suddenly shocked, saying, this was lost by our master when he was drinking, how did it end up in your hands now? Hearing this, I got off the carriage to greet them. I am Qiyu Yangtian of the Qiyu family. The purpose of this trip is to go to Huashan to return the borrowed secret treasure. Hearing this, the senior brother apologized again. So you're a distinguished guest from a prestigious family. Being so hostile at our first meeting was truly discourteous. At this moment, Yingfeng suddenly thought of something. He said, your sister. But before he could finish speaking, his mouth was covered. Then I tentatively inquired, my little sister hasn't caused you any trouble, has she? The senior brother stiffly squeezed out a smile and said, not at all. Seeing this, I immediately understood and told them that once we reached Huashan, I would immediately take her away. The senior brother first showed surprise upon hearing this. Then he patted my shoulder earnestly and said, "Young Master Chiu, go quickly and return quickly." This left me speechless. Just how much trouble had my little sister caused them. Time came to late night. Little sister gently knocked on the door. After getting permission from the person inside, she tiptoed in. The old man looked at her kindly and said, "You're afraid of walking at night, so why do you still come every night?" Then little sister threw herself into the old man's arms, saying, "Master, is your body still well?" The old man smiled calmly and said, "The days when you can come every day like this aren't many anymore." Little sister understood what her master meant, but she expressed that she would rather stay by her master's side for a lifetime. The master asked her again, "Do you not want to go back and see your family that much?" Hearing this, little sister's eyes showed determination as she said, "They're not my family." The master was silent for a while before saying, "But I'm an old man who's about to die of illness. One day you'll return to your family's side." Little sister hurriedly interrupted, "Master, don't say such things. Weren't you still called the Plum Blossom Immortal before you got sick?" On the other side, after clearing up the misunderstanding with Huashan's disciples, we embarked on the journey to Huashan together with them. When night fell, the Huashan warriors split into 2 teams to prepare for camping and standing guard respectively. At the same time, Nanggong Fei had just finished dealing with a group of demonic creatures. However, the surroundings made her sense a somewhat familiar scent, so she slowly closed her eyes and carefully sniffed that scent again. That's right, it was Qiu Yangtian. Then she rushed forward in that direction, and I was asking the little old man, "Old man, what exactly do I have to do for you to leave my body?" Shenje sighed and said, "If I knew, I wouldn't have stayed attached to your body all this time. Also, don't call me old man. I am the 8th generation master of Huashan, Huashan's sword immortal Shenje." Hearing this, my eyes were full of doubt, but I still said I was willing to believe he was Elder Shen. Elder Shen saw through my concerns and said, "Don't worry, I'm not interested in your body." Speaking of which, he suddenly changed the subject. "But what is that thing you've stuffed inside your body?" Hearing this, I asked with a puzzled face, "Are you saying there's something inside my body?" Elder Shen looked at me with a suspicious face and said, "You really don't know what's inside your body? Then before I tell you, answer one more question. What happened to the blood demon in the end?" Hearing this, I immediately fell into deep thought. The hero who blocked the blood demon from recovering the light of the Central Plains, and then brought Huashan to new heights, this protagonist was actually asking about the blood demon. I said, "You're not the Huashan sword immortal, otherwise there's no way you wouldn't know about the blood demon war." Elder Shen said, "I don't know why, but I just can't remember the final battle against the demons." It seemed Elder Shen had lost his memory. Was it a side effect of being attached to my body? Then I voiced my confusion. "What exactly are you referring to that's inside my body?" Looking at my serious expression, Elder Shen said, "What difference will it make if someone who doesn't trust me hears it? Actually, what I'm talking about is just the result. I don't really know what it specifically is either. From my perspective, there's something violent inside your body, yet you know nothing about it." I originally thought he was referring to the 9 flames fire wheel technique, but he seemed more like he was describing a fierce beast. At this moment, Elder Shen said, "Don't worry, I've already made it fall asleep. If I release the restraints, it will rampage around like a demonic creature biting everything. Do you want to try?" But before I could agree, he opened his palm. The next second, a sharp pain swept through my entire body. I instantly collapsed to my knees, unable even to breathe normally. It was as if an extremely sharp internal force was constantly surging through my body, just when I couldn't control my body, and my mind was about to collapse. Elder Shen made a gesture and instantly restrained it again. He said, "Do you understand now?" I gasped heavily for breath, asking, "What exactly was that just now? Why is such a thing inside my body?" Elder Shen was also puzzled by this, but today could only go this far. Speaking of which, he pointed upward with his finger. But before I could react, the next second, a figure emanating the scent of plum blossom swept past before my eyes. As the smoke slowly dispersed, a familiar figure suddenly appeared before me. I asked, "What are you doing?" I saw Yingfeng slowly turn around with his back to me. Huashan has an old saying passed down, "If you want to get close to someone, have a good fight." This left me completely baffled. What kind of old saying was that? Could this be Huashan's way of requesting a sparring match? Yingfeng apologized. "I've just never seen a rising talent around my age, so I got a bit excited." Hearing this, I said in confusion, "What do you mean? Clearly Huashan has many rising talents." Hearing this, Yingfeng suddenly didn't know what to do, but in my heart I was very clear. As the Plum Blossom Sword Immortal, he was an insurmountable mountain for those without talent. Even if he stayed with ordinary martial artists his age, it would only increase their sense of inferiority. But in my view, his invitation to spar with me was also a recognition of my strength. Thinking of this, I immediately agreed to his request, but just this once. Hearing this, Yingfeng instantly lit up with joy. Then he solemnly expressed his gratitude to me, but just as he was about to make a move, a lightning-like momentum suddenly manifested around him. As the aura grew increasingly intense, the next second, he was kicked directly into the water with one foot. Seeing this scene, I was completely baffled, but when I turned around to look, I discovered it was actually Nanggong Fei who had found her way here. And when Nanggong Fei saw me, tears of joy welled up in her eyes. "Finally found you. Qiu Yangtian. After seeing Nangong Fei, whom I hadn't seen in a long time, I recalled some memories from my past life. At that time, the sky was pouring with torrential rain, and I silently looked at Nangong Fei, who was severely injured, with mixed emotions. At this moment, Nangong Fei asked me if I was crying. I immediately denied it. Don't be ridiculous, it's rainwater. Hearing this, Nangong Fei's face showed a hint of disappointment. Then I asked her, you clearly could have escaped. Why did you stay to fight alongside me? Hearing this, Nangong Fei was silent for a few seconds, then said, I simply wanted to do this. After answering, she asked me if the moon was still there. After hearing my affirmative answer, she first showed a relieved smile, then she closed her eyes forever. Just then, a mocking voice suddenly came from behind. I didn't expect there to be friendship among demon people too, or are you two lovebirds flirting? But you don't need to be sad, because you're about to go down and meet her. Hearing this, a terrifying demonic power burst from within my body. Meteor sword, I won't let you die easily. Thinking of this, Nangong Fei suddenly interrupted my thoughts. Qiu Yangtian, I finally found you, I asked with a surprised face. How did you find your way here? Before Nangong Fei could answer, the Huashan disciple beside us spoke first. Young Master Qiu, do you know this woman? Hearing this, the disciples behind immediately drew their swords and prepared for battle. Seeing this scene, I hurriedly thought of countermeasures. That crazy woman Nangong Fei just attacked Huashan warriors. This was a big deal. This definitely wasn't something that could be calmed by me admitting I knew her. Just then, Nangong Fei suddenly said softly, fiancé. As soon as these words came out, all the disciples froze. Even Elder Shen found it somewhat unexpected. With things developing to this point, I could only bite the bullet and admit it. Seeing this, all the disciples cast hostile glances at me. Such a beautiful woman is actually this guy's fiancé. Then I continued asking her why she came here. Nangong Fei answered honestly, to see you. I asked in confusion, if you came to see me, then why did you attack? At this moment, Elder Shen explained for her, look at her exhausted appearance. She must not have rested. Traveling day and night to get here. Do you think she still has the energy to distinguish between demonic creatures and humans? This shows she has a heart eager to see you as soon as possible. But even so, in my view, this still wasn't something worth praising. I said to her, apologize quickly. No matter what reason you have, you can't beat Huashan warriors like this. Having said that, I shifted my gaze to Yingfeng. However, at this moment he was staring straight at Nangong Fei. Seeing this, I immediately understood he was captivated by Nangong Fei. Just as I was about to ask if he was injured, he pounded his chest and expressed that he wanted to spar with me immediately. This left me speechless. But in the end, I still agreed to his request. At the beginning of the sparring match, Yingfeng kept glancing toward Nangong Fei's side. Seeing this, I was quite displeased. Had he never seen a woman before? But in Elder Shen's view, I was clearly jealous. I hurriedly explained, what's there to be jealous about? I won't gain anything from this match. I just don't like his purpose of wanting to show off in front of a woman. Hearing this, Elder Shen continued, you might as well take advantage of him too. Aren't you curious how much stronger you've become after breaking through to 4 stars? At this moment, a nearby Huashan disciple asked, Senior brother, who will win? The senior brother said, although this is quite unfair to young Master Qiu, the outcome is already obvious. Yingfeng is a genuine monster. Everyone has experienced his talent. As long as he takes it seriously, I'm afraid even I wouldn't be a match for him. As he spoke, plum blossoms rose following the sword momentum. Seeing this, Sword Master's expression immediately became grave. As the plum blossoms gathered at the sword's edge, Yingfeng's eyes instantly became sharp. He said, now I'm going to attack. Hearing this, I immediately burst forth with fierce internal force in response. Everyone seeing this opened their mouths wide. Even Sword Master Wei Xiaojun found it incredible. As I gathered all the flame-like internal force into my left hand, I couldn't help but marvel inwardly. This internal force is really strong. Yingfeng saw this with a shocked expression. I asked him, what's with that expression? Are you afraid? Yingfeng smiled and denied it. Then he pushed off with both feet and took the initiative to launch an attack toward me. However, I stood in place without moving. When the long sword was about to hit, I first calmly pushed away his hand, then punched directly at his chest as the tremendous internal force poured out. The next second, his entire body was sent flying. Seeing this scene, everyone was shocked. Even Swordmaster Wei Xiaojun found it incredible. After I arrived at Yingfeng's side, he immediately admitted defeat. But just then, Nangong Fei suddenly stepped forward. I looked over at the sound and saw Nangong Fei place her hand on her sword and say, "Spar with me once." Hearing this, I was speechless. I said, "Didn't you see I just finished sparring?" Hearing this, a complicated expression appeared on Nangong Fei's face. This made me wonder inwardly, was she angry because she was rejected? But in Elder Shen's view, this looked more like two young lovers having a quarrel. I knew in my heart that if I let her continue like this, things would only become more troublesome, so I could only promise to spar with her next time. Hearing this, Nangong Fei tightly grasped my hand. She said with a shy face, next time for sure. After this incident, I began training hard again. Watching my abundant aura, Elder Shen couldn't help but sigh. This is the first time I've seen a monster like you. You're actually already trying to break through to the middle Dantian now. I indicated he needn't make such a fuss, I was just barely trying it out, Elder Shen said. Attempting to break through to the middle Dantian at your age is already remarkable, but you'd better not continue, because once you open the middle Dantian, that thing inside your body might run out. This left me puzzled. Would the thing inside my body react to my internal force? Elder Shen said, the stronger your internal force, the more active it becomes. Hearing this, a hint of disappointment appeared on my face. Damn it, my current strength still isn't enough. At this moment, Yingfeng suddenly walked up, saying, you clearly won the match, but you're still reflecting on your own shortcomings. I asked him what he wanted. Yingfeng directly expressed his gratitude, saying, I haven't learned enough, although I don't know why you did this. I understand you wanted to give me guidance. Elder Shen sighed. He lost so helplessly but didn't fall into heart demons. Instead, he's still organizing his thoughts. But I said, some people rush around everywhere with a determination to die while training, but his purpose isn't pure. Elder Shen immediately retorted, you're really narrow-minded. I said, although I didn't mean it that way, I'm glad you gained something from it. Yingfeng said, I always thought I was the strongest genius, until I saw you. Only then did I realize there's another world out there. You must have put in a lot of effort too. Even though he said this, I still couldn't bring myself to like him. At this moment, Yingfeng expressed his gratitude to me again. This instantly plunged me into memories. Back when I was slaughtering Huashan, Yingfeng never surrendered even unto death. Could it be that this one defeat completely changed him? On the other side, Wei Shuer was gesturing to Swordmaster Grandfather. Did you see? The young master just did that, and that brother with the floating petals lost. Speaking of this, she suddenly changed the subject. Compared to this, there's bad news. Swordmaster asked her what news it was. Wei Shuer responded angrily, the young master is getting engaged. Swordmaster said, that's a good thing. Wei Shuer shouted, no, although I don't know what engagement means. Anyway, it's not allowed. Only I can do things together with the young master. Only after I agree can he do it. Seeing this, Swordmaster could only patiently persuade her. Shuer, marriage agreements can't be forced. Hearing this, Wei Shuer's whole demeanor started becoming wrong. At night, Swordmaster asked her, are you feeling unwell somewhere? Wei Shuer just shook her head. I said in confusion, if not, then why have you been stirring your food this whole time? If you continue like this, you can forget about eating steamed buns in the future. Just as Nangong Fei was about to pick up some food, Wei Shuer knocked down the food she was picking up. Seeing this, Swordmaster immediately scolded, Shuer, what are you doing? Wei Shuer choked up with a wronged expression, then shouted loudly, sister is an idiot. Then she turned and left. Seeing this scene, I glanced at Nangong Fei, asking, did you do something wrong? Nangong Fei shook her head, not understanding. The next day, I woke up with huge dark circles under my eyes. Couldn't remember how many days we'd been camping. Felt like recently I'd spent more time sleeping outside than sleeping at the QIU residence. But just as I was washing my face by the river, Yingfeng walked over bare-chested saying, young Master Chiu, want to train together. Seeing this, I said disdainfully, do Huashan disciples have a rule about not wearing clothes in the morning? Elder Shen explained, a martial artist's body changes according to the cultivation method and their own emotions. Only by becoming a more robust tree can more beautiful plum blossoms bloom. So physical training is also essential. But I still declined his kind offer, because today there was something more important. Yingfeng curiously asked me what it was. I looked into the distance and laughed heartily. Today is the day we reach Huashan. Time came to evening. We finally arrived at the foot of Huashan. Elder Shen looked at the familiar scenery with secret sorrow, didn't expect this place to still be the same. I said, which idiot established Huashan at the mountain peak? Don't they find it tiring to climb up and down every day? The senior brother said, young Master Q, after such a long and tiring journey, let's rest here for one night before going up. I said, I'm carrying Huashan's secret treasure. Wouldn't it be better to go up immediately? The senior brother paused for a few seconds upon hearing this, saying, I'm worried whether young Master Q can still climb up. Hearing this, I changed my tune. Since you've already said so, let's follow the arrangement. Then he instructed Yingfeng to take good care of everyone, and indicated he needed to go up the mountain first to report young Master Chiu's impending arrival. This left me very puzzled. Why not let Yingfeng go with him? Huashan's seniors should be waiting for him too, or was his relationship with others generally poor? Thinking of this, Wei Shuer suddenly walked up carrying a basket of steamed buns. Seeing this, my spirits immediately lifted. The vitality of my life had finally arrived. At this moment, Wei Shuer also thoughtfully handed over water, but after drinking halfway, I sensed something wasn't right. She was clearly having a tantrum yesterday. How could she be happy again today? I reached out and patted her head. If only she could be this well-behaved in the future. Wei Shuer responded with a flushed face. I'm well-behaved every day though. Witnessing the entire scene, Nangong Fei seemed to think of something. Then she picked up a steamed bun and held it in front of me. Seeing Wei Shuer's face change dramatically, I was caught in a dilemma. But just as I was thinking about whether to eat it or not, Wei Shuer suddenly ate the steamed bun directly, while also looking at Nangong Fei with hostile eyes. Nangong Fei was first stunned upon seeing this, but ultimately still showed a smile. At the same time, in a certain mysterious cave, a subordinate was making a report to the leader. Boss, a message saying the divine physician appeared in Province C, but the specific location is still being investigated. Hearing this, the leader directly drew his sword and questioned, I didn't tell you to send people there, did I? The subordinate said tremblingly, it was the palace master who personally gave the order, said to imprison them at the branch after capture. The leader continued asking, if there are interfering people, can we kill them? After getting an affirmative answer from his subordinate, the leader smiled coldly. Then he swung his great sword down. The next day, with desperate persistence, I finally climbed to the peak of Huashan. At this moment, I gasped heavily and cursed, which idiot built the Huashan sect in such a place? Wei Shuer looked completely relaxed. She said, I already said I could carry you. Before I could respond, Nangong Fei suddenly extended her hand before my eyes. But just as I took her hand, Wei Shuer's expression turned sour again. At this moment, Nangong Fei suddenly slowly lowered her head. Seeing this scene, I was puzzled. What was she doing? Elder Shen laughed at my stupidity. He said, did you forget what you did to Wei Shuer last night? Hearing this, I suddenly understood. But just as I was about to pat her head, Wei Shuer extended her hand first. Seeing this, Nangong Fei slowly raised her head and said calmly, next time. Just then, Huashan Sect's main gate slowly opened. Walking in front was precisely Huashan Sect's master. Elder Shen laughed heartily, saying, didn't expect the Huashan master to be this guy, and seeing me, the master was even more delighted. He said, do you know how long I've been waiting for you? Because I gambled away the secret treasure while drinking. Those elders mocked me for a long time, before I could make introductions. The master continued, Old Li already wrote to tell me, you came this time to return the plum blossom smoke crystal and pick up your sister, right? Hearing this, I felt secretly pleased. Great. Elder Li explained the situation in advance. This trip should end quickly, but the master's expression suddenly became grave as he said, but that guy seems to have left out some things, your body's aura and, speaking of which, he cast his gaze on Swordmaster, saying, forget it, anyway, having come this far you must be tired. Let's go inside and talk about the specifics. Hearing this, I hurriedly sought Elder Shen's help on what to do. Elder Shen just laughed. Do you think you can be fine after absorbing Huashan's secret treasure? After we entered Huashan's sect, the master immediately had a conversation with me. He said, I'm sorry to call you over before you could rest here, but please understand, I can't ignore the fact that the plum blossom smoke crystal was absorbed. I immediately expressed understanding and told him everything except about Elder Shen. The master said incredulously, so what you mean is you were just holding Huashan's secret treasure and then somehow absorbed it? Elder Shen expressed understanding of the master's doubt, waking up after training to find you'd absorbed it. Nobody would immediately accept such a thing after hearing it. Moreover, you possess two completely opposite types of aura, which makes it even harder to believe. Then the master slowly stood up saying, forget it. Since you came to pick up your sister, follow me. However, just as I was about to stand up, the next second he forcefully pressed me back down. He said, did you think nothing would happen after absorbing Huashan's secret treasure? Hearing this, I looked puzzled, saying, but your expression right now looks exactly like Elder Li's when he's pranking me. The master immediately retorted, how could I be like that guy? You're going too far. At the same time, somewhere in Huashan, the divine physician was treating an elderly woman. The divine physician said, it's all ruined. Not only the acupoints, the chi flow is also completely distorted. How did you endure the pain of your body rotting? The elderly woman coughed lightly, saying, actually it wasn't that painful. The divine physician said, are you lying to be strong because you're in front of your disciple? And the disciple being referred to was my little sister, Chiu Linghua. At this moment, the divine physician asked again, how long has it been? What caused it? The elderly woman responded, 4 years. But when it came to the cause, she couldn't bring herself to say it. Then she coughed up a mouthful of blood with a pained expression. Seeing this, little sister hurriedly stepped forward and patted her back. This is a restriction. The divine physician found it very strange. If it was a restriction, it should have been immediately noticeable when checking the pulse. Seeing the divine physician's troubled expression, the elderly woman asked how long she could live. Hearing this, little sister sadly shed tears. The divine physician said, if things go badly, 2 months. If things go well, you can last until winter. Hearing this, the elderly woman smiled calmly, but the divine physician's eyes were filled with complexity. Thinking of her youthful, heroic bearing, his eyes became resolute again. I will do everything in my power, so you should go out first. Little sister was still somewhat worried. The elderly woman said softly, Linghua, it's all right. Seeing this, little sister could only leave first. On the other side, I had finally climbed up here. Is this really not a punishment? Climbing stairs since early morning, now climbing a mountain again. The master laughed. Did you feel Huashan's meaning? There's no gain without hardship. I couldn't help but complain, Elder Shen. If only you'd moved when you were alive. Just then, the gate before us slowly opened. Then little sister walked, out wiping her tears. But when she saw the boy before her, she got a fright. Then accidentally bumped right into the divine physician's attendant behind her. Little sister rubbed her head and asked, why are you here? But I was very curious about about the person behind her. At this moment, little sister complained to the attendant, "You need to watch where you're walking." But when I clearly saw the appearance of the person behind, the next second, violent internal force erupted from within my body. Seeing this scene, little sister froze, saying, "Brother, what are you doing?" Turns out I'd done the same thing in my past life. That was when I returned to the demon cult to report after destroying the Tang family. At that time, he, as the demon cult strategist, had been waiting at the door for a long time. He said, "You seem to have vented quite a bit of anger. It wouldn't be because of the dead woman, would it? But this was all the heavenly demon's intention. Your appearance seems dissatisfied with the cult master's arrangements." Hearing this, I immediately gathered my internal force wanting to strike. But thinking of how he alone held the heavenly demon's favor, I ultimately held back. As I was leaving, his voice sounded again. "Now that the Heaven Venerable is dead, the Overlord Venerable probably also died today. The Sword Sovereign became one-armed, and the heavenly demon also lost interest in him. So who do you think the remainder will be entrusted to?" Thinking of this, I immediately stepped forward and grabbed his neck. At the same time, several auras within my body were violently colliding as I gradually lost my reason. The next second, a large hand suddenly covered my eyes. The person was precisely Huashan's master. He said, "Young Master Chu, have a good sleep." Before long, hearing the sound of the door opening, the divine physician looked outside and saw Huashan's master smiling as he said, "Divine physician, there happens to be a patient here." Soon after I woke up, the master began making introductions. "This is the world-renowned divine physician, the strongest healer of this era. This is Huashan's Plum Blossom Sword matriarch, and beside her is the Plum Blossom Sword matriarch's disciple, your sister. And the one you almost strangled to death is the divine physician's grandson, also his disciple, Zhuge He. So why did you try to strangle his neck?" Hearing this, my heart jumped in shock. This was bad. Actually, speaking honestly, after seeing this guy, my memories started becoming blurry. But in this situation, even if I said it, no one would believe me. And that Zhuge He was the divine physician's grandson was also the first time I'd heard. The person that I originally commissioned the Xia Wu sect to find was encountered by me first. Not a single thing was going according to plan. Also, Elder Shen, I don't know when he stopped coming out. But just as I didn't know how to answer, the master suddenly said, "Is it that your memory feels somewhat blurry?" Hearing this, I was directly stunned, asking, "How did you know?" But the master didn't pay attention, instead asking the divine physician, "Can you examine this child's body?" However, the divine physician didn't even think before refusing his request. Because of this, the two didn't hesitate to come to blows. With no other choice, the master could only use dragon immortal grass leaves as exchange to help me examine my body once. After thinking for a moment, the divine physician reluctantly agreed. As the diagnosis began, the divine physician's expression gradually became grave. Seeing this, the master hurriedly asked, "Is there something abnormal?" The divine physician said, "This isn't a matter of whether there's something abnormal or not. This level is simply a walking corpse, having several types of aura flowing inside and still being able to run around safely everywhere." And naturally, I understood what the divine physician meant, although I'd absorbed all kinds of things. What I didn't expect was that these things would be this dangerous. Could all of this be because of that thing Elder Shen mentioned before? Thinking of this, Elder Shen suddenly popped out saying, "It's not. When you were jumping around, that thing suddenly appeared, which temporarily disconnected me from you. But not only did that thing not harm you, it actually saved your body. Simply put, that thing is helping you suppress those rampaging auras inside your body." Afterward, I asked the divine physician what to do now. The divine physician let out a bitter laugh, saying, "All we can do is pray that after extracting these auras, you won't die from body explosion. With your current body, even if you died while eating or sleeping, it wouldn't be strange." The master also didn't expect the situation to be more serious than imagined, but I acted nonchalant, saying, "Aren't I living perfectly fine right now?" Having said that, I shifted my gaze to little sister, saying, "Hurry up and come home with me." But after my little sister said she didn't want to leave, I didn't try too hard to persuade her. I said, "Do as you wish, father won't care anyway." Upon hearing this, my little sister's whole demeanor immediately deteriorated. Seeing the atmosphere getting a bit strange, the sect leader quickly changed the subject. "Yang Tian, you must be very tired from just arriving at Huashan. Go to your dormitory and get some good rest." On the way back, Elder Shen said, "The divine physician said you might die, yet you had such a good appetite at dinner. Are you trying to eat your fill while you're still alive?" I said, "I have no feelings about this matter. I've committed many sins in the past. Perhaps this is retribution." This made Elder Shen very confused. How could a child talk about retribution? Soon after returning to the dormitory, I saw Nangong Fei sitting shyly on the bed. She said, "You're back. I want to sleep with you." Elder Shen suggested, "Why don't you leave behind a child before you die?" But I refused. "Didn't they say 2 rooms were prepared? Please go rest in your own room." But when I learned from Nangong Fei that there was no other room, I suddenly realized something. The sect leader and Elder Li were in on this together. I should have been more careful, so I told her I would go sleep with Wu Yan. But the next second, Nangong Fei stopped me. She said, "We'll sleep holding hands together." Hearing this, I looked at her. She looked back at me. Then I couldn't help but burst out laughing. I said, regardless, I hope you have a pleasant evening tonight. Seeing this, Nangang Fei took my hand again and placed it on her face. She said, sleep with me tonight. On the other side, Swordmaster Wei Xiaojun found the Huashan sect leader. The Huashan sect leader heard that both Shaolin and Wudong were looking for the Swordmaster, and the Swordmaster was looking for the Divine Physician. But the Huashan sect leader didn't understand. Didn't you already find the Divine Physician? The Swordmaster nodded slightly. He said, I sensed the massive barrier you set up on Huashan to protect the Divine Physician, but out of courtesy I still want to ask in advance if I can go see the Divine Physician. The sect leader said, the Divine Physician is currently taking care of other people even if you see him. The situation you want may not necessarily happen, but if you do as I say, the result might be different. The next day, I lay in bed with huge dark circles under my eyes. Elder Shen looked full of regret. Nothing happened last night after all. I snorted coldly in response. Don't start saying these strange things first thing in the morning. I'm exhausted. Elder Shen said, but didn't you end up sleeping together anyway? To this, I felt helpless. Yesterday she even used her internal energy and acted like she would destroy everything if I didn't comply. What else could I do? It turned out that Tang Shaoli and Nangang Fei had once discussed how to have babies. Nangang Fei believed that as long as they slept holding hands, a few months later a crane would deliver a baby. Elder Shen laughed heartily and said, at least that maid didn't see this scene. I said it probably wouldn't matter even if she did see it, but thinking carefully, Nangang Fei was indeed particularly noisy when I was with her. In that case, she absolutely couldn't be allowed to find out. Thinking this, I suddenly felt a chill down my spine, and when I turned to look, I found Wei Shuer staring at me with a serious expression, and hearing the commotion, Nangang Fei also woke up, but after both of them saw each other clearly, Wei Shuer directly said, sister is too shameless. Then her eyes welled up with tears as she lowered her head and said, I also want to sleep with young master. Nangang Fei said, then let's sleep together. Hearing this, I was immediately shocked. This was simply absurd. But Wei Shuer didn't care about any of that. She jumped directly onto the bed, saying, great, Shuer can also sleep together. This is wonderful. Just then, Huashan disciple Yingfeng slowly pulled open the door, but when he saw the scene inside, he was completely stunned. Then he left with just one sentence, the sect leader is looking for you, and then ran off. Seeing this, Elder Shen indicated, I needn't worry, there wouldn't be any idle gossip on Huashan. However, when I found the sect leader, his first words were, I heard you were slept up with 2 women first thing in the morning, it's good to be young. Elder Shen said awkwardly, it seems Huashan has changed a lot over these years. I covered my face and asked the sect leader what he wanted from me. The sect leader continued to tease, I want to hear about your affairs with 2 women last night. Seeing I was about to leave, he quickly stopped me and got to the real business. Do you remember the small, wooden cabin you went to yesterday? That's where the Plum Blossom Sword Matriarch lives. Saying this, he pulled something from his sleeve and said, can you deliver this to the Divine Physician? This confused me greatly. Although this wasn't a difficult task, why did he need me to deliver it? The sect leader said, most people on Huashan don't know the Sword Matriarch is ill. Having you deliver it means we don't have to worry about news of her illness getting out. But if I go deliver it, the Divine Physician will probably start packing to leave again. So I can only find someone who has had contact with the Divine Physician and owes me a favor to help deliver it. At the same time, little sister followed the Divine Physician's arrangement to go down the mountain to gather medicine. After purchasing all the medicinal materials, she returned to Huashan, but on the road, when she saw a group of deer showing affection to each other, she instantly recalled childhood memories. Mother and brother Qiu Yangtian were kneeling before father, while father stared at them with a fierce expression. This scene happened to be seen by her as she passed by, so she never wanted to return to the Qiu family again. After this thought, her entire body disappeared from that spot. At this moment, a voice came from behind the large tree. Where did she go? Were we discovered? Another person said, how could we possibly be discovered by a little girl with only about 2-star strength? Having said that, the person came to where little sister had disappeared, but the moment he reached out his hand, he finally understood everything. The Huashan sect leader had actually set up a barrier. This confirmed that the Divine Physician must be inside. So, our mission is complete. The rest will be handled by the branch leader. Just as little sister was returning to Huashan after buying the medicine, she happened to run into me climbing the mountain, and I also sensed her presence. At this time, little sister asked me why I was here. I said breathlessly, the sect leader asked me to help deliver something, so I came. Little sister responded coldly, then don't just stand there, hurry up. I said helplessly that I didn't want to be this way either. This made little sister suddenly recall the Divine Physician's words. With your current body, it wouldn't be strange if you suddenly died even while bathing or eating. So she immediately said, give me what you need to deliver, I'll help you deliver it. Hearing this, I was stunned and asked, are you worried about me? Little sister denied it inconsistently. How could I possibly worry about you? I just think you're too slow. I said irritably, what's there to complain about? I'll just walk faster. Looking at my weary back, little sister was about to ask about my physical condition, but I interrupted. Have you seen the Divine Physician's grandson do anything strange, like talking to himself? After getting little sister's denial, I also felt relieved. Just then, Elder Shen suddenly appeared and said, I don't think she seems like a bad sister, but why is the relationship between you siblings so tense? And I myself didn't know why it had become like this. Elder Shen continued to press, don't you care about this? I'm not saying I don't care, but given my current physical condition, I just don't want to think about it right now. This made Elder Shen very confused. After all, this is family. Only then did I realize Elder Shen was actually talking about little sister. I thought he was talking about the divine physician's grandson. If it's her, then it doesn't matter, because I never cared about her from the beginning. Moments later, I finally delivered the scroll to the divine physician. After reading the contents, he immediately asked, that old man told you to bring this garbage over, right? I was puzzled about how the sect leader had offended the divine physician. Why did he hate the sect leader so much? I said helplessly, after all, it's the sect leader's request. I can't pretend I don't know anything. Hearing this, the divine physician reluctantly accepted the scroll. He said, aren't you afraid of death? Faced with this sudden question, the scene fell into silence. Then the divine physician said, I guess I shouldn't have asked that. If there's nothing else, just hurry back. As I was leaving, little sister wanted to ask about my physical condition again. But before she could speak, I'd already walked away. The scene shifted, and the sect leader asked me if I had given the item to the divine physician. I said, although he was somewhat unhappy, he eventually accepted it. The sect leader laughed heartily. The contents inside are indeed enough to make him curse. But how did the sword matriarch look? I said, she was resting at the time, so I couldn't tell if her condition had improved. Since the divine physician is caring for her, the sword matriarch will surely get better. The sect leader sighed. Just as the plum blossoms are blooming, so many pieces of bad news arrived together. I was very confused. Besides the sword matriarch's health, did something else happen on Huashan? Elder Shen immediately reminded, haven't quite a few Huashan disciples mysteriously disappeared? In that case, the sword master's arrival and Zhu Ji's appearance should also be included in the bad news. Even if just one of these things got out, it would be a major incident, but all these things are tangled together. At the same time, the masked person also brought news of the divine physician back to the cave. The leader who learned the news was very pleased. So you saw the divine physician, the subordinate said fearfully. We didn't see the divine physician with our own eyes, but the plum blossom immortal set up a huge barrier. The divine physician must be there. Hearing this, the leader sighed deeply. He said, so basically you have no concrete intelligence. You dare to come back so brazenly with such useless information. With that, he directly cut off the man's arm with one slash. The subordinate endured the pain and expressed his apology. He said, I'm very sorry, branch leader sir, this is all my fault. The leader smiled, I'm in a good mood today, I'll spare you. We need to make some preparations anyway. In 3 days, go inside the barrier and see if the divine physician is there. If he is, bring him back. If not, prepare to be buried with him. Time came to evening. Elder Shen said, it's rare to see someone as busy as you every day, but I just woke up, delivered a scroll, then chatted with the sect leader for a while, and the day was over. At this time, Elder Shen asked, everything's done, aren't you going home yet? I thought about it. My sister said she didn't want to go home, and the plum blossom smoke crystal was successfully delivered. It was time to go back. Just then, a shout suddenly came from behind. I saw Wei Shuer joyfully rushing toward me. After dodging, I immediately asked, what do you want so late at night? Wei Shuer quickly reminded, aren't we supposed to sleep together tonight? Seeing this, I immediately said, does your grandfather know you're acting like this? Wei Shuer smiled and said, it's fine, grandfather already left. I don't know where he went, and I don't know when he'll be back. Hearing this, I felt helpless. But for now, I could only wait for the sword master to return. Elder Shen said, the world really has changed. It doesn't matter if a servant disappears without a trace. Soon, after returning to the room, the scene before me left me dumbfounded again. Wei Shuer directly crawled into the blanket. She said, young master, come quickly. Let's sleep together. Seeing this situation, I turned to leave without thinking. But the next second, Nengong Fei chased after me. With no choice, I ultimately lay obediently on the bed. But after being slapped hard by Wei Shuer, I couldn't help but curse inwardly. The next day, I sought help from Elder Shen with huge dark circles under my eyes. However, Elder Shen said, you don't know how lucky you are. Just get up if you want to get up. I said helplessly. I was held too tightly. What could I do? If someone sees this scene again, there will definitely be big trouble. As soon as I finished speaking, little sister directly pushed the door open. After seeing this scene, she was first stunned, then showed a disgusted expression. She said, I'll wait for you outside. At this moment, my mind was already in turmoil. Earlier, Yingfeng also came in without permission. Is this Huashan's etiquette? But right now, the most important thing was to figure out how to get up. So I first gently tickled Wei Shuer with my finger and told her there was a bug crawling on her body. Hearing this, Wei Shuer woke up suddenly. Then I flicked Nongong Fei's forehead hard. Just like that, I finally regained control of my body. Soon after getting ready, I went outside to meet little sister. Little sister said directly, Master wants to see you. If I had known you were sleeping with 2 women in your arms, I would have come later. I said, so you came all this way just to tell me this? Little sister said, you're thinking too much. I just came for the flower festival battle. I've said what I needed to say. Go back and continue playing with those ugly women. At this point, her eyes suddenly widened. It turned out Nan Gongfei and Wei Shu'er had come out, and their beauty shocked little sister. At this time, both asked in unison, "Who is this person?" Little sister said angrily, "You don't need to know." With that, she turned and left directly. At this moment, Nan Gongfei leaned on my shoulder and asked, "What's wrong with her?" After little sister told me the news about participating in the flower festival battle, she came alone to an empty space and vented her emotions by practicing swordplay. She remembered that when she was young, she loved playing with her brother. Her brother also often played pranks on her. Whenever she was scared to tears, her brother would not only apologize immediately but also fulfill any of her requests. Once she asked her brother to help teach that sister Qiu Yanshu a lesson because she always spoke badly about their mother. Her brother thought for a moment, then stroked her head. He said, "After all, she's also our family. You should be able to understand that, right?" Thinking of this, little sister continued to swing her long sword, but after a while she slumped to the ground exhausted. The more she thought about it, the angrier she got. Then she threw the long sword away. At this time, a voice suddenly came, "No matter how tired you are, you can't throw away your sword." When she looked up, she saw a familiar face appear before her eyes. Wasn't this the woman who was sleeping with her brother this morning? But out of politeness, she still said thank you, but thinking about it more carefully, she was still too angry and snatched the sword away, saying, "I don't need your help." "But why are you here?" Nan Gongfei said. "I just saw your relationship with Qiu Yangtian seemed unusual, so I followed to take a look." With that, she revealed that devastatingly beautiful smile. Seeing this, little sister felt dazzled. Who exactly was this person? At this time, Nan Gongfei spoke again, interrupting her thoughts. "You need to reduce your strength a bit more. The way you were practicing just now consumed too much stamina." This made little sister very resentful. As expected, this woman was like all the others. She immediately questioned, "You're so beautiful. You don't look like someone who's ever held a sword. People who know nothing shouldn't try to boss others around." Nan Gongfei thought for a moment. She said, "How about we have a match?" Little sister accepted her proposal, but she didn't understand. What kind of match was it without even drawing the sword? Nan Gongfei said, "This is enough." Hearing this, little sister was immediately furious. Then she raised her sword and launched an attack. But no matter how hard little sister tried, Nan Gongfei could easily deflect it, while also reminding her to reduce her strength. Saying this, she personally demonstrated. As a result, with just one move, the match was decided. Little sister, full of unwillingness, suddenly asked, "What's your relationship with him? You're so powerful. Why would you stay with someone so lazy, who doesn't work hard, has a terrible personality, and is ugly?" Hearing this, Nan Gongfei immediately retorted, "He's not ugly." Then a thunderous power rose from her palms, saying, "Talking nonsense will get you punished." With that, a huge sword shadow attacked little sister. At the critical moment, I arrived in time and blocked this fatal blow for little sister. Afterwards, I questioned Nan Gongfei sharply about what she was doing. Nan Gongfei said, "This person said you were ugly." But I didn't care, saying, "So what, are you bullying her?" This instantly brought a trace of anger to Nan Gongfei's face. She said, "What is she to you? Why are you protecting her?" Before I could speak, little sister answered first, "I don't need his help." With that, she ran off angrily. At this time, Nan Gongfei asked again, "Who is this person?" She clearly did wrong first. "Why are you still helping her?" I directly told her that girl was my sister. Nan Gongfei said incredulously, "Your sister?" This left me speechless. What else could she be if not my sister? Hearing this, Nan Gongfei was stunned on the spot. I messed up. I messed everything up. Just like that, Nan Gongfei began wandering around Huashan in a dazed state. Although I didn't know what happened, she kept repeating, "Messed up." Time came to evening. After I returned to my room, I found Wei Shu'er had been waiting for a long time. I said, "Why are you alone?" Wei Shu'er wasn't clear on the situation either. She only knew Nan Gongfei hadn't returned all day. Then I asked when her grandfather would return, but Wei Shu'er still didn't know. Seeing the situation getting worse and worse, I immediately made a decision. The next day, I brought Wu Yan to the marketplace, but what I didn't expect was, the marketplace that sold even magic beast fur and bones didn't have magic stones. Magic stones were like the hearts of magic beasts, but the moment they dropped, they were no different from useless stones. But for me, with the 1,000 absorption technique, they had some use. Because I could still preserve my life, this must be related to the 1,000 absorption technique, and there was still something inside my body. To confirm this, I wanted to find magic stones to try absorbing once. If I couldn't buy them, would I have to hunt the surrounding magic beasts? Wu Yan rejected my idea, because recently magic beasts in the vicinity were rapidly decreasing. Although it wasn't clear what happened, with Wu Yan's intelligence, this trip wasn't in vain. I said, "In that case, let's go back today." Jouer must have prepared a delicious dinner for us. But when we returned, Wu Yan and I observed for a long time but couldn't figure out what this thing was. Wei Shu'er said proudly, "It's grilled fish, please young master have a taste." Just like that, having seen enough to be full, we directly fled the room. Then I told Wu Yan to go back first, I had something to do. After successfully getting rid of Wu Yan, I came to a dense forest. But I discovered Nangong Fei was patiently instructing little sister in swordplay. They were fighting to the death yesterday, now how could they act like nothing happened? Little sister raised her sword and said, I was angry at you, not at sister. But sister not only wasn't angry, she even took the initiative to apologize to me. Hearing this, I let out a long sigh. Women's hearts really were unfathomable. Then I waved my hand and left this place. Then Nangong Fei suggested, it's getting late, let's go back together. Hearing this, little sister fell silent. Nangong Fei didn't know what she was thinking either. At this time I said, if we don't hurry back, Wei Shuer might die. Hearing this, Nangong Fei had to leave first. Only little sister remained alone in place, looking at her right hand full of scars. She suddenly recalled childhood scenes. Brother suddenly changed into a different person. He didn't want her following him, didn't want her calling him brother. He told her it would be best if she just shut up and lived quietly. Thinking of this, she swung the long sword in her hand again. Could it be because of her? This year's plum blossoms must bloom too. The next day, little sister bought a skewer of grilled meat at the marketplace. This made a child nearby drool. Little sister opened her mouth to eat. If it was good, she planned to bring some back for her master. Previously, when bringing food to her master, she discovered her master was now too ill to eat. Thinking of this, little sister didn't want to eat anymore. In the end, she still gave the meat skewer to the child, then ran wildly up the mountain. I want to stay with master forever. There were many things she wanted to tell master about the match with sister Nangong Fei, learning to listen to others' advice for the first time, and also Chu Yangtian. Thinking of this, she was suddenly knocked down by someone. It turned out someone had launched a surprise attack on her. Fortunately, Nangong Fei appeared in time to save her. The attacking man smiled. Where did such beauties come from? And there are two of them. Little sister came to her senses and directly asked his name. The man called himself Yishuedi and advised them to surrender obediently, otherwise it would be bad if their faces got hurt. Hearing this, little sister immediately drew her sword ready to fight. Nangong Fei stopped her. Wake up. You can't help it all right now. I'll hold him off here. You hurry back and notify everyone. Seeing the situation, Yishuedi said lecherously, Beauty, you better think carefully. But little sister was still somewhat worried. But after Nangong Fei said run again, she charged forward with thunderous momentum. At the same time, Wei Shuer looked at me daydreaming and asked, what are you thinking about? I said I wasn't thinking about anything, just walking around. Wei Shuer suggested coming along, but I refused because the divine physician's location couldn't be known by more people, so I could only propose buying her meat skewers as a condition. As expected, Wei Shuer immediately urged me to go and come back quickly, while also reminding me she liked the ones with lots of meat. Just like that, after avoiding Wei Shuer, Elder Shen complained, you're so ugly. Why do Nangong Fei and Wei Shuer like sticking to you so much? I retorted directly, speaking of looks, you're not much better. While bickering, I suddenly noticed little sister rushing over. Little sister threw herself at me saying, brother, this is bad. Sister Nangong Fei is in danger. Hearing this, my eyes immediately turned ice cold. And on the other side, the battle between Nangong Fei and Yishuedi had also entered its climax. At this time, Yishuedi suddenly remembered he came to find the divine physician. What was he doing entangled with her now? So he increased his strength again, wanting to finish quickly. After several more rounds of fighting, Nangong Fei clearly fell into a disadvantage, so she had to use her ultimate move in a desperate gamble. And Yishuedi recognized this at a glance as the Nangong family's Emperor Sword formation. This was the first time seeing it since the Great War, but this girl's execution was still too weak and also very slow, so he just slightly moved aside and easily dodged it. But soon he realized something was wrong. It turned out the next strike was the real move. But even so, Yishuedi still blocked it. Yishuedi was very puzzled in his heart. What was Huashan hiding? Why had both the Qiu family and Nangong family come to Huashan? But now wasn't the time to think about these things. He said, Beauty, your internal energy seems almost gone. I've already sealed your acupoints. Just stay here obediently. When I'm done, I'll come back and take good care of you. With that, he raised his blade and left, preparing to split open the barrier. Nangong Fei was very unwilling. If she was captured, she would only become a plaything, and she would definitely never see Qiu Yangtian again. Would she have to return to that world full of sin? But just as she was about to forcibly unseal her acupoints, a voice suddenly stopped her. She looked in the direction of the voice and discovered a familiar figure. I said, you wouldn't listen even if I told you to run, so just stay here. Leave the rest to me. Because in the war of the past life, Nangong Fei died to save me. At that time, I couldn't understand her decision at all, but at this moment, I finally understood. After a life full of regret ended, in another world, there probably wouldn't be anyone to greet me. I could only wait for the ending in unforgivable sins, but I didn't know if it was fate or chance. I had a second opportunity. This suddenly gave me a hope I didn't know if I should have. Perhaps in this life I could make up for all the regrets. But what if this life wasn't an opportunity, but entering hell again? Was it another punishment for my sins? But no matter what, I absolutely couldn't let the same thing happen twice. With this thought, red and black energy began to gather in my body. In an instant, my body was wrapped in violent flames. And on the other side, Yishuedi was still struggling to break the barrier, but just as he was about to succeed, he suddenly felt a chill. When he turned to look, he saw a man already arriving before him with fierce momentum. He wanted to dodge, but it was too late. The next second, a heavy punch struck directly at his chest. The powerful force even produced a violent explosion. When the smoke cleared, based on the scene, Yishuedi Shuedi immediately determined this was the Qiu family's technique. He spat blood and smiled. I was planning to go meet you, didn't expect you'd come. But unexpectedly, your internal energy is so powerful, worthy of being that old bastard's son, but at most just a rising star's level. While he was distracted, I swung my fist again. The next second, I frantically pummeled his body. But this time, Yi Shuedi was prepared. Then he swung his large blade to force me back. He said, "You're quite interesting, but you're still far from catching up to your father." With that, he took an arrow step and launched a counterattack. During the intense exchange, Elder Shen's voice suddenly came. "Calm down. It'll be dangerous if you lose your rationality. Such surging killing intent will only create more trouble." Sure enough, just as I gathered my internal energy to attack again, my Dantian suddenly had a problem. This not only made me cough up blood, my body also fell uncontrollably downward. Seeing this, Yi Shuedi immediately swung his blade ready to deliver the fatal blow. At this time, a voice once again entered my mind, "Eat." As the words fell, my eyes instantly showed a trace of abnormality. Then my hand rested on Yi Shuedi's blade. Then I used the momentum to attack him again. Seeing this scene, Yi Shuedi hastily swung his blade in response, but the result was, he cut through empty air. This made him doubt himself. Was he really a rising star? There was no one like this in the Night Palace. While distracted, I once again seized the opportunity to reach his front. The next second, I used all my strength to strike his abdomen. At the same time, violent flames directly penetrated his body. Seeing the outcome was decided, but my eyes remained sharp. After defeating Yi Shuedi, my fists kept falling on his corpse. Seeing this scene, Nan Gongfei was about to stop me, but the next second a nauseating stench came. This was the first time smelling such a strong odor. The enemy was clearly already dead, why wasn't he stopping? No, if even Qiu Yangtian becomes like this. Thinking this, she slowly stood up, then hugged Qiu Yangtian from behind saying, "That's enough, you can stop now, he's already dead." Hearing this, I immediately stopped what I was doing. My pupils also returned from purple to normal. Then I collapsed into Nan Gongfei's arms. At the same time, at the Night Palace branch, the branch leader's prolonged absence made everyone worried. But the group didn't plan to act on their own, but followed the plan to wait for the branch leader to return, then attack Huashan together. Just then, an old man's figure suddenly appeared before everyone. The person was none other than Swordmaster Wei Xiaojun, who said, "So you're the ones who want to harm Huashan's children." The black-clothed person, who didn't understand the situation, threatened with his sword. "If you don't want your neck twisted, state your name." However, as soon as he finished speaking, his entire body split in two. The Swordmaster said, "Although just a group of second-rate warriors, the display is quite impressive." Saying this, he stopped the sword from earlier at his fingertip. He said, "Swords are most beautiful when kept in their scabbards. Malice is the same. It should be kept in the heart." It turned out that night he found the Huashan sect leader. The Huashan sect leader entrusted him with something. According to long-term investigation, the sect leader found the reason for Huashan disciples' disappearances. It was a young man from the Night Palace named Yi Shuedi. So that's how the earlier scene came about. Now the black-clothed people all had sharp eyes. But just as they were about to act, with just a light flick of the Swordmaster's finger, all the black-clothed people met their end. The Swordmaster said, "Worthy of being evil sect people, truly foolish." And on the other side, I finally woke from unconsciousness. And what met my eyes was the divine physician giving me acupuncture. The divine physician said I had been unconscious for 2 days and reminded me not to move. Hearing this, I was astonished. I actually slept that long, but smoke was coming from my mouth. Had I already reached the realm of ascension? The divine physician said, "That's from burning sun moon fungus. You still have the heart to joke, which means your body has recovered." Saying this, he removed the needles from my body one by one. The divine physician said, "I told you before not to easily condense your qi. If you abuse it, you might die. But this time, although you used a large amount of internal energy, that qi was surprisingly calm." However, I didn't care about this at all. What I really cared about was Nan Gongfei and my sister's situation. The divine physician said, "No need to worry, they've already fully recovered." The scene shifted after everything returned to normal. I stood alone looking out the window deep in thought. In this life's first unwilling killing, and also, I clearly heard someone say, "Eat." There were still too many things to understand in this life. So now let me first confirm if my internal energy has calmed down. My bloodline was indeed still in a solidified state. But after all, this was a body in its growth period. Recovery was indeed fast. Just then, I suddenly thought of something. Wait, could this be demonic energy? At the same time, at Night Palace headquarters, a man asked who was responsible for the completely annihilated province of Branch. Learning it was Yi Shuedi, the man wondered. Although Yi Shuedi hadn't reached the transformation realm, he was already a mature supreme expert. He shouldn't have been easily killed. The subordinate said, "I'm not clear on the specific situation, but according to intelligence, it seems to have been done by a rising star hidden in the Huashan sect." Hearing this, the man opened his purple pupils. He said, "Immediately send Rakshasa to investigate." Although the plan encountered a hiccup, fortunately it's almost complete. A few days later, the swordmaster who was cleaning the courtyard was suddenly interrupted by a voice. The person was Wei Zhuer. She first threw aside her favorite steamed bun, then directly picked up a long sword and said, "Grandfather, I want to learn martial arts." In a certain late night of my past life, after seeing me arrive as promised, the heavenly demon immediately expressed his inner thoughts. "Sometimes I feel like you're looking at someone else through me. If it's that person deep in your heart, then the demon sword matriarch who died died for you, if she knew about this, she would surely regret her decision back then. But before I could respond, he suddenly changed the subject. If she dies by my hand in the future, will you still be able to remain as calm as you are now? Thoughts returned to reality. Facing the endless stairs, having just recovered from serious injuries, I couldn't help but complain. Just how much did these Huashan maniacs love stairs? Just then, I suddenly recalled my conversation with the Huashan sect leader a few days ago. The sect leader said, "I'm truly sorry for getting you involved in such matters. However, compared to these things, what I cared more about was whether the Flower Festival battle could proceed smoothly." And after learning from the sect leader that the Flower Festival battle was postponed for certain reasons, I guessed to actually postpone one of Huashan's few major events. Could it be because of the missing Huashan disciples? Just like that, as the meeting was about to end, the sect leader suddenly said, "Someone has been waiting for you for a long time, hurry and go see them." But when I arrived at the location the sect leader mentioned, I couldn't see that person anywhere. In my confusion, little sister was suddenly pushed out from behind the door. This was really too awkward. She could only steel herself and walk up to me. She asked, "Are you feeling better?" And after I said I didn't hear clearly, she raised her voice and said thank you, then fled the scene without looking back. But just as I was complaining about what was wrong with her, Nangong Fei suddenly appeared before me. She said, "It seems she was shy, too embarrassed to say thank you." Speechless, my gaze was suddenly drawn to her injured right arm, but thinking that all of this was a consequence I had caused, I awkwardly expressed my gratitude to her. Hearing this, Nangong Fei's face instantly turned bright red. Then she fled the scene without looking back. Thinking of this, I finally arrived at the Sword Matriarch's residence. But just as I was catching my breath, Zhu Ji's figure suddenly appeared before me. This made my expression immediately become serious. Why would he appear here? Could he be here to check on the Sword Matriarch's condition on behalf of the Divine Physician? Although I didn't know what conspiracy might be involved, I had to remain vigilant at all times now. Soon after meeting the Sword Matriarch, she first expressed her gratitude. "I heard that because of Huashan, you were involved in some unpleasant matters, and you also saved Linghua. I didn't expect you to be such a reliable brother." However, looking at the Sword Matriarch's kind and amiable appearance, cold sweat inadvertently formed on my forehead, because I actually sensed demonic energy from her, and it was demonic energy as pure as the heavenly demons. Why would she have such a thing on her? Had she already met the heavenly demon? Demonic energy couldn't be resisted just through endurance. She endured that thing for so long. But before I could finish thinking, the Sword Matriarch suddenly gently placed her hand on the back of mine. But the next second, I sensed something was wrong. Then I hastily withdrew my hand in panic. The 1,000 absorption technique could actually absorb the demonic energy inside a person's body. In my shock, the Divine Physician's voice suddenly reached my ears. "What are you doing?" At the same time, Qiu Linghua was training hard somewhere on Huashan, and thinking about her earlier escape behavior, she instantly fell into self-blame. This shouldn't be what a martial artist should look like according to Master. At that time, she not only abandoned a martial artist's pride and sense of responsibility, but even discarded the most basic righteousness. Just then, a voice suddenly interrupted her thoughts. "Master Qiu, don't push yourself too hard. Moisten your throat first before continuing." Looking at Huashan's youngest plum blossom sword master in history, Yingfeng, Qiu Linghua's heart was filled with mixed feelings. If it were him, he probably wouldn't have fled like she did. Thinking this, she fell into memories again. If it weren't for your brother, this matter would have truly become troublesome. Although I knew he had a complex aura about him, even the Nangong family's child couldn't handle. Your brother actually defeated a demon person. Qiu Linghua didn't understand why that lazy person could walk so fast on the path of martial arts. If she kept acting spoiled around Master, how could she ever amount to anything? Thinking this, she immediately perked up, after refusing Yingfeng's kindness, as she rushed to where Master was. She also recalled words Master had once said: "No matter what kind of martial path you walk, whether it's pain or sorrow, jealousy or resentment, until you achieve something, on the day when Master can see it, we should smile together." Time came to evening. She finally arrived at Master's residence, but before she could open the door, she heard her brother's voice from inside. And at this moment inside the room, to treat the Sword Matriarch, Chu Yangtian was having a heated argument with the Divine Physician. And after hearing that her brother had a way to cure the Sword Matriarch, Qiu Linghua directly rushed in. "Can you really cure Master?" Although I wasn't completely certain either. But as long as I could get the Divine Physician's permission, I was willing to try treating the Sword Matriarch's illness. Having said this, I honestly explained the treatment method to everyone. The Qiu family's technique could use heat to disperse turbid auro, and the disease consuming the Sword Matriarch's lifespan was actually caused by some kind of auro. Because when I made contact with the Sword Matriarch's palm earlier, I sensed that auro, and my 9-flame firewheel technique dispersed it. However, although I said this, I was very clear in my heart. This matter actually had nothing to do with the 9-flame firewheel technique. It was all the 1,000 absorption techniques doing. But to get the Sword Matriarch to cooperate with treatment, I could only change to a way of speaking that everyone would believe. Otherwise, the Sword Matriarch would definitely die from being unable to bear that demonic energy. Even if she lived, she could only live in hiding like in my past life. Although I wasn't sure if I should save the Sword Matriarch and twist the future. But faced with my sister's believing pleas, I could at least be certain of one thing. Thinking this, I immediately begged the divine physician, "Please allow me to conduct the treatment." However, the divine physician was full of doubts about this. He said, "The 9-flame fire wheel technique itself isn't a technique for saving people. If this causes the sword matriarch to die on the spot, can you bear the consequences of failure? So stop talking big, you're just gambling with the patient's life." However, just as I was about to say something, the sword matriarch suddenly spoke first. "I can't stand continuing like this anyway. Why not let this child try?" And just as he said, I did indeed feel some change at that time. So I think it's completely worth trying. It doesn't matter even if it fails, because I don't have much time left anyway. With things at this point, the divine physician could only agree to my request in the end. Looking at these hands that had taken countless lives in my past life, I couldn't help but smile bitterly inside. I never imagined these hands could now save people. Besides that, I also felt a kind of heaviness for the first time. Could this be the sense of responsibility the divine physician spoke of? Thinking this, I immediately gathered all my internal energy to both hands, then pressed them on the sword matriarch's back. What I didn't expect was, the sword matriarch's body was actually bearing so much demonic energy. This made me doubt myself. Could I really withstand absorbing all of this? But thinking more carefully, my eyes instantly filled with determination again. That's right, this was the karmic retribution I should bear. So I immediately activated the 1,000 absorption technique. As the demonic energy wrapped around the sword matriarch slowly decreased, she opened her eyes and gradually drew the long sword in her hand. But just then, a voice suddenly entered my mind. This time seems a bit different. It's simply too delicious. However, as soon as the words fell, I immediately lost consciousness. The scene shifted under the guidance of Wei Xuer from the past life. Wei Xuer was practicing swordplay with decent form. Wei Xuer from the past life said with relief, compared to the first time, "This is much better." It turned out that after she told grandfather she wanted to learn martial arts, she received a thorough scolding from him. But just as she was feeling sad, a voice suddenly sounded in her ear. "I'll teach you swordplay." Now getting her wish fulfilled, Wei Xuer was very happy. "Although I'm afraid sister will take over my body, compared to grandfather, I still like you more." Just then, grandfather's angry rebuke suddenly came. "Didn't I tell you not to touch swords?" Seeing this, Wei Xuer hastily hid the sword behind her back and said, "Just this once." At the same time, I finally woke up, but my body still had an uncomfortable feeling. It seemed that demonic energy had been completely absorbed. Then after discovering the room was empty, I immediately became concerned about the sword matriarch's physical condition. But when I saw the scene outside, I immediately showed a look of surprise. I saw the sword matriarch's figure actually dancing gracefully in the air, and Qiu Linghua on the ground shed tears of joy at this sight. As the sword matriarch stomped hard and broke through the clouds, I opened my eyes wide in disbelief again. Had she been completely reborn? But thinking about it carefully, something seemed off. She should have recovered to her original state. Soon, after the sword matriarch landed, Qiu Linghua immediately threw herself into her arms, and the sword matriarch also expressed gratitude to me on the spot. "This is all thanks to you." However, just as I was feeling embarrassed, a figure suddenly swept past me and removed the silver needle stuck in my head. "I didn't expect you to actually clear away all the turbid qi, truly miraculous. It seems I must thoroughly examine what that technique is all about." Having said this, he began chasing after me. Seeing this scene, the sword matriarch showed a gentle smile. After this incident, Nangang Fei suddenly questioned, "Where did you sleep last night?" This made me choke. Why did it sound like a lawful wife questioning me? I immediately evaded. "I stayed up all night training yesterday. I was too tired, so I fell asleep on the spot." Hearing this, not only did Nangang Fei not calm down, she angrily slapped the table. She said, "Then you should have said something. Not coming back so late really makes people worry." Having said this, she left this place. Seeing this situation, I also breathed a sigh of relief. I thought I was really going to die here. Just then, Wei Xuer suddenly burst into tears. But when I learned it was because the swordmaster wouldn't let her learn martial arts, I immediately covered her mouth. This was simply annoying to death. My head was already killing me. The boiling demonic energy in my body was also a problem. Elder Shen not appearing all this time was making me anxious too. Thinking this, inspiration suddenly struck. The voice I heard when absorbing the demonic energy. Could it be related to Elder Shen? Elder Shen seemed to have said before that something was sleeping inside my body. Could he have been eaten by that thing? Thinking this, a voice suddenly interrupted my thoughts. After seeing it was little sister. I reproached, "It's so tiring coming from over there. Why do you keep coming all the time?" But what surprised me was, this time little sister not only didn't talk back, she also expressed gratitude for curing the sword matriarch. Then I continued eating with a disgusted look, coming all this way just to say this. Little sister turned her head to the side and said, "Master, listen to what brother is saying." Having said this, the sword matriarch appeared at the door and said, "A life-saving grace can't be repaid with just a thank you." Seeing this scene, I said in surprise, "You look very healthy. Have you completely recovered?" The sword matriarch smiled slightly and changed the subject. "I came here for no other reason than to repay you. If you have any requests, just say it, even if you want my life." I said in surprise, "Do you know what I'm going to say?" Yet you agreed just like that. Hearing this, the sword matriarch immediately grasped my hand. She said, I feel that no matter what request you make, it won't bring harm to others. At this point, I suddenly recalled a scene from my past life. How could she dare to be so certain? How could she trust someone who once burned Huashan to ashes? Although failing to protect little sister wasn't their fault, but at that time I really needed an object to vent my anger on. Seeing I hadn't spoken for a long time, the sword matriarch had to let it go. If you can't think of anything now, it's fine to say it later, but I have a question to ask you. But before asking, she asked Wei Zhuer and Qiu Linghua to leave. After brewing for a moment, the sword matriarch said, Do you still remember matters concerning your mother's last moments? Linghua was too young at the time, so has no memory. The clan side also kept it tightly concealed. So can you tell me everything you know? Hearing this, I instantly fell into memories. It was a snowy evening. After instructing me to take good care of Linghua, a crack-emitting red light opened before Mother. As the crack continued to expand, after saying sorry, Mother's figure completely disappeared into the crack, and faced with my hysterical calls, Father instead coldly told me to put away my tears. He also showed me something. He said, This is the reason for the QIU family's existence and ours. This is my karma, and you will inherit it in the future. Thinking of this, I said with a touch of sadness, I'm afraid I can't tell you this. Even if you continue asking, my answer will be the same. Seeing the situation, the sword matriarch asked no more. As she was leaving, she patted my head and said, That matter must have been very painful for you. Saying this, she suddenly changed the subject. When do you plan to go home? I said, Since Linghua said she doesn't plan to go back, we'll prepare to return these next few days. Hearing this, the sword matriarch immediately called little sister. She asked, Do you really not plan to go home? And after learning little sister chose not to return because she was worried about her. The sword matriarch made a shocking decision on the spot. In that case, then I'll accompany you all to the Qiu family. In my shock, I hastily ran to the door to stop her. Really? Aren't you supposed to protect Huashan? And little sister already said she doesn't want to go back. The sword matriarch responded with a smile. How could I call it protecting? During this time, I've been the one being cared for. Qiu Linghua chimed in, Wherever master goes, I'll go. Besides, you came to bring me back. Just then, Nan Gongfei suddenly appeared before everyone. Seeing this, the sword matriarch stepped forward and said, You must be the child who saved Linghua. Linghua has said many things about you, said there's a beautiful sister who often helps her. Whenever I hear these things, I'm very grateful to you. I heard you're Yang Tian's fiancé. You're both very kind-hearted. I believe you'll get along very well. Hearing this, I was speechless to the extreme, but Nan Gongfei's face showed a hint of blush. At this time, Wei Zhuer suddenly shifted her attention to midair, but after learning that Wei Zhuer from the past life wanted to continue teaching her swordplay, she excitedly left this place. At this time, Qiu Linghua suggested to the sword matriarch, the flower festival battle is about to be held. Since master is going together, how about waiting until after the flower festival battle? And after seeking my agreement, the sword matriarch also readily agreed. But then she said with a serious face, Since the flower festival battle is about to start, I think it's time to teach you again. But before that, you need to warm up. At this point, she suddenly said to me, Yang Tian, why don't you have a match with her? Just like that, little sister and I came to an open area. And as the match began, an unwanted scene also surfaced in Qiu Linghua's mind. Can't you tell me even now, Mother hasn't come back for several days. Everyone doesn't care about this matter at all. Doesn't brother worry either. Hearing this, I impatiently overturned the table. Why do you keep asking me the same question? It's annoying to death. Mother is dead. Our mother is already dead. Is this enough? Don't mention mother anymore. Otherwise, I'll treat you as if I don't have you as a sister. After this thought, Qiu Linghua involuntarily swung the long sword in her hand. This was the beginning of her resentment toward her brother, and also the reason she never wanted to leave Huashan, because only here could she forget mother and her hateful brother. Now, although she used all her strength, she ultimately lost the match. Looking at my departing back, she suddenly called out to me. She said, Brother, can we return to how we were before? This made me fall silent for a moment. I said, What are you talking about? It's already too late. Having said this, I left this place without looking back, leaving only Qiu Linghua standing there quietly alone. He didn't seem to deny it either. Time came to evening. Wu Yan was practicing swordplay somewhere on Huashan. In the fierceness, his sword moves carried a few parts regret and self-blame. He thought, I know young master deliberately avoids me when acting. I also know young master has reached a realm where he doesn't need me, but this doesn't mean my responsibility decreases, unless I die. Otherwise, young master cannot be injured. But what was I doing when young master was desperately protecting others? With this self-questioning mentality, he swung one sword with all his anger and strength. In an instant, the water surface exploded into a huge water curtain. Incompetent person, I clearly learned swordplay to protect others. But in the end, I couldn't protect anything. In self-blame, a voice suddenly reached his ears. But when he looked in the direction of the sound, the scene before him shocked him greatly. Isn't this attendant Wei? She doesn't look like she's talking to herself. Who is she chatting with? Isn't she just an attendant who only loves eating steamed bun? But why does every move show the bearing of a great family? Could she have been secretly practicing swordplay? Thinking this, he couldn't help but grip the long sword in his hand tighter. What am I thinking? Right now, the most important thing is to become more proficient on the path ahead. This is the mission I, as a guard, need to complete. Just then, a voice suddenly broke his thoughts. Is this enough? It was Wei Zhuer who had appeared behind him at some point. In his shock, Wei Zhuer gently pointed her finger at his chest. In an instant, golden internal energy suddenly flashed, looking at Weion's confused expression. Wei Shuer said, practicing swordplay can't be too rigid, occasionally you need to break through. Just like that, after some unknown time had passed. Coming back to his senses, Weion was about to ask something, but found Wei Shuer had already disappeared. At the same time, due to the flower festival battle about to commence, the night market at the foot of Huashan was especially lively. Looking at the plum blossoms constantly rising in the sky, I couldn't help but complain. I didn't expect to have to stay here until the flower festival battle starts, but since it's already decided, might as well rest well for a few more days. To this, Nan Gongfei first nodded, then leaned on my shoulder and fell asleep. At this moment in a room somewhere on Huashan, the divine physician talking with the swordmaster showed a troubled expression. He said, I know what you want, but do you think I can do it? Although people call me a divine physician, I'm not really a god. The swordmaster naturally understood this. He said, but is there really no way? The divine physician let out a long sigh. He said, casually changing a person's aura is already extremely difficult, let alone that special child. Everyone has a vessel inside their body, but that child's vessel is very strange. Her vessel is vast and deep, as if empty of everything. During this time, it's natural for her sense of presence to become thin. But compared to these things, what the swordmaster cared more about was another matter. That is, no matter what, he must eliminate her determination to practice swordplay. Let her properly be an ordinary child. However, even so, the divine physician still appeared very troubled. The resources and time this would require would be enough to uproot an entire clan. But the swordmaster didn't care about this at all. He said, whatever preparation is needed, just say it. Even the 100 ultimate demon stones your grandson needs most, I'll find a way to get them. Hearing this, the divine physician asked in shock, did you hear these things from Dahua? The swordmaster didn't respond directly, but said, let's fight together for the children. Seeing this, the divine physician asked in confusion, why can't your granddaughter learn swordplay? In these dangerous times, learning swordplay isn't a bad thing, right? After a moment of silence, the swordmaster finally revealed the truth. For Jouer, it's not a gift, but a curse. Although doing small tasks or heavy work like ordinary people won't cause any symptoms, but when using martial force that combines instinct and reason, the fire of lifespan will ignite. Simply put, the more she uses her power, the thinner her life force becomes. Hearing this, cold sweat couldn't help but form on the divine physician's forehead. This is like the bloodline of the demonic cult. At this point, he made another suggestion. You should go to the Tailing, Zhang family, where the current martial alliance leader is. There's a demon sealing stone there. You can use its power to close her Dantian. This is probably the only way now. But the divine physician was somewhat worried, because what the alliance leader would be doing is making her unable to practice martial arts for life. But if in the future she sees herself whose wings were clipped before she could even take flight, she might resent the alliance leader forever. Would the alliance leader be okay with this? At the same time, Nanggong Fei, who had woken up, suddenly pointed her finger ahead, but before I could figure out why, she ran off. In my confusion, a hairpin on a street stall suddenly caught my attention. Moments later, Wei Shuer finally returned to the residence. Just then, a voice suddenly startled her. Where have you been running off to all day? I was planning to go to the market together. Hearing this, Wei Shuer hastily lowered her head to apologize, but then she saw me passing her the hairpin, and this was precisely the butterfly hairpin I had seen earlier. I said, considering you work diligently, I'm giving you this hairpin. Saying this, I personally put the hairpin on her head. I said, but if you don't like it, it's fine to take it off. It's not anything expensive anyway. Before I finished speaking, Wei Shuer suddenly kissed me. She said, young master, thank you. This day, to watch the opening ceremony of the flower festival battle, we got up very early. But compared to Nanggong Fei's in my half-asleep state, Wei Shuer was full of energy. But soon she sensed something was wrong. She asked, young master, are you unwell? Why doesn't your complexion look good? This made me recall last night's kiss scene. That definitely wasn't real. It was an illusion. Besides, even if it was real, I'm not a child anymore. Why should I care about such things? Moments later, we finally arrived at the destination, and people were full of anticipation for this flower festival battle. The sword dragon should participate this time, right? It seems he didn't participate last year. Who won last year? Just then, a voice suddenly came. It should have been Yinghao. The speaker was Yingfeng. Why would he appear here? Shouldn't he be busy preparing for the flower festival battle? Just then, Yingfeng also discovered my presence, so he hastily came forward and asked, is young Master Chu also here to watch the flower festival battle? I said, yes, it should be the busiest time now. Is it really okay for you to be here? Before Yingfeng could respond, complaints came from not far away. It's about to start. Where has everyone run off to? This made Yingfeng immediately feel awkward. Then he said, there's still a while before the opening. Would you like me to show everyone the arena? Just like that, under Yingfeng's guidance, we came to the flower festival battle arena. At this time, Yingfeng suddenly said, by the way, Master Chu Linghua will also participate in this flower festival battle. This made me worried. Who would her opponent be? I hope she wouldn't be eliminated. Seeing I hadn't responded for a long time, Yingfeng continued, Master Chu Linghua's opponent is me. Hearing this, I was immediately shocked. this was simply the worst situation. How could Qiu Linghua possibly be his match? Who wrote the matchup chart? Wasn't this deliberately arranged by someone? Just then, a voice rang out. The Flower Festival battle is about to begin. Please, sect leader, come to the stage for the opening speech. But compared to everyone's anticipation, I showed a disdainful expression. I didn't know what was so important about this annual competition, having to come to such a high place on such a hot day. Thinking this, a large patch of plum blossoms suddenly floated past everyone as a powerful aura descended on the arena. The next second, the Huashan sect leader appeared before everyone. He said, "Thank you all very much for being willing to watch over our Huashan children, and also thank you for always protecting Huashan. I now officially announce that the first round of the Huashan Flower Festival battle begins now." As the words fell, accompanied by deafening cheers, the Flower Festival battle finally kicked off. At the same time, two male disciples were giving advice backstage to Qiu Linghua, who was about to enter. After hearing Junior Sister's heartfelt thanks, the two instantly beamed with joy. They said, "Junior Sister Qiu, I have another ultimate killing technique here. Let me demonstrate it for you now." Just then, a voice suddenly called out Qiu Linghua's name. The two said through gritted teeth, "Where did this brat come from, daring to call Junior Sister by her full name?" To this, I smiled wickedly. "I'm her brother." After easily dealing with the two, I immediately stated my purpose for coming here. "I heard your opponent is Sword Dragon. If this was the Sword Matriarch's decision, I advise you to voluntarily withdraw. After all, he's Huashan's third-generation strongest disciple. The outcome is all too obvious." But when I heard this was Little Sister's own decision, in my shock, Little Sister continued, "Thank you for worrying about me, but I think if I continue to avoid battle, I've already owed everyone too much. I don't care about the outcome of this match, because this is the first time I'm not avoiding battle." At this moment on the arena, as another match ended, the host came on stage to announce the next match. The gold camp sent out the one called Huashan's #1 rising star, Sword Dragon Yingfeng. The silver camp sent out the Sword Matriarch's direct disciple, Qiu Linghua. I now announce the match officially begins. After Little Sister stepped onto the Flower Festival battle arena, she pondered a very troubling question. When exactly did I start disliking Brother? Was it that time Brother flew into a rage and overturned the table? But at first I was just angry at Brother, then became afraid of his angry appearance, thus continuously generating resentment, even beginning to hate the entire world. But after spending this time with Brother, she discovered that perhaps all of this wasn't trauma Brother left her, but rather weakness she had always shown. So she made up her mind, even if she didn't like the family and Brother, this time she wouldn't run away. Now, as the host announced the match's start, both sides instantly engaged in fierce battle, and the powerful strength Yingfeng displayed far exceeded Qiu Linghua's expectations. Worthy of being Huashan's Sword Dragon, his strength really couldn't be underestimated. Just like that, after several more rounds of fighting, although Qiu Linghua's swordplay was gorgeous and terrifyingly powerful, the fixed moves still let Yingfeng see through the flaws. After dodging to the side of one sword, he should have been able to win in one stroke, but he only knocked Qiu Linghua back several meters. He said, "Master Qiu, I'm very happy to see you're no longer confused. You must still have a trump card, so please display it fully in this Flower Festival battle." Hearing this, Little Sister immediately used her full power. Between the flashing sword lights, plum blossoms even began to fall. Seeing this scene, I showed a relieved smile. It seems she's grown quite a bit during this time. Like an unbridled wild horse, having seen what I wanted to see, that was enough. Just as she said, victory or defeat didn't matter. Thinking this, I left this place on the pretext of having urgent matters. Before long, I finally arrived at a hidden canyon. Right now, everyone's attention is on the Flower Festival battle. I need to take this chance to confirm. I must personally see the Night Palace branch Huashan discovered before the Martial Alliance interferes. After successfully entering the cave, traces of fighting inside immediately caught my attention. Did the remnants fight with the Huashan sect, but didn't Huashan only clean up their corpses? Why would those Night Palace people stay here? In my thoughts, a familiar demonic energy suddenly came. This immediately confirmed I hadn't found the wrong place. Based on past life experience, there was a secret chamber hidden here, and that secret chamber must be in a place where that chi could be very clearly sensed. Fortunately, hard work paid off. Through constant tapping, I finally found the hidden switch on the stone chair, and after seeing the situation inside the secret chamber clearly, I immediately broke out in a cold sweat, because besides the eerie sea of blood here, there were also many corpses that appeared to be Huashan martial artists. This made me wonder, why would those people do such cruel things? Thinking this, I suddenly shifted my gaze to the flower blooming in the center of the sea of blood. Could it be because of it? But what exactly is this thing? But soon I discovered something else was wrong. Then I pulled out a corpse lying in the sea of blood. There was actually a Martial Alliance disciple too, and it looked like he had just died. I immediately understood the Martial Alliance didn't not come to the Flower Festival battle, but they were all killed. But before I could finish thinking, a hidden weapon suddenly attacked from behind, but fortunately I reacted quickly and dodged this fatal blow with a sidestep. At this time, a voice rang out. "Not bad, it seems Yishuedi didn't lose unjustly. Slender build, red Taoist robe, 9-flame fire wheel technique. So, you must be Qiu Yangtian. You're one of my targets anyway, this saves me quite a bit of trouble." Hearing this, I immediately prepared for battle. I didn't expect the intelligence to spread so quickly. As tensions rose, the man in black suddenly made a suggestion. I didn't want to capture you, but why don't you just come with me obediently? I said, ridiculous, your sneak attack just now was clearly meant to kill me, wasn't it? Seeing his scheme exposed, the man in black immediately lost his patience. After introducing himself as Rakshasa, he charged at me with his sword. This made me wonder, why would he reveal his name? As I pondered, Rakshasa, who had already reached me, said, at least you should know who's killing you. Seeing this, I immediately deployed the 9 flame fire dragon technique to counter, but the quick reacting Rakshasa simply flashed behind me with one move. Seeing the situation, I looked troubled. If I wanted to escape, the entrance was too far away, and fighting head-on would put me at a disadvantage. After dodging several more attacks with full concentration, Rakshasa couldn't help but let out a mocking laugh. I can't believe Yishwedi died at the hands of a coward like you, what a waste. With that, he seized the opportunity and sent me flying with one strike. However, just as I fell into despair, a familiar voice suddenly rang out in my mind. Really now? I just woke up and you're already causing trouble. Get up, let's do this again. I recognized it as Elder Shen, and at the same time, Rakshasa began slowly approaching me. He said, this ends here. Being able to dodge my attacks already makes you a monster-level opponent. However, just as he was about to strike, as a sword light flashed, a massive curtain of blood suddenly rose from the ground. Shocked, a voice also suddenly reached Rakshasa's ears. I said, what did you just say? That one should know who he is dying to. Then please remember my name is Shenjie. Facing such overwhelming pressure, Rakshasa was instantly panicked. He said, you're a swordsman? Wasn't it said that Qiu Yangtian only knew martial arts? Was the intelligence wrong? As he pondered, a sword light instantly swept past his head, and this strike perfectly revealed his true appearance. This made Rakshasa, who had lost face, instantly lose his rationality. He then launched a frenzied attack. Seeing this, Elder Shen's voice rang in my mind again. Although each move is deadly, once a person is consumed by anger, their heart becomes chaotic, and that anxiety will manifest in their sword. So a true master, even without using excessive internal force like you, can still shake heaven and earth. As his words fell, after involuntarily blocking one of Rakshasa's strikes, the next second, countless dazzling plum blossoms bloomed where the two swords met. As the plum blossoms gradually engulfed Rakshasa, I showed an expression of disbelief. Just then, Elder Shen's figure slowly manifested around me. He said, the same applies to martial arts. Don't you understand this? Someone who has reversed through time. After Elder Shen learned of my identity as a reborn person, he began recounting his experiences while controlling my body. It turned out he had been absorbed by some kind of energy within my body, and because of this, he had inadvertently learned many things about me. Although there were many questions he wanted to clarify, he knew clearly in his heart the most important thing right now was to concentrate on dealing with Rakshasa. At this moment, Rakshasa, who had been repelled again, was both surprised and excited. He said, you should have done this from the start, it would have been much more interesting. With that, he launched a new round of attacks with his dual blades. At this moment, Elder Shen's voice rang out again. Do you know why Huashan disciples must cultivate strong bodies? It's to complete the vessel. Because once you can successfully complete the vessel, you can achieve maximum effect even with minimal internal force. If you use a sword, the effect will be even more obvious. Plum blossoms don't need to bloom all at once, they need to bloom together. Now I'll let you deeply experience this mystery. Just like that, with Elder Shen's help, I actually severed Rakshasa's arm with one sword strike. This caused the Berserk Rakshasa to immediately enter a frenzied attack mode. But unlike before, this time, although Elder Shen was controlling my body, he didn't use a trace of internal force. As I struggled to defend, Elder Shen suddenly spoke, you're being stubborn again. In your past life, you were just putting on airs. Without internal force, you're no different from a corpse, but everyone who uses demonic arts is like this. Elder Shen even knew this, I said. Why don't you help me defeat the guy in front of me first? However, Elder Shen asked, will you still be so self-righteous just because you have some internal force? After hearing a satisfactory answer, Elder Shen couldn't help but laugh heartily. He's already lost quite a bit of blood. Even you can defeat him now. Or do you want me to finish this for you? Hearing this, as I threw away my long sword, I began trying hard to recall what Elder Shen had just said. Don't rely on internal force, although I didn't know how much he had seen of my past life. From the moment I never left the demon palace and became a corpse, I knew clearly. Once a martial artist loses their rationality, death isn't far away. Thinking of this, I began infusing a bit of internal force into my left fist. Then, without hesitation, I struck Rakshasa's chest, and the result was no surprise. I actually achieved maximum effect with minimal internal force. Just like that, after easily finishing off Rakshasa, who had lost his fighting capacity, a sharp pain suddenly came from within my body. This made me feel something was wrong. It was all thanks to the 1000 absorption technique. Internal force swept through my entire body like a storm. Even relaxing slightly could cause me to fall unconscious. Just then, Elder Shen's voice rang out again. I just taught you so much, and you still can't hold on. Hearing this, I suddenly woke up as if from a dream. Then I began searching for the feeling of when Elder Shen had controlled me, adjusting my breathing, preventing the internal force from erupting, condensing the rampaging internal force to a single point, point, then slowly guiding it. Just like that, after accidentally opening my middle dantian, as a fierce flame internal force burst forth from within my body. The tremendous change within made me open my eyes wide in disbelief. Had I reached the peak? Although this was a common growth moment, it was difficult to experience these things in my past life, due to laziness and poor comprehension. I stupidly forced this layer open with demonic chi, and even considered it my own power. Just then, Elder Shen's voice suddenly interrupted my thoughts. How long are you planning to reminisce? The most important thing now is how to handle that flower. I couldn't help but wonder, why would they sacrifice countless martial artists' lives to nourish this flower? Especially since this flower emanated a sinister toxic aura. Was it brought out from the demon palace? Hearing this, Elder Shen unconsciously frowned. He said, it seems not everyone can sense this flower's aura. Hearing this, I tentatively asked, should we take this flower to Huashan sect first? Elder Shen said, don't. That would only cause more unnecessary trouble. And the current sect master would definitely plant this flower in the Plum Blossom Cave. At this point, Elder Shen suddenly said, why don't you just eat it and turn it into your power? Hearing this, I said in shock, are you joking? The power within is too complex and… Before I could finish, Elder Shen immediately interrupted, foolish boy. Don't use guilt and false righteousness as excuses for confusion. I believe you know best how to atone for those who sacrificed during this time. So what you can do now is improve your strength by any means necessary. So I carefully picked the snowflower. Elder Shen was right, didn't I already decide not to leave any regrets? Since I've already come this far, there's no need to feel confused anymore, so I didn't hesitate to eat the blood flower. However, as the blood flower slowly entered my body, the next second, a heart-wrenching pain swept through my entire body. Shocked, I also confirmed my thoughts. Internal energy, Dao Oro, and demonic Oro. One flower actually contains so many types of Oro, this definitely wasn't meant for ordinary martial artists to consume, so I immediately activated the 9 flame wheel technique. Watching the flame's color change, my expression froze. It actually broke through to 5-star. Just like that, after coming out of the cave, looking at the darkened sky, to avoid drawing attention, I unconsciously quickened my pace back. However, when I silently returned to my room, I found Nanggong Fei lying on the bed with sleepy eyes. Elder Shen said, it seems your relationship has progressed quite well while I was away. At this moment, Nanggong Fei said, why is there a smell of blood? Didn't you say you'd be right back? I quickly sniffed my sleeve. How did she smell it? I clearly evaporated the bloody smell with heat. As I wondered, Nanggong Fei said again, Linghua lost the flower festival battle, but she seemed very relaxed about it. That was the first time I saw her with that expression. However, before I could respond, Nanggong Fei immediately threw herself into my arms, after confirming the source of the bloody smell again. She slowly closed her eyes and said, I'll let today's matter go. Just let me hold you like this for a while. Elder Shen couldn't help but spit, saying, what a lecher. Meanwhile, 2 people from the Martial Arts Alliance finally found the cave. After seeing clearly the corpse lying on the ground, the leading man froze, but he quickly composed himself. You go back to the main team and report to the higher-ups. I'll make a separate report about the specific situation later. Just like that, after sending his companion away, the man carefully examined the corpse in front of him. That's right, this was Rakshasa's corpse. He must have received orders to retrieve Huashan's original liquid, but why would he turn into charcoal in a place like this? Then he shifted his gaze to the stone pile in the center of the blood sea. Who took the original liquid? Just then, looking at the dissipating smoke and residual heat traces, could it be young Master Qiu who killed Yashwedi? But why would the demonic chi on Rakshasa's body disappear without a trace? Thinking of this, he felt something was terribly wrong. If his thoughts were correct, he must immediately report this to the Black Knight Palace Master. The next day, I was practicing. As I released a 9 flame wheel technique strike, a massive explosion instantly sounded where it hit. Looking at the flame-filled chasm left on the ground, Elder Shen asked, can't such power make you happy? Seeing no response for a while, Elder Shen raised another question. What is the Heavenly Demon? Although you still have many other hidden memories, the memories about the Heavenly Demon are difficult to approach. So where did the Heavenly Demon come from? I couldn't help but recall scenes from my past life. A demon mirror gate suddenly appeared in the sky. Just as everyone was puzzled, a woman walked out with a cold expression on her face. She said, pleased to meet you all, I am the Heavenly Demon. With that, a terrifying power instantly swept across dozens of miles. However, just as Elder Shen marveled at this, I expressed my apology with guilt, saying, you must have seen what I did at Huashan, but why didn't you mention it at all? Hearing this, Elder Shen's eyes turned cold. Do you want me to lose my temper with you now? I understand it's because Huashan didn't protect your sister well, so I didn't hold it against you. So you need to look further ahead than before. Do you still remember what's most important for you to do now? While affirming this, I gathered another ball of flame with full concentration. Heavenly Demon, I will definitely stop you. The next morning, just after leaving, I encountered a familiar figure on the road. I said, Sword Empress, I heard your attendants are ready to depart. Let's go to the carriage together. Meanwhile, several Huashan disciples were there urging, Junior Sister Chu, make sure to eat well, don't forget us. Seeing this scene, I suddenly said, Sword Empress, You said before you'd grant me one request. Is that still valid? After hearing the Sword Empress's affirmative response, I made my request on the spot. I hope you can stand on my side. Moments later, the Huashan sect master said, many things have happened at Huashan recently. I hope you have a safe journey. As his words fell, I suddenly bowed and said, Sect Master, before I leave, I hope you can give me the position of an honorary disciple of Huashan's sect. Hearing this, the sect master immediately understood the deep meaning in my words, saying, is it because of that thing inside your body? Although granting your request isn't difficult, I can't teach you how to use it right now. At this moment, the Sword Empress suddenly said, it's fine to give it to him. After all, we've all received quite a bit of help from this child. Just like that, the sect master finally gave me an identity. He also threw me a sack, saying, this is what Ninewheel asked me to give you. If it were something valuable, I'd have kept it, but it doesn't seem to be. After everything was settled, I set out on the journey back to the QIU family with everyone. In the carriage, looking at that strange sack, I began recalling my experiences at Huashan. First, Elder Shen possessed my body. Then I met Yingfeng from this life. There was also Yishuedi and Rakshasa, and the Sword Empress whom I healed. Besides these, there were two people who surprised me. One was Zhu He. What was going on with him? He was actually mute. This was such a huge difference from my past life. The other was the Divine Doctor. Why were all these people gathering at the QIU family? In the blink of an eye, deep autumn arrived, and we finally returned safely to the QIU family. After my younger sister greeted father, father walked behind her with a serious expression and said, the journey back must have been hard on you. Surprised, my younger sister walked into the inner courtyard with complex emotions. Then father said to me, I saw the letter you sent back. It seems quite a lot happened at Huashan. As he spoke, he shifted his gaze to the person beside me. Who is this? Hearing this, Nangong Fei immediately straightened up. I'm Nangong Fei. I'm very grateful for young Master Chu's care along the way. Seeing this scene, Elder Shen couldn't help but comment, is this the same child who was drooling in her sleep just now? Hearing this, father was quite surprised, saying, the Nangong family has been looking for you. I'll contact them shortly. After brief pleasantries, father reminded me, 10 days ago, a guest came looking for you. She's still waiting in your room. With that, he hurriedly greeted the Divine Doctor and the Sword Empress. Moments later, when I returned to my room intending to change clothes, I found Tang Shaoli lying on my bed, muttering, young master's quarters are so warm. It's like young Master Chu is lying here. I really hope he comes back soon. At this point, I suddenly noticed a figure I'd been thinking about day and night. Accompanied by a piercing scream, I silently left the place. Before long, after we both sat down, I spoke first. Long time no see, Miss Tang. What brings you to the Qiyu family to find me? Tang Shaoli didn't respond to this question. Instead, she said angrily, you're not Qiyu Juai, so what's your name? It turned out that 10 days ago, when she came to the Qiyu family under the pretense of visiting Qiyu Juai, she discovered the so-called Qiyu Juai was actually someone else. With that, she asked with a wronged expression, why did you do this? To this, I immediately expressed my apology. Then I asked about the purpose of her traveling such a long distance here. Tang Shaoli immediately said, of course I wanted to see you. But the next second she realized that wasn't right, saying, it's not like that. I came this time just to give you an invitation. The Dragon Phoenix Assembly is coming up soon. Can you go with me? After Tang Shaoli finished speaking, her face turned red, but I felt somewhat surprised. The Dragon Phoenix Assembly was originally a martial arts gathering where the Martial Arts Alliance invited rising stars from various sects, but now it had become a place to gain nicknames and recognition. Those who attended the assembly before were all monsters. Tang Shaoli got her title of Poison Consort at that time. In my past life, I was too ashamed to go to such places, so I was always absent before becoming the young family head. I said I haven't decided whether to go yet. Besides this, is there anything else? After hearing Tang Shaoli's negative response, I said with confusion, you came all the way here just for this small matter? Hearing this, Elder Shen couldn't help but spit. She seems to have come because she likes you. Why do girls always like you? What karma? This left me both shocked and surprised. Whether in my past life or this one, I didn't seem to have any connection with her. Thinking of this, I was about to ask, and Elder Shen seemed to have guessed something too. He said, you tactless fool, shut your mouth. However, I had made up my mind, asking, Miss Tang, do you like me? Just as I finished speaking, the oblivious Nangong Fei suddenly pushed the door open, saying, sorry, are you still talking? Seeing this, I quickly signaled her to leave, but was opposed by Tang Shaoli. Elder Shen said urgently, can't you read the atmosphere? If you want to stay alive, you'd better shut up and get out now. Hearing this, I also sensed something was wrong. Miss Tang and I have just finished talking. I'll give you a reply about what you mentioned as soon as possible. With that, I hurriedly left the room. Then, after asking Nangong Fei to sit down, Tang Shaoli got straight to the point. I heard Elder Sister and young Master Chu have made an engagement, and this seems to be Elder Sister's own wish. Looking at Nangong Fei's expression of not knowing what to do, Tang Shaoli continued to ask, I want to ask Elder Sister again what I asked before. Do you like young Master Chu? This made Nangong Fei fall into silence. She said, although even now I'm not clear what that kind of liking feels like, but I can be certain that I hope I can always be by his side. Hearing this, Tang Shaoli first froze, then said with disappointment, why does Elder Sister only say such things now? Why does it have to be Elder Sister and young Master Chu? If only I had proposed marriage to the Qiu family first. Thinking of this, an apology suddenly interrupted her thoughts. She asked in confusion, "Why is elder sister apologizing?" Nangong Fei said, "Of course you were first." Tang Xiaoli said, "This makes me feel even more ashamed. I shouldn't have taken the engagement decided by noble families so lightly." With that, she handed the Dragon Phoenix Assembly invitation to Nangong Fei. "I had planned to invite young Master Chiyu to go with me, though I might have been rejected, but if he wants to attend." At this point, Nangong Fei suddenly said, "If young Master Chiyu goes, I'll go too, so it's fine." Hearing this, Tang Xiaoli felt a blinding light pierce her eyes. What happened during this time? Elder sister, who didn't like participating in external affairs, has now changed. Is this the power of love? I feel completely defeated. But compared to this, what Nangong Fei said next was even more devastating. I might already have young Master Chu's child. Meanwhile, walking in the courtyard, I suddenly had a bad premonition, thinking, they shouldn't be talking about anything strange, right? After Nangong Fei told her everything that happened that night, Tang Xiaoli, who had been very sad, quickly noticed something wrong. Besides holding hands and sleeping, what else happened? But after seeing Nangong Fei's confused expression, Tang Xiaoli breathed a long sigh of relief. It seems elder sister knows nothing about such matters. Thinking of this, she continued, "Elder sister, there's something I must explain to you. Doing that won't result in a child." Looking at Nangong Fei's shocked expression, Tang Xiaoli unhurriedly began explaining the origin of children to her, and Nangong Fei, who listened extremely seriously, seemed to be immersed in a vast ocean of knowledge. Before long, after seeing Nangong Fei come out, I noticed her condition seemed a bit off, so I slowly raised my hand with concern. "Are you all right?" Seeing this scene, Nangong Fei's face turned bright red, then she left without looking back. This left me puzzled. What was wrong with her now? Meanwhile, the Sword Empress came to the Qiu family head's room. Just as she opened her mouth to say "Captain," she was immediately interrupted by the Qiu family head. "Please correct your form of address. I don't have time to play this reminiscing game with you." Seeing this, the Sword Empress had to state her purpose. "I want to ask about what happened in the Demon Mirror that day." Hearing this, a powerful internal force suddenly burst forth from the Qiu family head's body, saying, "Have you forgotten what you promised me?" The Sword Empress said, "I only promised not to ask about Tianxi. I didn't say I wouldn't ask about the Demon Mirror." The Qiu family head said, "I'm not joking right now." The Sword Empress said, "Think about the Martial Arts Alliance's sacred dragon team that protects the people. Think about the subordinates who once swore to follow the captain to the death. So please tell me, what exactly did the captain see in the Demon Mirror? What kind of influence caused the children who entered the Demon Mirror to kill each other? Even those who survived are trapped in constant fear." Hearing this, the Qiu family head's aura slowly dissipated, saying, "If I told you what I saw was the same as what you saw, could you understand that? To find Tianzi, when I entered the Demon Mirror, I saw an extremely strange tree. Just one glance made it feel like impure qi had penetrated my entire body. That forbidden and oppressive feeling that couldn't be spoken of is still unforgettable. You felt it too, didn't you?" So everyone went mad from seeing the same thing. That day, besides you lying in the sickbed, all of us followed Sword Master's orders and entered the Demon Realm. At this point, the Sword Empress suddenly interrupted sharply, "You're clearly lying. When the Sacred Dragon team disbanded and Sword Master stepped down from the Alliance leader position, I never heard of such a thing. Sword Master only heard that in the Demon Realm, he could find a way to save his daughter's life. That's what the Alliance leader told me personally. It was all for his personal desire. How tragic that the world's greatest Sword Master would kneel for this. So everyone didn't sacrifice their lives for righteousness that day. They were just used by the Alliance leader's selfishness and lies." Seeing everything fully exposed, the Qiu family head, who already knew the truth, was at a loss for words, saying, "You should go back for today. Even if you continue asking, I have no way to answer you." The Sword Empress was filled with unwillingness. Then after saying she'd come again, she angrily left the room. However, the Qiu family head who remained knew very well. Sword Master's mental state seemed off at that time. It was like he was being bewitched by something. Time came to nightfall. After seeing the internal force I released, Elder Li and Wei Shuer couldn't help but exclaim in admiration, "This is completely a dragon. It seems your Huashan trip yielded considerable results." To this, I couldn't help but complain, "Why are you calling a person a dragon?" As I spoke, I suddenly thought of something. I took out that cloth bag from my chest. The sect master said this was something you left with him. What's inside? After getting Elder Li's permission to open it, I found inside was just an ordinary-looking bracelet. I said, since it's not anything valuable, why don't I just give it to Shuer? But the result was a heavy punch from Elder Li, saying, "I finally give you a gift once. How can you give it to someone else right in front of me?" At this point, he suddenly said, "People from the Nangong family have arrived. Your fiancé is waiting for you." Hearing this, I immediately rushed out. Nangong Fei was finally going back. This was the best outcome. But why did I feel so anxious? Soon, after arriving at Nangong Fei's room, the scene before my eyes left me frozen in place. Nangong Fei had actually been slapped hard by the Nangong family head. Looking at Nangong Fei's wronged expression, an inexplicable anger suddenly rose from within my heart. I vaguely remembered in my past life, looking at Nangong Fei standing in the moonlight, I said involuntarily, "You're like the moon." After that, she would always look at the moon lost in thought. Even at her dying moment, she didn't forget to ask if the moon had risen. This left me very confused. What was she thinking while looking at the moon? Yun, although I never found the correct answer until the very end in my past life. In this life, I no longer wanted to be troubled by this question, so I charged forward without a word. But just as I was about to hit, a powerful thunder force suddenly burst from the opponent's body. Then, with just a raise of his hand, he easily neutralized my fierce attack. He said, "Who are you? Why are you interfering in others' family matters?" Hearing this, I immediately understood everything. This person was the Nangong family head, Nangong Zhen. I immediately withdrew my internal force and introduced myself. "I'm your daughter's fiancé, Qiu Yangtian. May I ask what just happened?" Nangong Zhen said. "What's wrong with a father disciplining his child? And do you think it's right to attack an elder?" But I still said righteously. "Regardless, I cannot tolerate anyone laying hands on my fiancé." Seeing this, Nangong Zhen instantly flew into a rage. Then he activated his Thunder Force again, saying, "You do seem to have some talent, but you lack humility, exactly like your father." However, not only was I not suppressed by this aura, I even taunted. "After all, I can't be like your son, having neither talent nor humility." No, wait. It's not a son now, it's a daughter, right? Upon these words, Nangong Zhen was about to strike. At this critical moment, a voice suddenly rang out. "It seems my son has caused trouble. He's still a child who doesn't understand. I'll discipline him properly later. I hope you can forgive him this once." With that, he shifted his gaze to me, and I understood and expressed my apology. However, as we were leaving, Nangong Zhen said, "This isn't something an apology can resolve." But seeing Qiu Zheyun's cold gaze, the unwilling Nangong Zhen could only forcefully hold back. At this moment, following behind father, I couldn't help but mutter, "I'm done for. Father will definitely punish me. Maybe he'll even kill me," as I mentally spiraled. Father's next words completely exceeded my expectations. "Well done. You taking action to protect your own people isn't a mistake." This made me doubt myself. Besides praising my martial arts progress, why would the person who never praised me suddenly praise me? Thinking of this, I couldn't help but recall a childhood scene. Back then, my sister was there. Mother was there too. The family was always harmonious and blissful, and father wasn't as serious as he is now. But all of this was ultimately just the past. Thinking of this, I suddenly said, "You previously agreed to give me the Taishan pill after I brought sister back, but I don't need it now. I hope you'll let me go underground to see." Qiu Zheyun said, "Why would you, who didn't want to go near that place after that day, suddenly want to go there?" I stammered in response, "I'm a member of the QIU family. I'll have to know eventually, won't I?" After pondering for a moment, father agreed while giving me a teasing look, saying, "I'm planning to meet with the Nangong family head to finalize your marriage. Go to the place I mentioned early tomorrow." After returning to my room, looking at Elder Shen who stood by watching, I complained, "You could still laugh at a time like that." Elder Shen said, "From an observer's perspective, it was indeed interesting. But what about the Dragon Phoenix Assembly? If you don't want to go, you should have refused her on the spot." However, I had already made up my mind, because it wasn't far from the main family, and there was someone there I had to meet. Hearing this, Elder Shen suddenly said exceededly, "There's something that needs investigating. When you go, can you stop by somewhere?" Early the next morning, I hurriedly rushed to the place father had arranged, but there was no one there. Just as I was about to complain, a gentle voice suddenly came, "So you're already here?" To this, I was about to scold, but after seeing Nangong Fei's stunningly beautiful appearance, the words on the tip of my tongue got stuck. "She's so beautiful."